Chapter 1891. Wu Chu glanced at Lu Ming and the others with sharp eyes. He said that as long as Lu Ming and the others could hold on for a while, he would help them when they got the sword origin. We asked you to do something, but you're so wishy-washy. We asked you to follow us and block the danger for you. Do you think you can just eat and drink for free? You have to do something valuable. A burly man beside Wu Chu said to them with a gloomy face. Lu Ming sneered. Wu Chu and the others were blocking the danger for them? What a joke. They were clearly using them as bait. If there was danger, they would let them go. It was the same now. They were asking them to block the danger while they went to get the sword origin. Who knew if they would run away after getting the sword origin? I'm not going. If you want to fight, fight among yourselves. I'll leave the team. I'd rather take the risk alone in the sword tomb. A burly man shook his head and refused. Then he wanted to leave. But at this moment Wu Chu suddenly moved. He attacked violently and clawed at the brawny man. The burly man did not expect Wu Chu to attack him. He was a lesser absolute saint, but he could not use his full strength. Wu Chu was a perfected absolute saint. The difference between them was too great. He could not fight back at all. Wu Chu's claw cracked the burly man's head. The burly man roared. His eyes were filled with anger and indignation. Die. Wu Chu's power surged out. The burly man's head exploded like a watermelon. His soul was instantly destroyed. It's too late to leave now. Go and stop them. Otherwise you'll die. Wu Chu said coldly to Lu Ming and the others. Lu Ming and Xiaomun's eyes were gloomy. The others were pale. The dozen people opposite them looked at them in surprise. Haha, we haven't even started the battle and there's already an internal conflict. One of them sneered. No matter what tricks they're playing, get ready to attack. We have to get the sword origin. These people have to die too. The person with the strongest aura said coldly. Not only did they want the sword origin, but they also wanted to kill Lu Ming and the others. How could finding the sword origin be faster than killing people? On Lu Ming's side. All right, let's attack. Lu Ming nodded in agreement. The others could only nod helplessly. When I tell you to start, you guys attack immediately and catch them off guard. Wu Chu transmitted his voice and then suddenly roared, kill. Whoosh, whoosh. The figures of Lu Ming and the others flashed as they charged towards the other party. However, before he could get very far, Lu Ming's palm chopped down like a saber. A stream of energy as large as a mountain shot towards him. You're courting death. Kill them all. The leader of the other side let out a furious roar. More than 10 people erupted and charged towards Lu Ming's group. Retreat. Lu Ming shouted in a low voice. Together with Qiuyu, he suddenly turned around and rushed towards Wu Chu and the others. The others were stunned for a moment before fleeing in other directions. How could they really throw their lives away? All of you are courting death. Seeing that Lu Ming and the others were actually running in the opposite direction and were rushing towards them, Chief Wu was immediately enraged. You're really treating us as bait. What a joke. Lu Ming sneered as he and Qiuyu charged towards Wu Chu and the others. The other party also rushed towards Wu Chu and the others. Little brat, I'll kill you first. A burly man of the Saint Realm launched a fierce attack towards Lu Ming. Scram. Lu Ming shouted coldly as he punched out. He directly crushed the opponent's attack and then collided with the opponent's palm. Crack. The opponent's hand bones were directly shattered. He frantically retreated with a look of disbelief. However, Lu Ming and Qiuyu did not continue to fight. They rushed past him and rushed into the distance. Following that, the other party had already rushed over. All sorts of attacks poured towards Wu Chu and the others. The two sides immediately engaged in a chaotic battle. Damn it, little brat, I'll kill you sooner or later. Wu Chu roared, his eyes filled with killing intent as he looked at Lu Ming and Qiuyu. Lu Ming was actually so daring. Not only did he want to escape, but he also wanted to lead the other party to them. He deserved to be cut into pieces. Old man, save your own life first. Goodbye. Lu Ming laughed as he and Qiuyu did not stop. They quickly flashed away. The other party saw that Lu Ming and the others were just two young men, so they did not care at all. They only stared at Wu Chu and the others and attacked ferociously. Not long after, Lu Ming and Qiuyu had already left the battlefield and appeared tens of thousands of miles away. The two of them did not have a fixed direction. Their goal was to find the Tai Sui treasure lotus. However, they did not know where the Tai Sui treasure lotus would appear in the sword tomb. They could only search randomly. The two of them randomly chose a direction and ran forward. Not long after, they found two sword sources. Beside them, there were about 20 sword emanations guarding them. Since they had encountered them, they naturally would not give up. Although the sword emanations were strong with their battle strength, it was not too difficult. The two of them charged toward the sword sources at lightning speed. Whoosh, whoosh. The sword emanations also noticed Lu Ming and Qiuyu. They charged toward Lu Ming and Qiuyu. Their bodies were like divine swords, shining with dazzling sword light as they slashed toward the two. Qiuyu waved his hand. Two scimitars, one cold and one hot, flew out and continued to spin. The cold and hot collided, exploding with a destructive force that swept forward. The sword emanations, regardless of whether they were supreme saints or absolute saints, were instantly crushed by the destructive force. With Qiuyu's battle strength, he could instantly kill an ordinary absolute saint expert. Boom, boom. Lu Ming's attack was even more direct. He kept punching with his fists. A phantom of the suppressing prison monument appeared and suppressed the sword emanations. All the sword emanations that were suppressed by the suppressing prison monument were instantly crushed. Even two absolute saints in the Great Completion were instantly killed. In a few breaths of time, the 20 sword emanations were cleared out by the two of them. The two of them each grabbed a sword origin and soared into the air, leaving this place. 10,000 miles away, in a valley, Lu Ming carefully examined the sword source in his hand. The sword source looked like a real battle sword from the outside, but when Lu Ming scanned it with his spiritual consciousness, he could clearly feel that it was formed by sword energy. Swallow. Lu Ming's palm exploded with a devouring power. The sword source exploded under the devouring power, turning into a gust of energy that was devoured by Lu Ming. This is, Lu Ming sensed it carefully. He found that the sword source's energy seemed to be formed by thousands of tiny sword lights that merged with Lu Ming's saint power. They were like countless sharp sword lights, refining Lu Ming's saint power and making it stronger. Lu Ming started to refine the sword source. After more than 2 hours, Lu Ming finally finished refining the sword source's energy. My saint power has indeed become stronger and more condensed, Lu Ming thought. Chapter 1892. No wonder so many people had entered the sword tomb to search for sword sources. Some people's cultivation had reached a bottleneck and it was difficult for them to improve. However, if they refined the sword sources, they might be able to improve further. This was especially true for those who practiced the sword Dao. Lu Ming waited for a while longer before Qiu Moon finished her cultivation and refined a sword source. Then the two of them left the place and continued their search. It would be good to obtain some sword sources while searching for the Tai Sui treasure lotus as they could improve their cultivation. Soon after, the two of them found another sword source and kept it for the time being. The sword tomb was really huge. Lu Ming and the two of them wandered around for a whole day, but they still couldn't see the end of it. They had also obtained 4 sword sources, which was 2 for each of them. Whoosh, whoosh. Suddenly, a group of figures rushed out from a call in front of them and surrounded the two of them. There were 8 of them in total. They were all old men or middle-aged men, and they were all filled with killing intent. There were 5 great sages and 3 absolute sages. However, the most powerful one was only in the great achievement absolute sage realm. Lu Ming's lips curled into a cold smile. So it's 2 brats. One of them sneered and looked at Lu Ming and Qiu Moon coldly. But this girl is really beautiful. I can enjoy her. A middle-aged skinny man who was as thin as a bamboo looked at Qiu Moon with a burning gaze. Kid, hand over all the treasures you have. The skinny man said coldly. On average, there would be people entering the sword tomb every few days. Therefore, there were many people in the sword tomb. There were all kinds of people in the sword tomb. There were even some people who lived in the sword tomb all year round. They killed and robbed others of their treasures and sword sources to cultivate. In the sword tomb, no matter which faction you came from, your death would be in vain. No one would know who killed you or how you died. Obviously, these people in front of them were here to kill and rob. They were here to kill those who were alone or had a small group. I'll give you 3 breaths to get lost. 3. Lu Ming said indifferently. What? This brat told us to scram. Ah, did I hear wrongly? Someone laughed loudly, unable to believe his own ears. Judging from the age of Lu Ming and Qiuyu, how old were they? What level of cultivation and combat strength could they have at this age? And he even told them to scram? What a joke. 2. Lu Ming continued. His voice was even colder and filled with cold killing intent. The faces of the 8 people darkened. It seemed that Lu Ming wasn't joking. Could it be that Lu Ming had something to rely on? However, from the looks of it, Lu Ming and Li Chia were not even 30 years old. How could they be a match for them at such a young age? They had been active in the vicinity of the Tai Sword Tomb for over 100 years. During this period they had encountered some young people, but they were no match for them. Many of them had died at their hands. However, this was the first time he had seen someone as confident as Lu Ming. 1. Lu Ming slowly spat out the last word, and the killing intent in his eyes surged. It seems that you don't want to leave. Then I'll fulfill your wish and let you be buried here with the thousands of battle swords. Lu Ming said coldly. Brat, you're boasting shamelessly. I'd like to see what you're capable of. A perfected great sage took a heavy step forward. His body was like a cannonball as he charged toward Lu Ming. His sacred power and nomological laws erupted. He was like a prehistoric giant beast pressing down on Lu Ming. Bang! Lu Ming lifted his leg and kicked out. His foot landed directly on the opponent's dantian. The opponent screamed in pain. His body flew thousands of meters away and crashed into a mountain full of battle swords, creating a huge pit in the mountain. As for him, he was already exhaling more than he was inhaling. The remaining 7 people were stunned. A great saint in the complete perfection was like a baby in front of Lu Ming. He didn't even have the strength to resist. Could it be that this person had the combat strength of an absolute saint at such a young age? How was that possible? Bang! Lu Ming took a step forward. The aura of a great saint in the complete perfection was fully released. The powerful aura locked onto the other 7 people. He had already given them a chance. Since they didn't take it, he would kill them all. Anyway, these people were not good people. He did not know how many people like Lu Ming and the rest had died in their hands. Qiu Moon stood aside and didn't make a move. She knew Lu Ming's combat strength very well. She didn't need to do anything to deal with these people. Let's work together and kill him. The skinny man shouted. His aura erupted and he charged toward Lu Ming. At the same time, the other 6 people also moved. Each of them released their aura. Terrifying attacks bombarded Lu Ming. Lu Ming stood still. An absolute saint weapon appeared in his hand and he swept it out. A moon-like sword light burst out and slashed in all directions. All the attacks of the opponents were instantly destroyed. Buff, buff, buff. Blood light burst out and blood chi filled the air. The 7 figures pounced quickly, but the speed of their retreat was even faster. The 7 figures flew more than 1,000 meters and fell heavily on the ground. 6 of them had no vitality left. They were directly killed by Lu Ming's sword light. Only the skinny man still had a trace of vitality. He didn't die yet. His eyes were wide open, filled with endless horror and disbelief. He was just a young man less than 30 years old. He actually had the cultivation of a great saint in the complete perfection. His combat strength was even more terrifying. Even he, a great saint in the great mastery, couldn't withstand a single blow. Could it be that young people nowadays were also terrifying? They had been in the sword tomb for hundreds of years and didn't go out. Had the outside world changed? With endless questions he breathed his last breath. Lu Ming waved his hand and the 8 people's storage rings came to his hand. He scanned the storage rings with his spiritual sense and saw the things in them at a glance. These people were really rich. The origin stones were piled up like mountains. It was obvious that they had killed many people over the years. There were also more than 10 sword sources in total. Sword sources were consumables. It was good enough to have 10 of them. Lu Ming gave half of them to Autumn Moon and left. In the next few days they found a few more sword sources, but they still didn't see the Tai Sui lotus. It seemed that it wasn't easy to find the Tai Sui lotus. They had to be prepared for a long battle. There's a sword source over there. Suddenly they saw a sword source in front of them. The 2 of them rushed toward it. At that moment something strange happened. Clang. A sword cry resounded as the sword origin actually flew up on its own and whistled towards the depths of the sword tomb. The sword source moved on its own? The 2 of them didn't have time to think. They stepped into the air and chased after the sword source. However, the sword source's speed was shocking. It was like a ray of light that disappeared into the distance in an instant. Lu Ming and Autumn Moon couldn't catch up for a while. There's one there too. Chapter 1893. In another direction, a few sword sources broke through the air and flew toward the depths of the sword tomb. They were heading in the same direction as the sword sources that Lu Ming and the rest were chasing. What's going on? The 2 were puzzled. Why would the sword sources fly on their own? It would be fine if there was only one, but now there were several. The 2 chased for a while, going deeper and deeper into the sword tomb. At this time they saw more sword sources flying toward the sword tomb, and some of them were being chased by people. Wait, Autumn Moon, wait a minute. Lu Ming stopped and frowned. There must be something wrong in the depths of the sword tomb. Otherwise, why would so many sword sources fly in the same direction? In a place like this, if there were any abnormalities, it would be either the birth of a treasure or the arrival of a danger. Lu Ming, should we chase them or not? Autumn Moon asked. She also felt that something was wrong. If they continued to chase, she did not know what would happen. Let's not go deeper. Let's see if we can find the Tai Sui treasure lotus in the outer area, Lu Ming said. Autumn Moon nodded. After that, the two did not continue to go deeper. They continued to search in the outer area. From time to time, they would see sword sources whizzing through the air, flying toward the depths of the sword tomb. They would also see figures flying in the air, chasing after the sword sources. When Lu Ming and Autumn Moon were lucky, they could intercept one or two sword sources along the way. Lu Ming looked, that's... Autumn Moon suddenly exclaimed and pointed at a cliff in front of them. Lu Ming looked in that direction and saw a lotus flower on the cliff. It was as white as jade and crystal clear. The strange thing was that the petals of the lotus flower were thin, long, and sharp like divine swords. The Tai Sui treasure lotus. Lu Ming had seen it in the records of the Great Pill Evolution Hall, so he recognized it at a glance. Lu Ming was overjoyed. It was really a case of traveling far and wide looking for something only to find it by chance. They had searched for a long time without finding any trace of the Tai Sui treasure lotus. They did not expect to see it when they stopped chasing and wanted to search in the outer area. The Tai Sui treasure lotus is very intelligent. It can escape on its own. Autumn Moon, stay here and block it. I'll go get it. Lu Ming transmitted his voice to Autumn Moon, then used the divine breathing technique and flew silently toward the Tai Sui treasure lotus. When Lu Ming was a certain distance away, dense runes appeared on his palm. He pressed his palm on the ground and the runes spread along the ground toward the Tai Sui treasure lotus. He wanted to seal the Tai Sui treasured lotus with the formation Dao to prevent it from escaping. However, the Tai Sui treasure lotus suddenly moved. It turned into a white beam of light, resembling a white sword. It broke through the sky and flew towards the depths of the tomb. Not good, we've been discovered. Qiuyu, chase after them. Lu Ming transmitted his voice to Autumn Moon, then used his movement technique to chase after the Tai Sui treasure lotus. Lu Ming was very fast, but so was the Tai Sui treasure lotus. It was as fast as the sword sources. Lu Ming could not catch up with it. The Tai Sui treasure lotus is too sensitive. I was so careful, but it still found me. Lu Ming was speechless. He could only give chase. Autumn Moon followed closely behind Lu Ming. The direction in which the Tai Sui treasured lotus fled was exactly the same as the direction in which the swords had fled. They chased the Tai Sui treasure lotus for several hours, but they could not catch up with it. At this moment, Lu Ming could not help but miss Bubbles. If Bubbles were around, given the speed of the spacetime law and the sealing power, it would not be difficult to capture the Tai Sui treasure lotus. After chasing for a while, Lu Ming's pupils suddenly shrank. The scene in front of him shocked him. There was an abyss in front of him. Above the abyss, countless sword sources gathered and danced in the air. Sword chi soared into the sky. There were too many sword sources. It was impossible to tell how many of them there were. Around the abyss there were many people standing in the air. At a glance there were at least a few hundred of them. They surrounded the abyss, but did not take any action to seize the sword sources. That was because the scene was too strange. They had never seen so many sword sources gathering above the abyss. There had to be something fishy going on. No one dared to act rashly. Whoosh. At that moment, the Tai Sui treasure lotus turned into a beam of sword light and disappeared into the abyss. This is troublesome. Lu Ming's face turned gloomy. It was not easy to find the Tai Sui treasure lotus. Unfortunately, he could not take it. He could only watch as it fled into the abyss. Lu Ming and Autumn Moon stood outside looking ahead. They did not act rashly. Many people looked at the endless source of swords. Their eyes were burning with greed. There were so many sword sources. If they could refine them, how much could their cultivation improve? However, the situation was strange. Although they were greedy, they still kept their rationality and restrained themselves. Brat, it's you. At this moment, a furious roar could be heard. The sound of something breaking through the air could be heard. A few figures dashed toward Lu Ming and his companion. So it's these guys. Lu Ming looked in the direction of the voice and sneered. The person who flashed over was Wu Chu. At that moment there were only two people left beside Wu Chu. It was obvious that they had suffered heavy losses. Whoosh, whoosh. Wu Chu and the other two surrounded Lu Ming and Autumn Moon. Brat, how dare you betray us? I'll make sure you die miserably. Wu Chu glared at Lu Ming furiously. His murderous intent was extremely strong. Previously, because of Lu Ming, not only did they not get the sword sources, but they also fought fiercely with the other party. In the end, many of them died in battle. Only the three of them managed to break out of the encirclement. They naturally blamed all of this on Lu Ming and the others. If Lu Ming and the others had acted according to their plan, they would not have suffered such losses. Betray you? What a joke. I only joined your team to cooperate with you. You used us as bait from the beginning. Do you think I would be stupid enough to die for you? Lu Ming smiled faintly. There was strong disdain in his eyes. Weaklings should have the awareness of weaklings. Wu Chu said coldly. Weaklings? Ah, you're already so old, but you're only in the Saint realm. Do you think you're strong? Lu Ming was not afraid at all. Whether I'm strong or not, I'm strong enough to kill you. Wu Chu took a step forward and fully unleashed his cultivation as a perfected saint. His withered claw grabbed at Lu Ming with a terrifying whistling sound. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. He activated the hell-suppressing heaven skill and punched out. Bam! Lu Ming's fist collided with Wu Chu's claw. With a loud boom, both of their bodies were pushed back slightly. How is this possible? Wu Chu's eyes widened in disbelief. Lu Ming could actually block his attack. How was this possible? It was unbelievable that a perfected great saint could block the attack of a perfected saint. The others around them were also shocked. That's the law of primal chaos. He's a son of primal chaos. Chapter 1894. Many people recognized Lu Ming's law of primal chaos, and they exclaimed in shock. They hadn't expected a son of primal chaos to appear here. No wonder his battle prowess was so terrifying. Wu Chu was shocked and his eyes were filled with disbelief. He'd actually provoked a son of primal chaos. But then the killing intent in his eyes grew stronger. Since he'd already offended him, he'd kill him and get rid of all future troubles. Otherwise he'd be the one to die in the future. He was a decisive person. After making a decision, he immediately said, "Let's go and kill him together." He said to the other two. Whoosh. Autumn Moon stepped into the air, two scimitars floating around him. He said, "Lu Ming, leave these two to me." Lu Ming nodded. Although the cultivation levels of the other two were very high, one was a great sage and the other was a peak great sage, given Qiu Yu's cultivation level, it would not be a problem for her to block them. Autumn Moon stepped into the air, surrounded by the law of yin and yang, and charged toward the two. The two sides immediately clashed. Kill! Lu Ming shouted. He used the divine sword technique, and his soul pierced toward the other party like a sword. At the same time, Lu Ming stretched out his finger and pointed at the void. Endless energy gathered in the void, forming a huge finger that pressed down on Wu Chu. Wu Chu's pupils contracted rapidly, and a chill ran down his spine. It was as if he was facing a fatal danger. Heavenly Centipede Claw? Wu Chu roared and unleashed his strength to the extreme. He used a divine power and a huge claw formed, grabbing toward the chaotic calamity finger. Boom! The huge claw and the chaotic calamity finger collided. The void began to tremble violently. In the next moment, under Wu Chu's horrified gaze, the claw he had condensed collapsed. The powerful force of the primal chaos tribulation finger slammed into his body, causing him to cough up large mouthfuls of blood. His body crashed heavily into the ground. Wu Chu's battle prowess wasn't very strong in the absolute saint realm. His theurgy was only at 85% and it was just an ordinary law. It couldn't be compared to the 88% chaotic disaster finger. It was too weak. Wu Chu was severely injured in one move. That attack just now was Lu Ming's strongest attack. Primal Chaos Calamity Finger. Lu Ming pointed his finger again, and another Chaos Finger of Calamity was formed. Wu Chu revealed a look of despair as he desperately tried to resist. However, after this attack, Wu Chu's injuries became even more severe. Half of his body almost exploded. Facing ordinary martial artists, Lu Ming could completely cross a realm and kill the enemy. Boom! Boom! Then Lu Ming punched continuously. The terrifying fist force drowned Wu Chu. Wu Chu howled madly, letting out a roar of unwillingness. He did everything he could to resist, but gradually his voice became softer and softer until it finally disappeared. By the time Lu Ming stopped, Wu Chu had already disappeared. His body and soul had been destroyed, leaving only a storage ring on the ground. With a wave of his hand, Lu Ming collected Wu Chu's storage ring. The faces of the two people who were fighting Autumn Moon changed drastically as they were filled with fear. That pinnacle absolute saint broke through Qiu Autumn Moon's attack and tried to escape. "Do you think you can escape?" Lu Ming said coldly. His figure flashed and he instantly caught up with that person. He pointed his finger, and the chaos finger of calamity was formed, crushing toward that person. That person screamed in pain as his body was torn apart and he died on the spot. A pinnacle absolute saint expert was instantly killed by Lu Ming. The remaining absolute saint expert was also turned into ashes under Qiu Autumn Moon's destructive energy. 3 great experts had died so quickly at the hands of 2 young people. which made the nearby people very solemn. The Son of Chaos is really shocking. His combat strength is incredible. It's better not to provoke such a peerless genius. I'm afraid there's a terrifying force behind him. Some people discussed as they looked at Lu Ming and Qiu Autumn Moon solemnly. Lu Ming and Qiu Autumn Moon stood on one side and looked toward the abyss. The others also calmed down and looked toward the endless sword source. As time passed, more and more people gathered, which made many people's faces turn gloomy. Forget it. If this continues, more and more people will come, and we won't be able to get many sword sources. I want to try and see if there's anything strange about it. Finally, someone couldn't take it anymore. An old man stepped out and rushed toward the sword sources. He was very close to the sword sources, but there was nothing strange. Grab them. The old man stretched out a large hand, which was formed by Saint Power, and grabbed toward the sword sources. The hand grabbed, but there was still nothing strange. The old man grabbed a dozen sword sources and put them away. Ah! The old man was overjoyed. There was no danger at all. They were overthinking. Seeing that there was no danger, the others all looked greedy. They were about to fight for the sword sources. At this moment, a terrifying sword light suddenly slashed out from the abyss below. Oh no! The old man's face changed drastically. He waved his hand and set up layers of defense trying to block it. However, the sword light slashed through the old man's defense instantly. The sword light didn't stop. The old man screamed as his body was cut in half. His body fell into the abyss and disappeared. Everyone was shocked and stopped in their tracks. "There's someone in the abyss," someone exclaimed. Sure enough, a person holding a long sword stepped out from the abyss. It was a middle-aged man in a brocade robe. His aura was extremely shocking. He had reached the peak of the Absolute Saint realm. Clearly, the sword light just now was from this person. There was someone in the abyss? Could it be that the sword sources were gathering because of this person? Kill? The man roared. Sword Chi whistled and charged toward the crowd. It's just a peak Absolute Saint. Let's work together and kill him. Someone shouted and counterattacked. Then someone else attacked. There were many experts who had entered the sword tomb to explore. They came from all over the Yuan Mountain. Even the weakest of them was a great saint. Many of them were absolute saints, and there was no lack of peak absolute saints among them. 3 peak absolute saints attacked and fought with the person who had walked out of the abyss. The person who had walked out of the abyss was naturally no match for them. However, the person who had walked out of the abyss didn't seem to be afraid of death. He attacked with all his might and didn't care about defense. Something's not right. This person doesn't seem to have any intelligence. He only knows how to attack. Lu Ming's eyes flickered. He found that the person who had walked out of the abyss had empty eyes. He looked like a walking corpse. Oh no, someone else has walked out of the abyss. Someone shouted. Everyone looked over. More figures had appeared in the abyss, and it wasn't just 1 or 2. There were many of them. One figure after another appeared, filled with cold killing intent. As soon as they appeared, they charged toward the crowd. That's the leader of the Round Blade faction. I know him. I heard that he had been adventuring in the sword tomb. So he's here? That's wind-chasing sword Lu Shirlang. He doesn't seem to recognize me at all. Exclamations sounded. Chapter 1895. More and more people stepped out of the abyss. Without saying a word, they charged toward the crowd. In the end, more than 100 people stepped out. They were all experts, and most of them were absolute saints. These people were not afraid of death and were very troublesome. The scene fell into chaos. These people are just walking corpses. Let's work together and kill them. Someone shouted. There were at least 300 to 400 people here, and they were all experts. They worked together and attacked the people who had walked out of the abyss. That is, at this moment Lu Ming saw a person and was shocked. Because Lu Ming actually knew one of them. The Life and Death Sword Sect Master. Lu Ming had never thought that he would see the Life and Death Sword Sect Master here. Back in the Tsang state, they had been ambushed by the Evil Spirit Sect. In the end, they had broken out together. The Life and Death Sword Sect Master had brought Luo Xiang and succeeded in breaking out. He had never thought that he would appear in the Sword Tomb. Moreover, the Life and Death Sword Sect Master was like those people who had walked out of the abyss. He had completely lost his mind. His eyes were empty, and only his cultivation and combat power were left. Whoosh. The Life and Death Sword technique of the Life and Death Sword Sect Master was very terrifying. With one sword, an absolute saint expert's forehead was pierced. Junior brother, you're courting death. An old man roared and charged toward the Life and Death Sword Sect Master. This person was at the peak of the Absolute Saint realm. With one slash, he destroyed the Life and Death Sword Sect Master's attack. The saber didn't stop and slashed toward the life and death sword sect master. Lu Ming took a step forward and threw a punch, sending that person's saber flying. "What are you doing? This person is crazy. He has lost his mind," the person shouted. "I'll take care of him," Lu Ming said indifferently. The peak absolute saint was very afraid of Lu Ming. He gritted his teeth and left to kill the people who had walked out of the abyss. Whoosh! The life and death sword sect master attacked again. The sword light pierced through the sky. Lu Ming could see that the life and death sword sect master's cultivation was at the peak of the absolute saint realm. Lu Ming punched out and destroyed the life and death sword sect master's sword light. "Senior, wake up," Lu Ming shouted. His voice rumbled like thunder and blasted into the head of the life and death sword faction. "Kill." The leader of the life and death sword faction did not seem to notice anything and continued to attack Lu Ming. Lu Ming blocked the other party's attack and shouted continuously, but the other party did not react at all. "Lu Ming, this person's soul seems to have been obliterated." Autumn Moon appeared beside Lu Ming and said, "What's going on?" Lu Ming frowned. The leader of the life and death sword faction had a good relationship with the Dragon God Valley in the past. They had fought against enemies together. Lu Ming did not want to see the leader of the life and death sword faction fall, but unfortunately, there was nothing he could do. "Lu Ming, is this someone you know? But he has indeed fallen. If you can't bear it, then give him to someone else," Autumn Moon said. Lu Ming nodded and quickly retreated with Autumn Moon, killing the other people who had walked out of the abyss. As for the leader of the life and death sword faction, he continued to kill the others. However, there were even more people outside. Soon, the leader of the life and death sword faction was surrounded by a few experts. His body exploded and fell into the abyss. Lu Ming sighed. The leader of a sect in the Tsang state, an overlord of a region, had ended up like this after leaving the Tsang state. He had escaped from the evil spirit sect, but in the end he had fallen here. Lu Ming could not help but think about Luo Xiang, who was with the leader of the life and death sword faction. He was an upright person and also a terrifying genius. He had stayed at the same cultivation level and nurtured his sword soul for 15 years. No one knew what kind of achievements he could achieve in the future. Had he also perished? Lu Ming's thoughts were many, but his attacks did not stop. He killed 2 people who had walked out of the abyss. There were fewer people who had walked out of the abyss. In the end, they were surrounded and killed one by one. However, these people were very powerful and did not fear death. The people outside had also paid a heavy price. About 100 people were killed, and their blood dyed the ground red. When the last person who had walked out of the abyss was killed, everyone's gaze turned back to the abyss. Was there anyone else in the abyss? Why were those people like walking corpses? Were they being controlled? Many people's eyes flickered as various thoughts ran through their minds. However, no one dared to go up and snatch the sword sources. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. At this moment, the sword sources gathered together and flew down into the abyss. In less than a minute, the endless source of swords flew down into the abyss and disappeared. Everyone looked at each other. All the sword sources had flown down into the abyss. What should they do? Should they go down? However, the abyss was very mysterious and terrifying. Previously, more than 100 experts had walked out of the abyss. All of them had no intelligence and were like walking corpses. They only knew how to kill. What was at the bottom of the abyss? Was it the appearance of a rare treasure that attracted the sword sources, or was there some danger? Everyone looked at each other. They all wanted the others to go down first to explore. If there was danger, they could retreat in time. Everyone had the same thought. Who would take the lead? After a moment of stalemate, someone finally spoke. "Everyone, we can't go on like this. Why don't we join forces and explore together?" A purple-robed elder suggested. "All right, I agree. Instead of being in a stalemate, why don't we join forces and explore together?" A burly man said. "All right then. Those who want to go down and explore, take a few steps forward. Those who don't want to go down, retreat. We won't force you." The purple-robed elder said and took a step forward. Following that, the burly man also took a step forward. Some people pondered for a moment before taking a step forward. Disregarding everything else, the endless sword sources were definitely an irresistible temptation. If they could obtain a part of it, their cultivation would definitely improve rapidly. Especially those who cultivated the sword. Not only could it improve their cultivation, but it could also temper their swordsmanship and improve their comprehension of the law of the sword. Even if there was danger, it was worth taking the risk. Lu Ming and Qiu Yu also took a step forward. The Taisui treasure lotus had escaped into the abyss. No matter what, they had to go down and search for it. Otherwise, they did not know when they would find it. However, not everyone wanted to go down and explore. Some shook their heads and took a few steps back. The abyss was too strange. No one could predict what dangers there would be. If they lost their lives, what was the point of obtaining the sword sources? However, only a few people retreated. More people planned to go down and explore. Everyone, those who don't want to go down, let them stay here forever. At this time, a cold light flashed in the purple-robed elder's eyes as he transmitted his voice to Lu Ming and the others. Why? Someone asked with a glint in his eyes. Those who don't want to go down have ulterior motives. They probably want us to go down first to explore. Who knows if they will go down after we go down? There's no such good thing in the world. Also, some people are probably waiting for us to come out and then ambush us. If we get injured down there, won't we be killed by these scoundrels? So, these people can't be left alive. Chapter 1896. The purple-robed elder's words caused many people's eyes to flicker. That's right, we can't let these people live. If we let them live, we might be leaving a disaster for ourselves. The burly man also said coldly. I also think we can't let them live. Then let's kill them. The others also spoke one after another. Of course, they were all transmitting their voices. Those who chose to stay could not hear them at all. All right. Then let's kill them first. Let's go down and surround them first. Don't let them escape. The purple-robed elder said. Immediately, the crowd's figures flashed and surrounded those who had chosen to stay. Lu Ming and Autumn Moon did not move. Although the martial world was very cruel and the weak were prey to the strong, Lu Ming and Autumn Moon had their own principles. These people had no enmity with them, so they would not kill them for this reason. Of course, they would not stop them either. What are you doing? The expressions of those who chose to stay changed drastically. Kill. The purple-robed elder shouted coldly. They made their move. Dazzling and fatal rays of light burst out and attacked those who chose to stay. Those who chose to stay were already in the minority. How could they resist? Instantly they were killed one by one. You guys are too vicious. Someone roared, extremely unwilling to give up. Ridiculous. The burly man sneered and slashed out with his saber, killing that person. In just a few minutes, those who chose to stay were all killed. One wrong move and those people would be facing death. All right, now that there's nothing to worry about, let's go down. The purple-robed elder said. Then, everyone formed a formation and flew carefully into the abyss. Looking down from above the abyss, it was pitch black and nothing could be seen. Descent. The purple-robed elder's cultivation was unfathomable. He was a quasi-emperor expert, so everyone naturally followed his lead. As soon as his voice fell, everyone flew down the abyss. The abyss was very deep. They descended for thousands of feet before reaching the bottom. As soon as they landed, Lu Ming looked in a direction in shock. In that direction there was a giant sword that was at least 100 meters tall. It was incomparably huge. Under the giant sword, a figure sat cross-legged with his eyes closed. No aura could be felt from his body. Luo Xiang. Lu Ming murmured. As expected, Luo Xiang was also in this abyss. However, Luo Xiang did not rush out of the abyss like his master, the leader of the Life and Death Sword faction. Instead, he sat under the giant sword and did not feel the slightest bit of aura. Could it be that he had already fallen? Lu Ming couldn't help but feel that it was a pity. Although he had not interacted much with Luo Xiang, he could feel that this person was an upright person who lived for the sword. He was a true swordsman. Then Lu Ming's gaze turned in another direction. There endless sword sources gathered, spiraling about. Under the boundless sword source, there was a figure staring at Lu Ming and the others with sharp eyes. This is a sword termination. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. The figure under the endless sword origin was clearly a sword aura. However, this sword aura was completely different from the sword aura that Lu Ming had seen before. Not only was this sword aura more solid, but there was also a glint of wisdom in its eyes. This sword terminus possessed intelligence. The others also noticed this sword terminus and their expressions turned solemn. Lu Ming Taisui Treasured Lotus. At the side, Qiu Moon nudged Lu Ming and whispered. Lu Ming followed Qiu Moon's gaze and saw the Taisui Treasured Lotus rooted on a pile of bones. The lotus petals swayed gently and rippled with sword chi. You're all here. Just in time. Sacrifice yourselves to my sword. The sword terminus let out an ear-piercing laugh. How is this possible? Aren't sword terminus without intelligence? How could this sword terminus have intelligence? Could it be that those who came out of the abyss were all controlled by him? Is the sword origin gathering also because of him? Many people's expressions changed and they were shocked. Some of them had been in the Tai Sword Tomb for many years and had never heard of Sword Terminus gaining intelligence. They had also never seen Sword Origin gathering here. Today I'll sacrifice your blood to my sword. Form. Sword Sha shouted as he raised his palm. The endless Sword Origin gathered toward Sword Sha's arm and condensed together to form a huge battle sword. At the same time, wisps of blood chi gathered from above the abyss and gathered on the Sword Terminus, making his body more solid. This blood chi was the blood of those who had died in the battle above the abyss. Could it be that those figures who had come out and fought with them earlier wanted blood? Many people's expressions turned ugly when they thought of this. Boom. A terrifying aura burst out from the sword emanation's body. This aura was incomparably powerful and superior. It was even stronger and purer than the aura of a quasi-emperor like the purple-robed elder. This was Emperor's aura. Everyone's expression changed drastically. This was pure Emperor's aura. This was an Emperor-level expert. There was actually an Emperor-level expert hiding in the abyss. Many people's hearts trembled and they felt a chill run down their spine. Let's go. Someone roared and soared into the air, rushing toward the abyss in an attempt to escape. In the face of an Emperor-level expert, no matter how many people they had, it was useless. Only death awaited them. I've said that I'll sacrifice your blood to my sword to help me take the last step. All of you stay here. The Sword Terminus let out a sinister laugh. He raised the huge sword in his hand that was formed by the endless sword origin. Suddenly, in the sky, endless sword radiance gathered. These sword radiance were like the battle sword. The tip of the sword was pointed downwards, revealing its sharpness and sealing off all directions. Kill? The Sword Terminus roared again. Endless sword radiance covered the sky and pierced toward the crowd. Suddenly, screams rang out. One by one, the figures were either pierced by the sword radiance or split in half. Their souls were annihilated and they died on the spot. After these people died, their blood gathered toward the Sword Terminus, making his aura even stronger. Wheel of Yin Yang. Autumn Moon shouted. A round wheel appeared in between her eyebrows. This round wheel emitted a cold chi on one side and a blazing chi on the other. The combination of the two emitted a terrifying aura. That was the Emperor's aura. Obviously this was an Emperor weapon. The wheel of Yin Yang floated above Autumn Moon's head. A light curtain fell, enveloping Lu Ming and Autumn Moon within it. Dong, dong. Those sword radiance bombarded the light curtain cast by the wheel of Yin Yang. The light curtain shook violently and rippled. But in the end, it blocked the sword radiance's bombardment. Lu Ming's eyebrows also flashed with light. He originally wanted to use the Tai Chi array to block it. But after seeing that Autumn Moon could block it, he did not use it for the time being. Keeping a few trump cards might be of great use at a critical moment. Chapter 1897. There had been hundreds of them when they'd come down, but now there were only 20 of them left. The weakest of the remaining 20 or so people were at the peak of the Absolute Saint Realm. In other words, everyone below the peak of the Absolute Saint Realm had been killed in that wave of attacks. Even the perfected Absolute Saints who'd survived were all injured. What a terrifying attack. Ordinary Absolute Saints couldn't even fight back against it. Imperial weapon. Sword emanations glanced coldly at Autumn Moon and Lu Ming. Run, run, run. The remaining people were terrified. They frantically rushed toward the abyss. Lu Ming and Autumn Moon also rushed toward the abyss from another direction. More than 20 streaks of light moved at a shocking speed. However, Sword Emanations was even faster. He took a step forward and appeared in the air above the crowd. Boundless sword light began to converge. This time, the endless sword lights fused together. In the end, there were only 20 or so sword lights left. However, the might emitted by each of the sword lights increased explosively, giving off an incomparably terrifying feeling. Use your blood as a sacrifice to my sword. Kill. Sword Emanations yelled. More than 20 streaks of sword light charged toward Lu Ming and the others. On average, one sword light fell for each person. Boom, boom. Everyone used all their power to block, but some people couldn't block it at all. All attacks and defenses collapsed as the sword light slashed through. More than a dozen people were killed. They would never be able to leave this place. They were all at the peak of the Absolute Saint Realm. Only a few perfected Absolute Saints were able to block the attack with secret treasures. However, they were also severely injured. Autumn Moon also tried his best to control the Yin Yang wheel to block the attack. Although he managed to block it in the end, Autumn Moon's body trembled. Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Apart from them, 2 other people blocked the sword light. They were unharmed. One was the purple-robed elder from before. He was a quasi-emperor. The river of laws surrounded him. He defeated the sword light with one strike. The other person was a woman in a palace dress. She was also a quasi-emperor. She defeated the sword light. The two quasi-emperors destroyed the sword light and rushed upward. Haha, even a quasi-emperor must die. The sword emanation sneered as he waved the huge sword in his hand. Boundless sword light appeared once again and gathered into a few sword lights that slashed towards the two boundary emperors. Break! The two boundary emperors bellowed. The rivers of law formed a terrifying attack that collided with the sword light. However, the sword light this time was clearly stronger. The two quasi-emperors trembled and were sent flying downwards. This sword baleful has not fully become a martial emperor. We still have a chance. Let's work together and charge out. If we split up, we will all die. The purple-robed elder roared, and a purple river of laws revolved around his body. He turned into a purple beam of light and rushed to the side of the woman. At the same time, the remaining perfected absolute saints also rushed toward them. Just as Autumn Moon was about to leave, she was stopped by Lu Ming. Let's not go there. Let's go get the Tai Sui treasured lotus. Lu Ming secretly transmitted a message to Autumn Moon. They didn't rush towards the purple-robed old man and the others. Instead, they rushed towards the Tai Sui treasure lotus. On the other hand, the purple-robed old man and the others gathered together and rushed upwards at the same time. The sword emanations glanced at Lu Ming and Autumn Moon coldly and then ignored them. He looked at the purple-robed old man and the others and sneered, "Although I am close to becoming a martial emperor, it is more than enough to kill you. After killing you, I will use your blood to help me become a martial emperor." Condense. As the sword emanations uttered the last word, boundless sword light gathered and turned into three huge sword lights. They slashed towards the purple-robed old man and the others from three different directions. Boom, boom, boom. Three terrifying attacks and boundless sword chi filled the area. Many sword marks appeared on the canyon at the edge of the abyss. After a few screams, the remaining absolute saints of the absolute saint realm were killed by the terrifying power. Only the two emperors-to-be were still alive. However, the two boundary emperors' faces were pale. "Why aren't the two of you working together? Do you want to die here together?" The purple-robed old man roared. He was obviously talking to Lu Ming and Autumn Moon. However, Lu Ming didn't seem to hear him. He pulled Autumn Moon and rushed towards the Tai Sui treasure lotus. He felt a terrifying sense of danger from the sword emanations. He had a feeling that even if he worked together with the purple-robed old man and the others, they wouldn't be able to get out. They would only be able to get out if they used a special attack. Damn it! The purple-robed old man roared. He worked together with the woman and two rivers of law turned into terrifying attacks. The sword emanations took a step forward and three sword lights formed again. They slashed towards the purple-robed old man and the woman. The purple-robed old man and the woman trembled as they were pushed back. They were at a disadvantage. Right then, Lu Ming was about to reach the Tai Sui treasure lotus. The sword emanations narrowed his eyes. The giant sword that was condensed from the sword origin in his hand vibrated slightly. Dozens of terrifying sword gleams shot toward Lu Ming in the sword emanations. Tai Sui array disc. Lu Ming's glabella lit up and the Tai Sui array disc appeared. It expanded rapidly and blocked in front of the two. Clang, clang, clang. The sword lights slashed onto the Tai Sui array disc and it shook violently. However, the Tai Sui array disc was an emperor-level treasure. It was extremely sturdy and didn't even leave a mark on it. Lu Ming and Autumn Moon continued to rush towards the Tai Sui treasure lotus. The petals of the Tai Sui treasure lotus rippled as if it had sensed Lu Ming and Autumn Moon. Seal. Lu Ming spat out a word. Then, dense runes appeared on the ground around the Tai Sui treasure lotus. These runes formed a sealing force that enveloped the Tai Sui treasure lotus like a huge net. The Tai Sui treasure lotus emitted a dazzling sword chi and tried to rush out. However, it was blocked by the sealing force. With his previous experience, Lu Ming would not go all out. During the impact earlier, Lu Ming had already secretly injected the law of array into the ground. Through the ground, he arrived near the Tai Sui treasure lotus. Then he suddenly attacked and sealed the Tai Sui treasure lotus. Lu Ming and Autumn Moon rushed over. Lu Ming grabbed the Tai Sui treasure lotus and put it into the mountain river diagram. Let's go. With the Tai Sui treasure lotus in hand, Lu Ming and Autumn Moon turned into two streaks of light and rushed towards the abyss from another direction. Don't even think about leaving, the sword demon said coldly. He couldn't let anyone leave today. If news of him got out and a true emperor-level figure came, he would be finished. He waved the huge sword in his hand, and beams of sword gleams appeared above Lu Ming and Qiu Yu's heads, slashing toward them. Lu Ming blocked with the Tai Sui array disc. All the sword lights slashed onto the Tai Sui array disc. The Tai Sui array disc vibrated and Lu Ming and Autumn Moon were blocked. Kill. The sword demon blocked Lu Ming and Autumn Moon with his sword lights and focused more on the purple-robed elder and the woman. The three huge sword lights that were attacking the purple-robed elder and the woman gathered together to form an even bigger sword light. Chapter 1898. Swoosh. The sword light slashed down. Even with the purple-robed elders and the woman's cultivation, they almost could not block it. The river of laws was almost pierced through as blood spurted from their mouths. However, what made them despair was that the giant sword slashed down again. They could only try their best to block it. Autumn Moon, enter the mountain and river diagram. Lu Ming sent a voice transmission to Autumn Moon. The mountain and river diagram flew out and sucked Autumn Moon into it. Lu Ming's glabella shone again as he took out the Great Elixir Development Furnace. Lu Ming rushed into the Great Elixir Development Furnace and controlled it to fly upwards. The Great Elixir Development Furnace was the most precious treasure of the Great Elixir Development Palace. It was unknown what grade it was, but it was definitely above the Tai Chi array disc. Clang, clang, clang. The sword light kept slashing on the Great Elixir Development Furnace. The Great Elixir Development Furnace shook, but it was still slowly moving upwards. This was Lu Ming's plan. He wanted the purple-robed elder and the woman, the two boundary emperors, to hold back the sword emanations while he rushed out with the Great Elixir Development Furnace. If he was with the purple-robed elder and the others, they would not be able to escape from the sword emanations' all-out attack. The sword emanations' expression changed slightly. He did not expect Lu Ming to have so many treasures on him. Each one was stronger than the previous one. If this continued, he would not be able to free himself and Lu Ming might really escape. Don't even think about it. Today all of you will stay here. These treasures are all mine. The sword emanations roared as his body emitted a blood-red light. This blood-red light was the blood-red light that he had just absorbed. At this moment, it flowed out from his body like water. It looked extremely strange. Then, the blood-red light flowed to the giant sword in his hand and burned like a flame. The giant sword in his hand seemed to have turned into a terrifying killing sword. Return. The giant sword light that attacked the purple-robed elder and the others also flew into the giant sword and merged with it. This made the giant sword in the sword emanation's hand even more terrifying. Swoosh. The sword emanation stepped into the air and slashed the giant sword in his hand towards the purple-robed elder and the woman. The terrifying sword might covered the sky and earth. It was terrifying to the extreme, causing the space to tremble as if it had the power to split the heavens and earth apart. Not good. The faces of the purple-robed elder and the woman in the palatial dress changed dramatically, revealing expressions of terror. The might of this sword strike already surpassed that of a quasi-emperor, infinitely close to that of a martial emperor. With this strike they were all going to die. No, I don't want to die. The purple-robed elder roared in his heart as his eyes revealed a ferocious look. Suddenly, he attacked and struck the woman with his palm, sending her flying into the air towards the sword emanations. You, despicable. The woman in the palace dress roared. Her eyes were filled with endless fury and fear. But at this time, in order to save her life, she could only use all her strength to resist. She unleashed all of her techniques and even took out all of her saint weapons. However, in the face of the sword emanations, everything was in vain. As the giant sword slashed down, all of the woman's defenses as well as her body, were reduced to ashes. This brat. After the purple-robed elder sent the woman flying with his palm, he charged towards Lu Ming. Lu Ming had consecutively taken out his emperor weapon. If he could obtain Lu Ming's emperor weapon, his chances of escaping would be greatly increased. However, the sword emanations would not let him have his way. He trying to escape? Die. After the sword emanations killed the woman in the palace dress, its body flashed and appeared above the purple-robed elder. The purple-robed elder's face was as white as snow. No! He roared, but under the slash of the sword light, he followed in the footsteps of the woman in the palace dress and was reduced to ashes. He pushed the woman in the palace dress towards the sword emanations, but he only lived for a few more breaths. Not good. Lu Ming's face changed drastically in the Great Evolution Elixir Furnace. The sword emanations had been using some of its sword light to obstruct him. At this time he had not managed to get too far. Moreover, he did not expect that the purple-robed elder and the woman in the palace dress, two emperor-to-be experts, would be killed so quickly. The sword emanations had obviously used a method to temporarily increase his combat strength, allowing his combat strength to be infinitely close to that of an emperor-level expert. "Brat, it's your turn now." The sword emanation sneered and took a step forward. He appeared above the Great Evolution Elixir Furnace and slashed down with his giant sword. Boom! The giant sword slashed on the Great Evolution Elixir Furnace. The Great Evolution Elixir Furnace shook violently. Like a cannonball, it fell into the abyss and landed heavily on the ground. The entire abyss shook violently. 100-meter deep pit was formed in the ground. The Great Evolution Elixir Furnace was embedded in the deep pit. Within the Great Evolution Elixir Furnace, Lu Ming spat out mouthfuls of blood. His face was pale. Although he had the protection of the Great Evolution Elixir Furnace, Lu Ming's cultivation was limited. He could not unleash the full power of the Great Evolution Elixir Furnace. Moreover, his cultivation was too far from the Sword Emanation's Elixir Furnace. The Sword Emanation's Elixir Furnace was enough to injure Lu Ming. This treasure is really amazing. Haha, not only will I become an Emperor-level expert today, I will also obtain a few rare treasures. The heavens are really helping me. The Sword Emanation's Elixir Furnace laughed loudly. He appeared above the Great Evolution Elixir Furnace and slashed at it again. Dong! The Great Evolution Elixir Furnace shook violently. The terrifying power caused the surrounding ground to shatter. The 100-meter deep pit exploded once again and became even bigger. The Great Evolution Elixir Furnace shook and produced a terrifying power that bombarded Lu Ming's body. It caused Lu Ming to spit out mouthfuls of blood and his injuries to worsen. This can't go on. Lu Ming's mind raced as he tried to think of a way to escape. However, under such circumstances he had no way to escape. The difference in strength between him and the Sword Emanation's Elixir Furnace was too great. Even with the Great Evolution Elixir Furnace, it could not protect him. If this went on, he would be killed sooner or later. He might even exhaust his Saint power and lose control of the Great Evolution Elixir Furnace. Let's see how long you can hide. Slash, slash, slash. The Sword Emanation's Elixir Furnace roared. The giant sword in his hand that was formed from the endless sword origin continuously slashed at the Great Evolution Elixir Furnace. The entire abyss was shaking non-stop. Cracks that looked like spider webs appeared on the ground and extended in all directions. Within the Great Evolution Elixir Furnace, Lu Ming used all of his strength. The law of primal chaos protected his body and Saint power surrounded his body. However, the terrifying vibrations continued to bombard his body, causing his injuries to worsen. Not long after, the Sword Emanation's Elixir Furnace had attacked more than 100 times. Lu Ming's aura was extremely weak, and his injuries were severe. Not good. Suddenly Lu Ming's face changed. He felt that he was starting to lose control of the Great Evolution Elixir Furnace. Boom. As expected, when the Sword Emanation's Elixir Furnace slashed down again, the Great Evolution Elixir Furnace shook and began to shrink rapidly. Finally, it turned into a ray of light and flew into Lu Ming's forehead and disappeared. Lu Ming's body appeared in the deep pit. "Ah, kid, you're finally out. Let's see how you're going to stop me now." The Sword Emanation's Elixir Furnace laughed sinisterly and was filled with killing intent. In order to deal with Lu Ming, he had expended a large amount of Yuan Qi. Now, he was not even confident that he could break through to the Martial Emperor realm. Chapter 1899. What should I do? Lu Ming quickly thought of a solution in his mind. Lu Ming still had one last method, which was to enter the mountain river diagram. However, once he entered the mountain river diagram, it would be exposed and controlled by the other party. Moreover, he was not confident that the mountain river diagram could stop the other party. The mountain river diagram was just a grotto heaven treasure and its defensive power could not be as strong as the Great Pill Derivation Furnace. Once he entered the mountain river diagram, he would be completely passive and at the mercy of the other party. Am I going to die here today? Lu Ming clenched his fists and was extremely unwilling. In his life, he had experienced many difficulties and dangers. He had experienced all kinds of dangers, but he had still managed to overcome them one by one. He was unwilling to die just like that. He wanted to reach the peak of martial arts. Die. At this moment, the sword emanations shouted coldly and slashed the giant sword in his hand at Lu Ming. This sword could kill a quasi-emperor in an instant and its power was extremely powerful. Before the sword arrived, the terrifying pressure had already made it difficult for Lu Ming to move. The strong pressure pressed on Lu Ming's body, causing his bones to creak as if they were about to break. This sword was unstoppable. No, I can't die. I have friends and family that need my protection. My parents need my protection. I don't know where Xiaoqing is now. I have to find her, Xiang Emoli. Once I die, Chiu Moon will also die. I can't die. I have to reach the peak and change my fate. Lu Ming roared in his heart, bursting with endless fighting spirit. Even if he was in a desperate situation, he was unwilling to die. Even if he could not defeat the other party, he had to fight. Even if he died, he had to fight to the death. His eyes were full of unyielding determination. He was unyielding to the sword emanations and unyielding to fate. Clang. At this moment, the sound of a sword rang through the 9 heavens. Within the mountain river diagram, a stone sword broke through the barrier of the mountain river diagram and flew out, hovering above Lu Ming's head. A terrifying sword radiance shot out from the stone sword and shot up into the sky. The sword radiance from the sword emanations was destroyed by this sword radiance. This is the sword of the Celestial Emperor. Lu Ming never would have thought that the Celestial Emperor's sword would suddenly rush out and block his opponent's sword at the critical moment. This sword emanation's gaze also landed on the sword of the Celestial the Arch. He did not know why, but when he saw the sword, his heart trembled. Divine sword, a peerless divine sword. If I get this sword, my cultivation will break through the shackles in an instant and reach the martial emperor realm. I might even be able to reach higher realms in the future. The sword emanation's eyes emitted a fiery glow. He was a sword baleful spirit that had been unintentionally nurtured by the Tai sword tomb after countless years. He possessed intelligence. However, he was still lacking at the Khanate level. Unlike the human race, it was extremely difficult for him to advance. It was much more difficult for him compared to humans, demons, and divine beasts. He had cultivated bitterly for many years and finally found the opportunity to break through to the martial emperor realm. But because of Lu Ming, the opportunity for a breakthrough had become mysterious again. However, Lu Ming actually had a peerless divine sword in his hands. He had a feeling that as long as he could get this peerless divine sword, he would be able to advance rapidly in the future. Even his cultivation speed would skyrocket. He had to get this sword. Lad, you have a lot of treasures in your hands. Hand over this sword obediently and I can give you a quick death. Sword emanations looked coldly at Lu Ming, but the greed in his eyes could not be concealed. If you let me go, I can give it to you. Lu Ming's eyes flashed as he said. Alright, I agree to let you go. Hand over the sword to me. Sword emanations did not hesitate and immediately nodded. Do you think I am stupid? If I hand it over to you now, what if you go back on your word? Wait until I get out of here, then I will hand it over to you. Lu Ming said. Lad, you are not qualified to talk terms with me now. If you don't hand it over, then I will take it myself. Sword emanation said coldly. The aura on his body became stronger and the huge sword in his hand emitted a terrifying fluctuation. Swoosh. He slashed down with the sword again. This time, the power of the sword was even stronger than before. Buzz. The sword of the Heavenly Emperor vibrated slightly and scattered a sword screen, enveloping Lu Ming within it. Sword emanation sword radiance slashed on the light screen. It was like a drop of water falling into the sea. There were no ripples and it disappeared immediately. No, it did not disappear. It was absorbed by the sword of the Heavenly Emperor. Buzz. The sword of the Heavenly Emperor vibrated again and emitted a terrifying suction force. Sword emanation's face changed. At this moment, he felt a terrifying suction force from the sword of the Heavenly Emperor. The huge sword in his hand was about to fly toward the sword of the Heavenly Emperor. A few of the sword sources even left the huge sword and flew toward the sword of the Heavenly Emperor. They entered the sword of the Heavenly Emperor and disappeared. The sword of the Heavenly Emperor vibrated slightly as if it was very excited. The suction force became stronger. You want to swallow my sword sources? Stop. Sword emanations roared. Blood radiance continuously flowed out of his body and burned fiercely. His strength increased tremendously and he forcefully stabilized the huge sword in his hand. Your sword is indeed amazing. However, if you want to swallow my sword sources, don't even think about it. Sword emanations shouted, his gaze as cold as a knife. What if I join in? At this moment, a cold voice sounded. It was not Lu Ming who had spoken. Apart from Lu Ming and sword emanations, there was a third person here? Luo Xiang. Lu Ming immediately thought of Luo Xiang. He extended his spiritual senses and saw that Luo Xiang had opened his eyes. Above his head, there was a black and white sword floating. That was his sword soul. Luo Xiang was not dead. You are not dead yet. Sword emanation screamed. If you are not dead, how can I die? Swallow. Luo Xiang said coldly. When he spat out the last word, the huge sword on his back that was stuck in the ground vibrated violently. Clang. The humming of the sword whistled as the gigantic sword emitted an incomparably resplendent light. Unexpectedly, It also exploded with a terrifying attractive force that enveloped the sword chi. A few sword sources flew out of the huge sword in Sword Emanation's hands and entered the huge sword. At this moment, the sword of the Heavenly Emperor also seized the opportunity and released its suction force. Swoosh, swoosh. The huge sword in Sword Emanation's hands continued to send sword sources into the sword of the Heavenly Emperor. Being enveloped by the sword of the Heavenly Emperor and the huge sword on Luo Xiang's back at the same time, Sword Emanations finally could not resist. What frightened him was that he could not leave this place even if he wanted to. He realized that his body could not move at all. He was being sucked in by the sword of the Heavenly Emperor and the huge sword on Luo Xiang's back. As for the huge sword in his hands, sword sources were being separated and absorbed by the sword of the Heavenly Emperor and the huge sword. Swoosh. Suddenly, two sword sources flew towards Lu Ming. Lu Ming felt that this seemed to be a reward from the sword of the Heavenly Emperor. Lu Ming was stunned. Chapter 1900. In his dantian, the two saint hearts were operating at full power. The saint power slowly grew stronger and flowed into Lu Ming's limbs and bones. Lu Ming's injuries started to heal. On the other side, Luo Xiang's situation was very similar to Lu Ming's. The giant sword could actually split into sword sources and fly to Luo Xiang, which were absorbed by his sword spirit. Luo Xiang sat there without moving. He was like an old monk in meditation, cultivating wholeheartedly. No, Sword Sha screamed and kept exploding. He wanted to resist, but it was useless in the end. He couldn't move at all. He seemed to be restrained. As the sword sources in his giant sword kept being absorbed, his ability to resist became weaker and weaker. However, there were too many sword sources in the giant sword. It was endless. It couldn't be absorbed in a short time. Time flew by quickly. Day after day passed. With Lu Ming's spiritual body's strength, his injuries were healed after a day. He then used the sword source's power to refine his true origin and improve his cultivation. Every time the sword source's power was refined, two more sword sources would fly to him and be devoured by Lu Ming. As time passed, Lu Ming's cultivation became stronger and stronger. He was close to becoming an absolute saint. Time passed day by day. In the blink of an eye, 3 months had passed. In 3 months, the endless sword sources in Sword Sha's hand were almost completely absorbed by the Heavenly Emperor's sword and the giant sword. Lu Ming also refined many sword sources. His cultivation had reached the peak of the Supreme Saint realm. He was very close to becoming an absolute saint. It wasn't that easy to become an absolute saint. Although Lu Ming had refined many sword sources during this time, he still hadn't broken through. He needed an opportunity. However, Lu Ming was already very satisfied. It was very difficult for a Supreme Saint to become an absolute saint. It needed a long time to accumulate. Without enough accumulation, it was impossible to improve. Take Autumn Moon for example. When Lu Ming saw Autumn Moon was already a peak Supreme Saint. But now, she still hadn't become an absolute saint. She was accumulating. Only after accumulating to a certain extent would one be able to make a breakthrough. Under normal circumstances, given that Lu Ming had cultivated 2 sacred hearts, he would not be able to break through to the absolute saint realm without a few years of accumulation. But now, Lu Ming had completed several years of accumulation in just 3 months. The Celestial Emperor's sword had absorbed a large amount of sword origin. There was a layer of faint white light on it, looking incomparably mysterious. On Luo Xiang's back, the giant sword also emitted a dazzling sword light. On the surface of the sword, there were mysterious runes flowing. No, I can't accept this, Sword Emanations muttered to himself. At that moment, his aura was extremely weak and he was extremely weak. When the last sword origin was absorbed, the Celestial Emperor's sword shook and withdrew all of its aura. It turned back into an ordinary stone sword and flew into Lu Ming's forehead. It floated in Lu Ming's sea of consciousness. Lu Ming moved his mind, and the Celestial Emperor's sword appeared in Lu Ming's hand. But after Lu Ming injected his saint power into it, he realized that the Celestial Emperor's sword didn't react at all. Is this really the Celestial Emperor's sword? I can't unleash its power at all. Lu Ming was speechless. He put the Celestial Emperor's sword back into his sea of consciousness. At that moment, the giant sword on Luo Xiang's back shook as if it was going to break out of the ground. The light on the sword became even more dazzling. An even stronger suction force enveloped Sword Emanations. Sword Emanations was terrified. He screamed, No. He struggled wildly, but it was all in vain. His body flew toward the giant sword and disappeared into it. Clang. The giant sword buzzed and the entire valley shook violently. Lu Ming flew out of the deep pit and stood in the air to watch from afar. The giant sword shook more and more violently. Finally, it rushed out of the ground and flew into the sky. After circling in the air, it rushed directly toward Luo Xiang. When it got close to Luo Xiang's body, it became smaller and smaller. It entered Luo Xiang's glabella and disappeared. At that moment, Luo Xiang opened his eyes. A powerful aura was emitted. Great sage perfection. Lu Ming was secretly shocked. Luo Xiang's cultivation had also reached the great sage perfection. It seemed that Luo Xiang had also obtained a great opportunity because of this giant sword. Moreover, Lu Ming discovered that Luo Xiang's spiritual body was also extraordinary. It had evolved to the point of a mid-level spiritual body. Back then, when Lu Ming first met Luo Xiang, his spiritual body was only an inferior spiritual body. 15 years to nurture a sword soul. It's really not simple. Lu Ming whispered. He had long felt that Luo Xiang was not simple. He had already mastered the law of speed, which was one of the laws of the king. Now that his cultivation had reached the great sage perfection, he had obtained the giant sword, and cultivated a magical sword soul. His combat strength was definitely terrifying. Luo Xiang got up and looked at Lu Ming. He smiled and said, Lu Ming, long time no see. I didn't expect to meet you here after we parted in Sangzhou. I also didn't expect to see you here. What's going on with you guys? And your master? At this point, Lu Ming paused and sighed. My master, he must have fallen. Luo Xiang said with a sad look in his eyes. Yes. Lu Ming nodded and said, he seems to have lost his spiritual consciousness. His soul is no longer there. His soul was destroyed by the sword spirit. Luo Xiang said, Lu Ming, let's leave this place first. We'll talk as we go. Okay. Lu Ming nodded. He then shot up into the sky with Luo Xiang and flew into the abyss. They then flew toward the exit of the sword tomb. Along the way they did not encounter any accidents. Soon they flew out of the sword tomb and into the distance. Along the way, Luo Xiang told Lu Ming about their encounter after they escaped from Sangzhou. After they escaped from Sangzhou, they did not go to the ancient moon sacred ground. Instead, they followed a caravan and took the teleportation formation to the vicinity of the Tai sword tomb. Later on, Luo Xiang followed the life and death sword sect leader to the sword tomb to cultivate and accidentally entered the abyss. The sword spirit had been planning to attract other martial artists and use their blood as a sacrifice to the sword. In addition to the energy of the sword origin, it had broken through to the martial emperor realm. Therefore, the sword spirit had split into a sword spirit and destroyed the life and death sword sect leader's soul to control him. As Luo Xiang had cultivated a sword soul, he was protected by the giant sword. Moreover, Luo Xiang had cultivated a sword soul and used it to destroy the sword spirit. Therefore the sword spirit had thought that Luo Xiang was dead. In fact, Luo Xiang was still alive and had formed a connection with the giant sword. However, with his strength alone he was no match for the sword spirit. In the end, the sword of the heavenly emperor had appeared and released a powerful force to attract the sword spirit. Only then did Luo Xiang make his move. He cooperated with the giant sword and attacked the sword spirit. Lu Ming was enlightened. He finally understood the cause and effect. Luo Xiang could be considered to have profited from the disaster and obtained a great fortuitous encounter. Unfortunately, the life and death sword sect leader had died and this made Luo Xiang feel sad. The two of them flew more than 10,000 miles away and landed on a mountain peak. Lu Ming summoned the autumn moon from the mountain river painting. Chapter 1901. After Autumn Moon heard this, she was also quite surprised. She didn't expect that the sword of Celestial Emperor that Lu Ming pulled out in Celestial City would play a big role here and save them. Autumn Moon, the ingredients are ready. Why don't we refine the spirit recovery pill here? Lu Ming said. Since the ingredients were ready, Lu Ming wanted to refine the spirit recovery pill as soon as possible. Moreover, Luo Xiang's cultivation had skyrocketed, and he needed time to consolidate it. It was better to refine it here. Anyway, the environment here was more secluded, and there was no need to be afraid of being disturbed. And that works too. Autumn Moon nodded. Her eyes flashed with anticipation. She also wanted to know what was the memory that was taken away from her. When a person knew that a part of their memory was taken away and was blank, they would always think about it and be curious. This would also cause an obsession in their heart, which would affect their cultivation. Immediately, Lu Ming took out the Great Pill Development Furnace, and then recited the refining method of the spirit recovery pill in his heart. After confirming that there were no mistakes, he took out all the ingredients one by one. The spirit recovery pill was a very high-grade and rare pill. It was also very complicated to refine. It was a slow process that couldn't be rushed. Lu Ming threw the first type of material into the Great Evolution Cauldron and began tempering. When the first ingredient was almost refined, he put in the second ingredient according to the order and began refining. He let the two ingredients fuse together in a strange way. Of course, the ingredients in the beginning were all auxiliary ingredients. As for Luo Xiang and Autumn Moon, they sat cross-legged on both sides of Lu Ming, a few miles apart. They were cultivating while guarding Lu Ming. Time passed day by day. This time he used half a month's time to refine the medicine. Clang. Half a month later. With a thought, Lu Ming opened the lid of the furnace and an elixir flew out. Success. Lu Ming was overjoyed. He reached out and sucked the pill into his hand. Lu Ming examined it carefully. It really was the spirit recovery pill. It was exactly the same as recorded in the prescription. After spending half a month, he finally succeeded in refining it. In a flash, Autumn Moon and Luo Xiang appeared in front of Lu Ming. Autumn Moon looked at the pill in Lu Ming's hand with anticipation. Mid-Autumn Moon, the spirit recovery pill has been successfully refined. Take it. Lu Ming said. All right. Autumn Moon nodded, took the pill and swallowed it without hesitation. Then he sat down cross-legged and began to refine it. Let's hope it works. Lu Ming clenched his fists nervously. The soul recovery pill might not be able to restore Autumn Moon's memories. There was also a possibility of failure. If he failed, then it would be difficult to find the materials for the spirit recovery pill again. However, Autumn Moon had been with him all this time and it did have some effect. This could also increase the success rate. Lu Ming and Luo Xiang stood by the side and waited. There was a layer of light on Autumn Moon's body. The law of yin and yang circulated continuously. It was obvious that she was refining the pill. 3 days later, Autumn Moon opened her eyes. Had she recovered? Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. Qiu Yu's eyes were initially filled with confusion. Slowly her eyes regained their luster. She looked at Lu Ming and suddenly revealed a happy smile. She moved and pounced on Lu Ming, throwing herself into Lu Ming's arms. Young Master, Autumn Moon remembers you. Young Master, you finally came to find Autumn Moon. As she spoke, Autumn Moon's tears flowed down, wetting Lu Ming's clothes. Autumn Moon, have you recovered your memories? Lu Ming asked. Yes. Autumn Moon rubbed Lu Ming's body a few times, wiping her tears on Lu Ming's clothes. Then she blinked her big eyes and looked at Lu Ming saying, Young Master, I have recovered. What happened before, please don't blame Autumn Moon. She was referring to Autumn Moon's attitude towards him. When they first met, she even treated Lu Ming as an opponent. Don't blame? Of course you should blame me. How dare you treat your young master like this? You should be punished. Lu Ming deliberately said with a straight face. Then how should I punish you? Autumn Moon asked softly. What do you think? Lu Ming smiled. Autumn Moon suddenly stepped forward and kissed Lu Ming's lips. Then she glanced at Luo Xiang beside her. Luo Xiang's eyes immediately darted around, deliberately looking in other directions as if he couldn't see anything. Is this okay? Autumn Moon's face blushed and her voice became lower and lower. Girl, I haven't seen you for a long time, but you're getting bolder and bolder. Lu Ming smiled bitterly. However, he was also happy. Autumn Moon's memories had finally recovered. The way she looked at him was exactly the same as more than 10 years ago. Autumn Moon stuck out her tongue and made a face. Autumn Moon, let's go back to the Origin Mountain Academy. Lu Ming said with a smile. Young Master, I'm afraid we can't go back yet. As soon as I recovered my memories, I felt that my spirit embryo was bright. It seems that I'm about to break through to the Supreme Saint Realm. If we miss this time. Autumn Moon said softly. You're about to break through? Lu Ming was delighted, but he wasn't too surprised. Autumn Moon had already reached the perfected stage of the Supreme Saint Realm. She had been accumulating for a long time, and her accumulation was enough. Now that her memory had recovered, her spirit embryo was bright, and her mind was clear, so it was normal for her to have an opportunity to break through. Anyway, we don't have anything else to do. Your breakthrough is more important. We'll wait for you here. Lu Ming said. The opportunity to break through could only be encountered by chance. If they missed this time, they didn't know when the next time would be. It would be a waste of time. Okay. Qiu Yu nodded and floated up and started to cultivate. Lu Ming and Luo Xiang guarded Autumn Moon. Autumn Moon closed her eyes and sank into a deep level of cultivation. She ignored the outside world and focused on breaking through. Saint power surged on her body, and the law of yin and yang lingered. Every day her aura would become stronger. Just like that, half a month passed. Autumn Moon's aura reached its peak. Boom. As if something had shattered, a powerful aura burst out from Autumn Moon's body and rushed into the sky. Then Autumn Moon opened her eyes. With a wave of her hand, a large pile of origin stones appeared. Autumn Moon began to absorb the origin chi of the origin stones and the origin chi of heaven and earth. This process lasted for 3 days. After 3 days, Autumn Moon's aura reached its peak. The aura of an absolute saint. Autumn Moon became an absolute saint first, reaching the initial stage of the absolute saint realm. With Autumn Moon's king body talent, her battle power would definitely skyrocket after becoming an absolute saint. Even Lu Ming wasn't confident that he could defeat Autumn Moon now. After a while, Autumn Moon ended her cultivation. She withdrew her aura and stood up. Autumn Moon, congratulations. Lu Ming walked over and looked at Autumn Moon. He was quite emotional. The girl who had grown up with him had become an absolute saint now. In the vast land of Yuan Mountain she would be a top genius. Who would have expected something like this? It's all thanks to you, young master. Otherwise I wouldn't have broken through so quickly. Autumn Moon smiled. Okay, let's go back then. Chapter 1902. Celestial City was always so prosperous. As the #1 holy land of Primordial Mountain, countless powerhouses gathered there. The platform where the sword of Celestial Emperor was located had lost its former liveliness. Since Lu Ming pulled out the sword of Celestial Emperor, this place gradually became deserted. Above the platform a young man stood in the air. This young man was dressed in snow white, his clothes were snow white, and his shoes and socks were also snow white. His black hair was scattered, and his 2 eyes were as dazzling as 2 stars. At this time, this young man exuded a terrifying aura as his eyes stared at the platform. The sword of Celestial Emperor was pulled out. When did it happen? The young man asked with a cold voice. Beside the young man, there was an old man with a gloomy look in his eyes and said, "About 5 months ago." "Who is it?" The young man continued to ask. "This person controls the law of primal chaos. He is a very young genius. We have sent someone to investigate. He is the genius of Primordial Mountain Academy, and his name is Lu Ming." The old man replied. "The law of primal chaos. Lu Ming, how dare you take away my Heng Xinghe sword? You really don't know what's good for you." The young man said, and the killing intent in his eyes grew stronger. It turned out that he was the #1 genius on the Sage King board, the Eternal Son, Heng Xinghe. But that kid is also smart. After taking away the sword of Celestial Emperor, he disappeared. We have used various methods to inquire, and that kid is not in Primordial Mountain Academy during this period of time. He should be out training. The old man said. Unless he never returns to Primordial Mountain Academy, my sword will always be mine. Heng Xinghe snorted coldly, then turned around and left. In a citadel outside Celestial City, Lu Ming, Qiuyu, and Luo Xiang stepped out of the teleportation array. It took them half a month to reach the nearest teleportation area, and then through the teleportation array, they returned to the citadel of Celestial City. Out of the teleportation array, they rose into the air and flew towards Celestial City. Not long after, they returned to Primordial Mountain Academy. Of course, Luo Xiang was not a disciple of Primordial Mountain Academy, so he was naturally stopped, but with his talent he easily passed the test and became a member of Primordial Mountain Academy. As soon as he entered the Yuan Mountain Holy Court, Lu Ming discovered that the Holy Court was much more lively than before. In the past, many people were in closed-door seclusion in the various cultivation grounds of the Sacred Academy. But now it seemed that many people have exited their seclusion. Lu Ming was surprised. Not long after, they arrived at the King Sage board. The number of people on the King Sage board has increased. Autumn Moon said. Lu Ming nodded his head. Previously there were only about 40 people on the King Sage board. Now there were more than 80 people on the board. The number had doubled. It was obvious that many people had broken through to the Absolute Saint realm during this period of time. They were improving and so were others. Therefore, in the competition between geniuses, once one stagnated, one would quickly be surpassed by others. So many paragon geniuses. Luo Xiang's eyes glowed with battle intent. The 3 of them didn't stay for long. After taking a glance, they flew back to their residence. When he returned to his residence, he found that everyone was there. Huang Ling, Long Qin, Huang Li, and the others gathered together. "None of you are cultivating in seclusion?" Lu Ming asked curiously. "Lu Ming, you came back just in time. Tomorrow is the Great Emperor's lecture. If you came back a day later, you wouldn't be able to make it." Huang Ling said with a smile. "The Great Emperor's lecture. Looks like I'm in luck." Lu Ming smiled. "Miss Autumn Moon, Has her memory recovered? Huang Ling looked at Miss Autumn Moon with a complicated expression. Yes, I'm in luck this time. I found the materials I needed and refined the soul recovery pill. Miss Autumn Moon's memory has been recovered, Lu Ming said. Everyone came forward to congratulate him. Then Lu Ming introduced Luo Xiang to everyone. Lu Ming, I heard that you pulled out the sword of the Heavenly Emperor. Is that true? Long Qin suddenly asked. That's right. Lu Ming nodded. You have to be careful. Some time ago the Hung family has been sending people to inquire about you. I heard that Xing Xinhe has already said that the sword of the Heavenly Emperor will be his sword. Now that the Great Emperor's lecture is coming out, many sky prides have come out, including Xing Xinhe. Long Qin frowned. You're afraid that Xing Xinhe will find trouble with me. It doesn't matter. At most, I'll put the sword of the Heavenly Emperor back and see if he can pull it out. Lu Ming laughed. Good idea, haha. Huang Li also laughed. Everyone was either in seclusion or traveling. They hadn't seen each other for a long time. Naturally, they had a lot of topics to talk about. Some even fought on the spot. A day passed in the blink of an eye. The next day was the day of the Great Emperor's lecture. The Great Emperor's lecture was set 2 months ago. During this time, almost all the sky prides came out of seclusion. It could be said that it was the busiest day of the Origin Mountain Sacred Courtyard. Lu Ming and the others flew to the highest mountain in the depths of the Origin Mountain Sacred Courtyard. The Great Emperor's lecture was at the top of the mountain. At the top of the mountain there was a flat land. It was very open. On the flat land there were tens of thousands of praying mats. At the front of the flat land, there was an old man in a gray robe. He looked very ordinary. He was sitting there with his eyes closed. On the praying mats, many people had already taken their seats, but there was no sound at all. Everyone was holding their breath. When Lu Ming and the others arrived, they looked at the old man and their hearts trembled. The old man looked very ordinary, but the seat he was sitting on was the seat for the lecture. The one giving the lecture today was the Great Emperor. Needless to say, that old man was a great emperor. The Origin Mountain Sacred Courtyard was founded by 3 great emperors, but the great emperors were elusive. After joining the Origin Mountain Sacred Courtyard, they had not seen a great emperor. Now they finally saw one. Lu Ming and the others also held their breath and sat down on some praying mats. Next, more and more sky prides arrived. Suddenly Lu Ming felt a cold aura shrouding him. He looked back and saw a group of sky prides walking in the air. Among them he saw Luo Pokong, but Luo Pokong was not at the front. In front of Luo Pokong there was a young man. That person's face was cold, and there was a faint arrogance in his eyes. He looked at Lu Ming coldly. Young master, that's Luo Tsangqiong? Autumn Moon transmitted her voice to Lu Ming. Luo Tsangqiong? A trace of killing intent flashed in Lu Ming's eyes. Kid, Autumn Moon is mine. You'd better get lost if you know what's good for you. If you don't, you will die a horrible death. Luo Tsangqiong's voice sounded in Lu Ming's ears. Of course he was transmitting his voice. With the great emperor here, no matter how lawless Luo Tsangqiong was, he would not dare to make a noise. You think too highly of yourself. Lu Ming replied indifferently, showing a faint disdain. Chapter 1903. Whoosh. Suddenly, a white light flashed past, attracting everyone's attention. A young man in a snow-white robe flew directly to the front seat and sat down. That's Heng Xinghe. Huang Ling transmitted her voice to Lu Ming. Lu Ming nodded and remembered that person. He had a feeling that he and Heng Xinghe would have a battle sooner or later. More and more sky prides arrived, and the number of people on the mountain peak continued to increase. In the end, nearly 10,000 people had arrived. However, there were nearly 10,000 people sitting there, but there was no sound at all. No one spoke, and the mountain peak was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. The old man did not speak either. He had been resting with his eyes closed. After half an hour, no one came. At that moment, the old man opened his eyes. When the old man opened his eyes, everyone had the illusion that they had suddenly arrived in the starry sky of the universe. But in the next moment, this illusion disappeared without a trace. Alright, almost everyone is here. If there's still anyone who hasn't arrived, we won't wait any longer. Today I will preach. The old man spoke with a gentle voice that sounded in everyone's ears. Everyone was shocked. This old man was indeed a great emperor. According to legend, the 3 great emperors who founded the Yuan Mountain Academy were called Heavenly Fire Emperor, Heavenly Chaos Emperor, and Wuxiang Emperor. Which one of the 3 great emperors was this great emperor? I'm Wuxiang. From now on you can call me Dean Wuxiang. The old man smiled slightly. Everyone's heart skipped a beat. It turned out that this person was Emperor Wuxiang. He was the pinnacle existence in the entire Yuan Mountain. He stood at the top of all living beings and had lived for an unknown number of years. Now let the preaching begin. Emperor Wuxiang's voice sounded, and everyone focused their attention. At that moment, a small bell appeared in Emperor Wuxiang's hand. The small bell flew into the sky and rapidly expanded. Dong. The small bell vibrated and rang. When everyone heard the bell ring, they immediately felt their minds sharpen and their thoughts become more focused. What a wonderful bell! Lu Ming discovered that the effect of this bell was similar to that of the Tao Comprehension ancient tree. Then rays of multicolored light spread out from the small bell. When everyone was enveloped by this multicolored light, their thoughts seemed to become more focused. This is the Bodhi bell. This old man has spent several years absorbing the Bodhi bell's Bodhi chi. The Bodhi chi and the Bodhi bell can greatly increase the speed and efficiency of your Tao comprehension. Emperor Wuxiang explained. Emperor Wuxiang really made ample preparations for this lecture. Lu Ming was secretly shocked. No wonder almost all the prodigies in the land of Primordial Mountain gathered at the Primordial Mountain Holy Courtyard. Where else could such treatment be found? The Tao that this old man is talking about is not biased towards a particular law, but the great Tao. There are countless laws in the world, but the great Tao is one. Any law can be comprehended from the great Tao. How much you can comprehend will depend on your own perception. As soon as he finished speaking, his body seemed to have changed. His silhouette disappeared and he transformed into a world of his own. Boundless sounds could be heard from the world, and boundless light enveloped everyone. This was the most fundamental great Tao, infinitely mysterious. Lu Ming couldn't help but recall that when he participated in the Hunyuan sex assessment, there was a stage called the Abyss of Tao Comprehension. It was very similar to Emperor Wuxiang's lecture. Both were great Taos that pointed directly to the origin. At this moment, everyone closed their eyes and quietly comprehended the Tao. Emperor Wuxiang's lecture lasted for 3 days and 3 nights. After 3 days and 3 nights, Emperor Wuxiang stopped. However, no one woke up. They were all immersed in a deep level of Tao comprehension. Emperor Wuxiang revealed a gentle smile and closed his eyes again. Time passed day by day. In the blink of an eye, 10 days had passed. Boom. A powerful aura rose from one person's body. This person actually made a breakthrough. Not long after, this person opened his eyes. Haha, my cultivation has broken through from the great mastery of the Bright Sage Realm to the peak of the Bright Sage Realm. This person was ecstatic. He had been stuck at the great mastery of the Bright Sage Realm for some time and couldn't break through. However, this time the great Emperor's lecture allowed him to break through. Then he looked around. In the next moment his face turned ugly. The others were still comprehending the Tao. He was the first person to wake up. The earlier one woke up, the worse one's comprehension was and the less they comprehended. The young man's excitement from breaking through disappeared without a trace. It was like a bucket of cold water had been poured over his head. Since you've finished comprehending the Tao, you may leave. A voice sounded in the young man's mind. It was Emperor Wuxiang's voice. The young man's heart trembled. He hurriedly got up, bowed to the great emperor and left. However, he didn't go far. He stood in the void far away and watched from afar. He was very curious about who among so many geniuses was the last to wake up. After this young man, more and more people woke up and made breakthroughs in their cultivation. The great emperor's lecture was indeed very effective with the support of the Bodhi bell. However, most of the people who broke through were in the Bright Sage Realm. The higher the cultivation, the harder it was to break through. It wasn't that easy to break through in the Great Sage Realm, let alone those above the Absolute Sage Realm. On the 20th day, half of the people had woken up and finished comprehending the Tao. Everyone had gained something. The longer they comprehended the Tao, the greater their gains. Like the first young man, those who finished comprehending the Tao left the mountain and watched from afar. Boom. At that moment, a powerful aura erupted from another person's body. A great sage prodigy had made a breakthrough. After that, there were a few other great sage chosen who achieved breakthroughs in their cultivation levels. Of course, the great sage prodigies were able to break through because they were already at the limit of a certain realm and were about to break through. Therefore, when the great emperor gave his lecture, they all broke through their limits and stepped into a higher realm. If they had just broken through a certain realm, it would be difficult for them to break through so quickly. A month later, there were less than 1,000 people left. A month and a half later, there were only about 200 people left. 2 months later, there were only a few dozen people left who were still comprehending the Tao. These last few dozen people could be said to be the ones with the best talent. Most of them had the monarch body and had mastered the monarch Tao. Huang Ling, Long Qin, Huang Li, Autumn Moon, and the others were still comprehending the Tao. The monarch body is really amazing. He can actually comprehend it for 2 months. How much can he gain from comprehending the Tao for 2 months? Many people were envious, especially those who finished comprehending the Tao in less than 10 days. Chapter 1904. Boom. Suddenly, a terrifying aura soared into the sky. One of the young men surged with holy power, and his aura grew stronger. He's a paragon saint. Someone exclaimed. Someone with a king body had become a paragon saint. In fact, someone had already become a paragon saint before this, but it wasn't a king body. Some people had been at the peak of the great saint realm for a long time and had accumulated enough. Now that they had comprehended something during the great emperor's lecture, they directly broke through. However, he was the first to become a paragon saint with a king body. That person took out a large number of origin stones and began to absorb origin chi to improve his cultivation. Breaking through to the paragon saint realm caused a huge commotion, but the remaining people were protected by the great emperor's energy, so they weren't disturbed at all. A few days later, the person who had broken through retracted his aura and opened his eyes. There was joy in his eyes. He had a king body, and now that he had become a paragon saint, his battle prowess had skyrocketed. He could be considered one of the strongest people in the Origin Mountain Academy. He glanced at the remaining people and his expression darkened. Among the many king bodies, he was the first to finish comprehending. Could it be that his talent was the worst among the king bodies? Impossible. He couldn't accept this. He thought that he had finished comprehending early because of his breakthrough. I'd like to see who will be the last to finish comprehending. Will it be Heng Xinghe, Death Blade, or Lu Ming? His gaze swept across Heng Xinghe, Death Blade, and Lu Ming. He then took a step forward and left the place, watching from afar. After this person, every day there would be another person with a king body waking up. The cultivation of these king bodies was very high. Some were paragon saints, some were great saints, and the weakest was peak great saints. Many people with king bodies at the Supreme Saint realm had broken through to the next level, but very few absolute saints had broken through to the next level. Boom. Boom. 2.5 months later, a shocking aura erupted from Long Chen's body. He had also broken through from the peak of the Great Saint realm to the Paragon Saint realm. On the second day, a powerful aura also erupted from Huang Ling's body. She had also begun to break through. They had been at the peak of the Great Saint realm for a long time, and had been cultivating in the Origin Mountain Academy. The geniuses of Phoenix Palace and Divine Elephant Sect were overjoyed to see the two of them break through one after another. After Huang Ling and Long Chen woke up, Autumn Moon, Luo Xiang, and Huang Li also woke up. Autumn Moon had just become a supreme saint not long ago, so he couldn't break through so quickly. However, he had gained a lot. His cultivation was much closer to the great success of the Supreme Saint realm, and his divine powers had improved a lot. As for Luo Xiang, due to his lack of accumulation, he hadn't broken through to the Absolute Saint stage. However, he had reached the limit of the complete Supreme Saint stage. As for Desolate Force, he had reached the level of Absolute Saint 5 months ago. However, he hadn't broken through yet, but he had reached the limit of Absolute Saint Small Success. He wasn't far from Absolute Saint Large Success. Every one of them had gained a great deal. As time passed, the remaining king bodies woke up one by one. Suddenly, one of the remaining people who were comprehending the Tao erupted with a shocking aura. Another person made a breakthrough. It was Luo Zhangqiong. Haha, my elder brother Luo Zhangqiong has made a breakthrough. He's now a perfected absolute saint. Luo Pokong was ecstatic. He had actually reached the peak of the Paragon Saint realm. Many people were shocked. Luo Zhangqiong was already very powerful. He was ranked 10th on the King Sage board. Of course, the King Sage board wasn't necessarily accurate, but it was still significant. Now that his cultivation had broken through, he was undoubtedly stronger. Autumn Moon, Huang Ling, Long Chen, and the others didn't look too good. Luo Zhangqiong was destined to be their enemy. His breakthrough was disadvantageous to them. Soon Luo Zhangqiong woke up. Humph. After waking up, Luo Zhangqiong looked at Lu Ming, who was still comprehending the Tao. Cold, murderous intent flashed in his eyes. He couldn't wait to kill Lu Ming, but he didn't dare to do so when he saw Emperor Wu Xiang sitting there cross-legged. If he offended a great emperor, even his grandfather wouldn't be able to protect him. It won't be too late to kill you when you wake up. Luo Zhangqiong muttered. He then left and watched from afar. 3 months later, only 3 people were still comprehending the Tao. Heng Xinghe, Death Blade, and Lu Ming. As expected, the 3 of them stayed until the end. The Elysian children are indeed extraordinary. Someone exclaimed. Humph, it's just that they have been comprehending the Tao for a longer time. It doesn't mean anything. No one can predict their future achievements. A martial monarch flesh harumphed. That's right, even though the Elysian children are strong, their advantage is no longer as obvious after achieving the martial monarch realm. Besides, their future achievements might not be as outstanding as the martial monarch flesh. In history, many people with martial monarch flesh ended up surpassing the Elysian children. That's right, even those without martial monarch flesh managed to reach the peak and surpass the Elysian children. The others blurted out. Those standing here were all geniuses with their pride. How could they submit to others so easily? Being in the lead now didn't necessarily mean they would be in the lead in the future. Anything was possible after achieving the martial monarch realm. Another 10 days were gone. On this day, Heng Xinghe and Death Blade both finished comprehending the Tao and opened their eyes. Their cultivations had yet to rank up, as it was said that they had just had a breakthrough before the martial monarch's lecture. They exchanged glances with one another. Their eyes flickered coldly before they glanced at Lu Ming. Lu Ming was still comprehending the Tao. Death Blade's eyes flickered as he thought of something before he left the place with a flicker. On the other hand, Heng Xinghe's eyes flickered sharply. He had initially thought he would be the last one to finish comprehending the Tao. He did not expect someone to last longer than him. So you're Lu Ming? Xinghe sneered and took a step forward, flying into the distant sky. Lu Ming was the only one who was still comprehending the Tao. Everyone's gaze landed on Lu Ming's figure. Who would have thought that Lu Ming would last longer than Heng Xinghe and Death Blade? How shocking. Could it be that his talent is higher than Heng Xinghe and Death Blade's? Some discussed among themselves. Who knows if he's just pretending. He's already woken up, but he's still pretending to be comprehending the Tao. Luo Pokong spoke with a jealous look. Are you doubting martial monarch Wuxiang's judgment? For you to say such words, it really makes you look very stupid. Autumn Moon glanced at Luo Pokong and mocked. Autumn Moon had returned to her usual self in front of Lu Ming, obedient and obedient. However, in front of others she behaved completely differently, just like before she lost her memory. Perhaps it was related to her experience during Autumn Moon's time. You? Luo Pokong's face turned dark, but he couldn't refute. Chapter 1905. At this moment, Lu Ming felt like he was in the middle of a galaxy. He moved around in the galaxy like lightning. At the same time he kept pointing his finger. Giant chaos fingers were formed and pointed at the stars in the distance. The primal chaos tribulation finger was even larger than a star. Every time it pointed at a star, that star would explode like fireworks, blooming in the universe. It was a spectacular sight. A moment later Lu Ming stopped. The chaos ring is 90% complete. Lu Ming smiled. He was very satisfied. During this period of time, he had been using the martial monarch's lectures as an excuse to comprehend the chaotic tribulation finger. The chaos fingers had improved from 80% to 90%. The higher the level of a divine skill, the harder it was to improve it. The difficulty kept increasing. It would take a long time to improve from 80% to 90% under normal circumstances. However, with the help of the great emperor's teachings, Lu Ming managed to do it. The chaos fingers had improved from 80% to 90%, and its power was greatly reduced. Of course, it would be even more difficult to improve from 90% to the perfection stage. It would take a lot of effort to improve it. My cultivation is about to have a breakthrough too. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. His cultivation had already reached the peak of the perfection stage of the Supreme Saint realm. He only needed an opportunity to have a breakthrough. Although he had been focusing on comprehending the chaos fingers, his cultivation had also improved. He had finally reached the critical point. In the 4th month, a shocking aura burst out of Lu Ming's body. Lu Ming is about to have a breakthrough. He's about to reach the Supreme Saint realm. Someone exclaimed. Lu Ming's strength was already shocking when he was at the perfection stage of the Supreme Saint realm. He could even suppress Luo Pokong, who was at the lesser success stage of the Supreme Saint realm. How strong would he be after reaching the Supreme Saint realm? Many people were looking forward to it. Lu Ming is finally about to have a breakthrough. The eyes of Huang Ling, Chiu Yu, Long Chen, and the others glittered. So what if he has a breakthrough? It's more interesting to kill him now. Luo Zhangqiong sneered as his killing intent intensified. As time passed, Lu Ming's aura grew stronger and stronger. With a wave of his hand, a large number of origin stones appeared. His devouring power erupted, and these origin stones turned into rolling origin chi, which he devoured and converted into saint power. A few days later Lu Ming withdrew all of his aura. He'd officially become an absolute saint. Meanwhile, martial monarch Wuxiang, who had been sitting with his legs crossed, opened his eyes and said, "All right, the comprehension is over. The next lecture will be held in 3 years. Another martial monarch will be here then." After saying that, Emperor Wuxiang's figure vanished into thin air. No one saw how Emperor Wuxiang disappeared. It was as if he had never been there in the first place. Lu Ming took a step forward and appeared at Autumn Moon, where Huang Ling and the others were. He looked around and smiled. "Huang Ling, Long Qin, Huang Di, congratulations on achieving a breakthrough and becoming a paragon saint." He realized that Huang Ling and Long Qin weren't the only ones who had broken through. A few people from the desolate race had also broken through and entered the paragon saint realm. Most of the 9 youths who had followed Lu Ming were at the great saint realm and had been there for a long time. This time, with the help of the martial monarch's lecture, their cultivation levels had all broken through. Although these people didn't have king bodies, the desolate race was strong to begin with. Furthermore, they had superior heaven spiritual bodies, so they weren't weak. As a result, there were quite a number of paragon saints on their side. "Lu Ming, you've also broken through. I really don't know how powerful a pervert like you is." Long Qin laughed. The others laughed as well. Indeed, Lu Ming was so strong when he was at the great saint realm. Now that he had become a paragon saint, how strong would he be? They were all very curious. Boom. Suddenly, a terrifying aura enveloped them. Everyone's expression changed as they looked in one direction. Luo Zhangqiong stepped forward. The terrifying aura came from Luo Zhangqiong. Behind him, Luo Pokong and the other elites of the Daluo Heaven sect followed. "Autumn Moon, come here. Come to my side." Luo Zhangqiong looked at Autumn Moon and spoke in a domineering tone as if he was giving an order. "Luo Zhangqiong, stop pestering me. I've already said that I have no feelings for you." Autumn Moon said, "Come here." Luo Zhangqiong's voice was heavy and domineering. "Autumn Moon, let's go." Lu Ming held Autumn Moon's hand and ignored Luo Zhangqiong. "Stop right there, Lu Ming. How dare you touch my woman? Be careful or I'll exterminate your whole family." Luo Zhangqiong's voice was like thunder as it rang in Lu Ming's ears. In the surroundings, many of the geniuses who were about to leave stopped in their tracks and looked over curiously. Was there going to be a conflict after the Enlightenment? And it was between Luo Zhangqiong and Lu Ming. Many people were looking forward to it. "Your woman? Ah, how ridiculous. Autumn Moon grew up with me. Since when did she become your woman? Moreover, Autumn Moon has already said that she has no feelings for you and asked you to stop pestering her. You're really shameless." Lu Ming turned around and looked at Luo Zhangqiong coldly as he spoke in disdain. "Do you know who you're talking to? Because of what you said, you'll implicate your family and friends. They'll all die because of you." Luo Zhangqiong said coldly as he glanced at Huang Ling, Long Qin and the others. He didn't hide his murderous intent at all. "Who do you think you are? If you want to kill me, I'll chop you into pieces first." Huang Li yelled and revealed his murderous intent. Lu Ming also revealed a cold murderous intent in his eyes. He hated it when others used his family and friends to threaten him. "Luo Zhangqiong, let me tell you. Lu Ming is my young master. I once said that I'll serve him for the rest of my life. I have no feelings for you. What's the point of pestering him?" Autumn Moon said. "Bitch, shut up. If I say you're mine, you're mine. No one can take you away from me. Do you understand?" Luo Zhangqiong shouted coldly. His grandfather was a great emperor, one of the top experts in the world. Since he was young, there was nothing he couldn't get. It was the same for women. "Ah, how ridiculous. Autumn Moon doesn't like you, so you used the law of deprivation to deprive Autumn Moon of her memories. Unfortunately, Autumn Moon still has no feelings for you. Such a ridiculous and despicable person still has the face to stay in Yuan Mountain Sacred Academy and call himself a genius. How ridiculous." Lu Ming sneered as his voice spread across the entire place. Many people suddenly realized that this was the case. Luo Zhangqiong couldn't get Autumn Moon's heart, so he used the law of deprivation to deprive Autumn Moon of her memories. Such behavior was indeed shameless. "So what?" Luo Zhangqiong spoke and his gaze turned even colder. "It seems that you have recovered your memory. I'll deprive you of your memory again. This time I'll deprive you of all your memory. Lu Ming, I'll cripple your cultivation and make you watch helplessly as Qiu becomes my woman." Boom, boom, boom. Chapter 1906. Luo Zhangqiong was incomparably domineering. So what if others knew that he had taken away Mid-Autumn Moon's memories? He was the grandson of the great emperor. Who would dare to speak ill of him in front of him? In front of him, each and every one of them had to fawn over him. And now he wanted to take away Mid-Autumn Moon's memories in front of everyone and obtain Mid-Autumn Moon. Luo Zhangqiong stepped towards Lu Ming and Mid-Autumn Moon. Heaven and earth rumbled. He raised a palm and clenched it. Between heaven and earth, endless energy gathered towards Luo Zhangqiong's palm. No, it couldn't be said that it was gathered. It was completely taken away by him. Yuan Qi and various elemental energies between heaven and earth were taken away by Luo Zhangqiong. They were compressed together, forming a huge palm that pressed down on Lu Ming and Mid-Autumn Moon. At this moment, the law of yin and yang circulated around Mid-Autumn Moon's body. Two scimitars flew out, intending to face Luo Zhangqiong head-on. Mid-Autumn Moon, let me do it. Lu Ming's voice rang out. Then he took a step forward. Light spots lit up on his body. There were more than 200 light spots, and a sacred weapon flew out from each light spot. On the way back to Celestial City, Lu Ming had cultivated the myriad weapon art. He had sealed a large number of sacred weapons in his acupoints. Among them there were 18 supreme sacred weapons, 108 great sacred weapons, and the number of supreme sacred weapons remained unchanged. There were also 108 supreme sacred weapons. Altogether there were 234 supreme sacred weapons. So many sacred weapons appeared, floating around Lu Ming's body. Lu Ming stepped on the sacred weapons and casually grabbed a supreme sacred weapon. The sacred weapon's aura gathered, and with a slash, a boundless sword qi cut through the void, cutting Luo Zhangqiong's huge palm in half. Let's see how many moves you can take from me, Luo Zhangqiong shouted. He waved his hands continuously, and the law of deprivation circulated. The law of deprivation absorbed the energy between heaven and earth, forming a terrifying attack that attacked Lu Ming. Lu Ming stood in the midst of the saint weapon, stepping on it as he moved forward. His battle sword slashed out unceasingly, breaking apart the opponent's attacks. The attacks of the two were extremely violent and powerful. The surrounding people were forced to retreat continuously. Autumn Moon stood behind Lu Ming. Her two scimitars danced in the air and she did not retreat at all. If the situation changed, she would not hesitate to take action. Back in the Burning Sun Empire, she was too weak to help Lu Ming. Now that she was strong enough, she would stay by Lu Ming's side and protect him. The cry of a phoenix rang out. The phoenix spirit was bathed in the undying flames. She stepped forward and stood side by side with Autumn Moon. Autumn Moon looked at Huang Ling and smiled kindly. Huang Ling was stunned and smiled back. Then Long Chen and Huang Li stepped forward. Lu Ming and Luo Zhangqiong have started fighting. Who do you think will win? It's hard to say. Lu Ming has just become an absolute saint, but Luo Zhangqiong's cultivation has already reached the complete absolute saint realm. Although Lu Ming was able to suppress Luo Pokong, who was in the initial absolute saint realm, and his combat strength is amazing, Luo Zhangqiong is not Luo Pokong. That's right. There are strong and weak people even with king bodies. Luo Zhangqiong's combat strength is terrifying. His law of deprivation is extremely powerful. Even if it's not as powerful as the 10 ultimate laws, it's still one of the top Qingwei laws. The son of chaos cannot be measured by common sense. It's hard to say who will win in this battle. The spectators were all guessing who would win, but they could not say for sure. Some people thought that Luo Zhangqiong was stronger. After all, his cultivation was 2 levels higher than Lu Ming's, and his law of deprivation was extremely terrifying. His combat strength was definitely above Lu Ming's. However, some people speculated that Lu Ming might not be weaker than Luo Zhangqiong based on Lu Ming's previous battle results. In the blink of an eye, the two had exchanged dozens of blows, but there was no clear winner. Blade of Deprivation. Luo Zhangqiong did not continue to deprive the world of energy. Instead, he used the law of deprivation to form a huge saber and slashed at Lu Ming. Go. Lu Ming's mind stirred and the sacred weapons gathered together. The aura of the combat weapons burst forth and blasted toward Luo Zhangqiong. However, his expression changed slightly when he collided with Luo Zhangqiong's saber. This was because he felt that there was a terrifying power of deprivation in Luo Zhangqiong's battle saber. It wanted to deprive him of the aura of the battle weapon. It even wanted to deprive Lu Ming of the spiritual consciousness that was attached to the sacred weapon. Even the spirituality of the sacred weapon itself would be deprived and it would turn into scrap metal. After depriving Lu Ming of the energy of his sacred weapon, the power of Luo Zhangqiong's saber increased greatly. With a shake, it forced everyone's sacred weapons back. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. More than 200 sacred weapons gathered behind Lu Ming and formed a pair of huge wings. The sacred weapon's qi gathered on the saber in Lu Ming's hand. Lu Ming took a step forward and slashed at Luo Zhangqiong with his saber. Boom. The saber collided with Luo Zhangqiong's saber. Deprive. Luo Zhangqiong used the law of deprivation to deprive Lu Ming of his power of law and even his sacred power. However, in the next moment, Luo Zhangqiong's expression changed drastically. His body shook and he could not help but retreat a few thousand meters in the void. Can you deprive me of the law of chaos? Lu Ming said coldly and continued to attack Luo Zhangqiong. Just now, he had covered his saber with a layer of the law of chaos. The law of chaos was one of the 10 strongest laws. Although the law of deprivation was overbearing, it could not deprive him of the law of chaos. Blade of deprivation. Luo Zhangqiong's face was gloomy. He waved his hands and 9 sabers were formed. They charged at Lu Ming from different directions. Lu Ming put away all his sacred weapons and fought back with the suppressing hell skill. Boom. Boom. Lu Ming threw out 9 punches in a row. 9 suppressing hell steels appeared and collided with the 9 blades of deprivation. Deprive. Deprive. Luo Zhangqiong shouted, trying to deprive Lu Ming of his sacred power. However, the suppressing hell skill was supported by the law of chaos. Moreover, the power of the suppressing hell skill was very strange. Lu Ming felt that even without the law of chaos, his opponent could not deprive him of the power of the suppressing hell skill. The suppressing hell steel shadow suppressed the heavens and the earth and knocked away Luo Zhangqiong's 9 blades of deprivation. Luo Zhangqiong's law is restrained. The law of chaos is the emperor of all laws. The law of deprivation can't affect it at all. Luo Zhangqiong is in danger in this battle. Some people discussed and expressed their opinions. Luo Zhangqiong's law of deprivation was extremely overbearing. It could deprive everything including other laws. An ordinary monarch body would be restricted by Luo Zhangqiong and be greatly affected by the law of deprivation. However, Luo Zhangqiong's law of deprivation could not exert its advantage against Lu Ming. Since I can't deprive you, I'll crush you with absolute power and deprive you of the divine seal. Luo Zhangqiong waved his hand and the 9 blades of deprivation collapsed. Then Luo Zhangqiong formed a seal with his palms and turned into a large seal. Chapter 1907. The divine seal of deprivation was Luo Zhangqiong's superpower. It could deprive all the energy in the world including the power of other laws. When combined it would form a terrifying attack. All the energy around the divine seal of deprivation seemed to have been stripped away, forming a void space. Sizzle! All kinds of energy gathered on the divine seal of deprivation, making ear-piercing sounds. It turned into the size of a mountain and blasted toward Lu Ming. Go to hell! Luo Zhangqiong shouted, his murderous intent thick. Since he could not deprive Lu Ming of the chaotic law, he would use his absolute power to suppress Lu Ming. His divine ability had already reached 90% mastery, and its power was terrifying enough to seize the world. Moreover, it was a superpower formed by the divine seal of deprivation, and its power was far beyond ordinary laws. He had full confidence in his superpower. At his age, there were very few people who could cultivate a superpower to 90% mastery. So what if Lu Ming's chaotic law was strong? Luo Zhangqiong's superpower was far weaker than his and he would still be crushed. What a terrifying superpower. Luo Zhangqiong's superpower has probably reached 90% mastery. He is indeed a peerless genius to be able to cultivate a superpower to 90% mastery at such a young age. His ranking on the King Sage board is not undeserved. Luo Zhangqiong's superpower shocked many geniuses. More people looked solemn as they felt a strong pressure. Chaotic Calamity Finger. Lu Ming's expression did not change. The chaotic law burst forth as he pointed his finger out. A huge finger surrounded by the color of primal chaos shot toward the divine seal of deprivation. Boom. The divine seal of deprivation and the chaotic calamity finger collided in the air, causing an earth-shattering explosion. Whoosh! Terrifying energy swept out in all directions. Some of the weaker geniuses could not even stand properly and were forced to retreat. The divine seal of deprivation and the chaotic calamity finger were in a stalemate. Deprive. Luo Zhangqiong roared as he activated all the power in his body. The divine seal of deprivation was unleashed in a frenzy. Luo Zhangqiong, is this all you have? Is this all you got? Lu Ming sneered. The chaotic law was activated crazily, entangled with the saint power, and surged toward the chaotic calamity finger. Boom. The chaotic finger of calamity vibrated, and its power grew even stronger. The terrifying power caused the divine seal of deprivation to vibrate violently. Luo Zhangqiong's expression changed drastically. He felt that the divine seal of deprivation was about to collapse. How was this possible? His divine seal of deprivation had already reached 90% completion, and it was a divine ability condensed from the law of deprivation. How could Lu Ming's divine ability be stronger than his? Lu Ming had just broken through to the Saint Realm, and he cultivated the law of primal chaos. How could Lu Ming's mastery of divine ability compare to his? He was not the only one. The people around him also found it hard to believe. Luo Sanxiong's divine ability technique was terrifying, but he was at a disadvantage in the confrontation of divine ability techniques. Lu Ming's strength was beyond everyone's imagination. Luo Sanxiong, I really can't figure it out. With your strength, why do you still look so superior? Where does your confidence come from? Lu Ming continued. The power of the primal chaos tribulation finger was fully unleashed. Kacha. Bam. The divine seal of deprivation cracked, and finally exploded with a bang. Luo Sanxiong groaned, and his body frantically retreated, spitting out a mouthful of blood. Although Luo Sanxiong's divine ability had reached 90% completion, Lu Ming's chaotic calamity finger had also reached 90% completion. Divine ability techniques of the same level were invincible unless they were also of the top 10 laws. Many people were shocked. Luo Sanxiong was injured and he was no match for Lu Ming. Lu Ming stepped into the air, closing in on Luo Sanxiong. His voice continued to ring out, "Didn't you want to cripple me? Come on, this little bit of strength is still not enough." After saying that, Lu Ming pointed out again. A chaotic calamity finger crushed toward Luo Sanxiong. Luo Sanxiong's face was extremely ugly. He roared and used the divine seal of deprivation again. However, under his injury, it was more difficult for him to resist Lu Ming's attack. In an instant, the divine seal of deprivation was defeated. Luo Sanxiong screamed, and his body was blasted tens of thousands of meters away, spitting out mouthfuls of blood. His injury was even more serious. Not far away, Luo Pokong and the other talents of the Daluo Heaven sect were pale. Even Luo Sanxiong was no match for Lu Ming. They wanted to help, but they dared not go forward, fearing that they would be crushed by Lu Ming. Bam! Bam! Lu Ming did not stop. He stepped into the void and stepped toward Luo Sanxiong. Lu Ming, sooner or later, I will let you die without a burial place. I mean it. Luo Sanxiong roared, his eyes full of crazy killing intent. Rely on you or the power behind you. Well, trash like you can only rely on the power behind you. Lu Ming sneered, full of sarcasm. In other words, Luo Sanxiong was no match for Lu Ming at all with his own strength. He had to rely on the power behind him. You forgot one thing. Now the power behind you is not here. I have the advantage. You should not threaten me. Lu Ming said coldly. He did not hide his killing intent. He took a step and flew toward Luo Sanxiong like lightning. Kill? Lu Ming shouted, and the divine sword technique erupted. Two dark sword lights burst out from his eyes and rushed toward Luo Sanxiong. At the same time, his right hand pointed out again. The terrible chaotic calamity finger crushed toward Luo Sanxiong. Lu Ming wants to kill Luo Sanxiong? How dare he? He is simply lawless. Many people gasped in shock. Killing was not allowed in the Yuan Mountain sacred courtyard. This was the rule set by the great emperor. But now Lu Ming did not hide his killing intent. His eyes were cold and he did not show any mercy. He was obviously going to kill Luo Sanxiong. Luo Sanxiong was known as lawless and unscrupulous, but he did not dare to go against the order of the great emperor. However, Lu Ming wanted to kill Luo Sanxiong in the Yuan Mountain sacred courtyard. This was the true definition of lawlessness. How dare you? Luo Sanxiong roared. He did not expect Lu Ming to dare to kill him here. He fought back, but there was no doubt that he was once again blasted away by Lu Ming. Half of his body was almost smashed. His breath was weak and his injuries were extremely serious. Die. Lu Ming shouted coldly and used the chaotic calamity finger again. You? Luo Sanxiong's eyes finally showed fear. Lu Ming was crazy. He wanted to kill him. Was he not afraid of being punished by the great emperor? He wanted to perish together with him. He frantically retreated, but he could not escape from Lu Ming's lock. The terrifying aura of the chaotic calamity finger firmly shrouded him. No help. Luo Sanxiong shouted in horror. It was a world of difference from his previous arrogant look. Whoosh. At this moment, a palm print pierced through the sky and blasted toward Lu Ming's chaotic calamity finger at an astonishing speed. With a boom, the chaotic calamity finger exploded and the remaining power of the palm print continued to blast toward Lu Ming. Chapter 1908. Lu Ming exerted the heaven-suppressing art and threw out a punch with all his might. A phantom of the prison-suppressing monument appeared in front of him. But when the palm print hit, the phantom of the prison-suppressing monument exploded. Lu Ming's body was pushed back for tens of thousands of meters before he stopped in the air with blood flowing out from the corner of his mouth. A young figure in white with long black hair stepped in front of Luo Zhangqiong. Heng Xinghe. Lu Ming's pupils shrank. Many people were also shocked. The one who attacked just now was Heng Xinghe, the peerless genius who ranked first on the King Sage board. He had sent Lu Ming flying and injured Lu Ming with just one move. Was he going to attack Lu Ming? Brother Heng? Luo Zhangqiong was overjoyed. At the same time he stuffed pills into his mouth to heal his injuries. Lu Ming stared at Heng Xinghe and said, "You want to intervene? Luo Zhangqiong is the grandson of the great emperor. How can he be bullied by you?" Heng Xinghe said. Lu Ming sneered. According to Heng Xinghe, the grandson of the great emperor could bully others without them being able to retaliate. What a joke. At this time, Heng Xinghe continued, "Besides, I have other things to discuss with you. You were the one who pulled out the sword of the heavenly emperor. That belongs to the Heng family. Now hand it over to me." Lu Ming narrowed his eyes slightly. Indeed, Heng Xinghe had intervened for this matter. The other geniuses around were shocked. It turned out that Heng Xinghe's real purpose was to get the sword of the heavenly emperor. Saving Luo Zhangqiong was just a matter of convenience. The news of Lu Ming pulling out the sword of the heavenly emperor had spread like wildfire in Celestial City. Now that Lu Ming had returned, the Heng family was indeed looking for Lu Ming. How should Lu Ming deal with it? Should he hand it over or not? Everyone's gaze was on Lu Ming. Legend has it that the sword of the heavenly emperor was left behind by the heavenly emperor. But that is just a legend after all. You said that the sword belongs to the Heng family. Do you have any evidence? Maybe it was left behind by another peerless expert. Lu Ming responded. Although it was rumored that the sword belonged to the Celestial Empyrean and was left behind by the Celestial Empyrean who founded Celestial City, it was only a legend. Could the Heng clan take out any proof? Xinghe clasped his hands behind his back. His eyes flashed with sharpness as he said, "Everyone in the Celestial City knows that the sword was left behind by the Celestial Emperor. And the Heng family is the descendant of the Celestial Emperor. Is there a need to prove this? Since you, Heng Xinghe, are the descendants of the Heavenly Emperor, why can't you pull out that sword?" Lu Ming's voice was sonorous and forceful, spreading throughout the audience. Xinghe's face instantly darkened. Lu Ming was mocking him for not being able to pull out the Celestial Arch Sword. "I will pull out the sword of the Celestial Emperor sooner or later," Stellar River said coldly. "Hee, could it be that drawing the sword has something to do with one's cultivation?" Lu Ming smiled faintly. Many people's eyes flickered. Lu Ming was mocking Stellar River. Everyone knew that pulling out the Celestial Emperor's sword had nothing to do with one's cultivation. There was once a martial emperor powerhouse who couldn't even pull out 1 foot. And there were those who had just started cultivating who could pull out 5 feet. Heng Xinghe had once pulled out 9 feet, but it was estimated that he would only be able to pull out 9 feet in his lifetime. The probability of pulling out the sword would not increase with the increase of one's cultivation. But Heng Xinghe said that he would pull it out sooner or later. Lu Ming's rhetorical question was a blatant mockery of Xinghe. Xinghe's face turned even uglier. The sharpness in his eyes was even more intense, like 2 divine swords. Moreover, even if that sword was really left behind by the Celestial Emperor, and your Heng family is the descendant of the Celestial Emperor, why didn't the Celestial Emperor directly leave the sword to your Heng family? Instead, he stuck it on that platform and sealed it for ages. Obviously, the Celestial Emperor wanted to find someone who could pull out the sword. Only the person who can pull out the sword is qualified to wield that sword. This is the Celestial Emperor's intention. And your Heng family, if you are really the descendant of the Celestial Emperor, you should respect the Celestial Emperor's intention and not go against the will of your ancestors. Lu Ming continued to speak. His sonorous and powerful voice made many people ponder. That's right. If that sword was really left behind by the Celestial Emperor, why didn't he just leave it for the Heng family? Why did he stick it on that platform and let others pull it out? In other words, only the person who pulled it out was qualified to wield the Celestial Emperor's sword. This was the Celestial Emperor's true intention. You have a glib tongue and you are distorting the truth. Lu Ming, with your cultivation, I didn't want to bully you. But today, since you are courting death, I will grant you your wish. Xinghe shouted and then took a step forward. Boom. A terrifying aura blossomed from his body. A mysterious and terrifying law revolved around his body. It was one of the 10 strongest laws, the eternal law. Eternal, eternal, immortal, eternal. The eternal law was somewhat similar to Huang Ling's undying flame law, but its power was much stronger than the undying flame law. The eternal law not only allowed the person who controlled it to have an extremely strong vitality, but it also had terrifying offensive power. Boom. Xinghe took a step forward and quickly approached Lu Ming. He then struck out with his palm and a palm print blasted toward Lu Ming. Lu Ming's pupils contracted as he felt a terrifying pressure. Xinghe's cultivation was too strong. The power of his palm had the power to destroy heaven and earth. Chaotic Calamity Finger. Lu Ming roared and circulated his cultivation to the extreme. The Chaotic Calamity Finger, which was 90% complete, shot out. At the same time, spots of light lit up all over his body. More than 200 sacred weapons flew out and floated around Lu Ming, forming a defensive force. Boom. The Chaotic Calamity Finger collided with Xinghe's palm print. Bam. The 90% complete Chaotic Calamity Finger couldn't withstand more than a few blows before it exploded. The terrifying power surged toward Lu Ming. Lu Ming threw out a series of punches. At the same time, more than 200 sacred weapons blocked in front of him. However, when the palm print blasted over, Lu Ming's body shook violently. More than 200 sacred weapons buzzed and his body flew far away. Lu Ming was no match for Xinghe at all. The difference in cultivation was too great. They are both Elysian children, but Xinghe's cultivation is much higher. Lu Ming is no match for him at all. That's natural. As Elysian children, they usually fight at the same level. With a difference in cultivation, there's no point in fighting. Today, I'm afraid Lu Ming won't be able to keep the sword of the Celestial Emperor. Some people around sighed. Although Lu Ming's combat strength was strong, Xinghe was an eternal child and his combat strength wasn't weak either. In the case of a much higher cultivation, Lu Ming was no match for him at all. Lu Ming, hand over the sword of the Celestial Emperor and I'll spare your life. Xinghe put his hands behind his back and stepped toward Lu Ming with an invincible spirit. Boom. Xinghe took a step and an incomparably huge foot descended from the sky toward Lu Ming. Don't you dare hurt the young master. A delicate voice rang out as a figure rushed into the sky. It was Autumn Moon. At this moment, Autumn Moon's glabella shone and the imperial weapon, the yin-yang wheel, appeared and blasted toward the huge foot. Chapter 1909. Oh no. Lu Ming's face fell. He had not expected Chiu Autumn Moon and Huang Ling to rush out. With Chiu Autumn Moon and Huang Ling's combat strength, they were no match for Xinghe even if they had imperial weapons. As expected, when the giant foot landed, Chiu Autumn Moon and Huang Ling's bodies trembled. They grunted and flew back, landing beside Lu Ming. Their faces were pale and blood was flowing out of their mouths. Chiu Autumn Moon, Huang Ling, are you alright? Lu Ming asked worriedly. Young master, I'm fine. I want to fight alongside you. Chiu Autumn Moon wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth and stood beside Lu Ming with determination. On the other side, Huang Ling did not speak, but the immortal flame on her body burned even more fiercely. Hee, how can two girls stop me? Xinghe sneered and continued to step forward. His aura was getting more and more terrifying. Count me in if you want to scold me. A burly figure appeared beside Huang Ling. It was Huang Li. His muscles bulged as he circulated the law of strength throughout his body. He wore a pair of black gloves in his hands. The gloves were also imperial weapons. Swoosh. Another figure flashed past and Long Qin appeared beside Chiu Autumn Moon. His arms bulged and his aura was terrifying. Chiu Autumn Moon, Huang Ling, Long Qin, Huang Li and Lu Ming, 4 king bodies and 1 son of chaos, stood side by side. They were all Paragon Saints at the initial stage. Their auras combined to fight against Xinghe's aura. Count us in. The other elites of the desolate tribe, Mu Qingxue, and the others also wanted to step forward. Don't come up. Lu Ming waved his hand and stopped Huang Li and the others. Against an opponent like Xinghe, numbers were not enough. If they were not strong enough, it would be useless no matter how many of them went up. Are you trying to bully us with numbers? Do you think we are all alone? Another genius from the Hung family roared as he stepped forwards. The other geniuses from the Hung family also stepped forwards. Back off. You don't have to interfere. Hung Xinghe waved his hand and said to the other sky prides of the Hung clan. He was proud. With his cultivation, why would he need the help of others to deal with Lu Ming and the others? He glanced at Lu Ming and the others and said calmly, how naive of you to think that the 5 of you can stand against me. Around them the others also sighed. Lu Ming's lineup could be said to be luxurious. The four king bodies and the son of chaos had all reached the absolute saint realm. However, they were facing the eternal son, Hung Xinghe. Hung Xinghe was ranked first on the king sage board and no one had any objections. He was publicly acknowledged as the strongest person in the younger generation of Yuan Mountain. Even the son of death, Death Blade, could not shake the position of the stellar river. Although Lu Ming's team of 5 was a luxurious lineup, their cultivation was still a little weak. Could they really fight against Xinghe? What if you include me? At this moment, a deep voice resounded. A tall and slender figure stepped out from the crowd. It's Ouyang Wushuang. Someone recognized the newcomer. Ouyang Wushuang came to Lu Ming's side and a powerful aura erupted from his body. An absolute saint. Obviously, Ouyang Wushuang had also broken through to the absolute saint realm. Then let's add my little sister. At this moment, another voice rang out. A graceful figure stepped through the void and landed beside Lu Ming's team. Luo Qianni. Ouyang Wushuang and Luo Qianni are actually helping Lu Ming. Are they all familiar with Lu Ming? 6 king bodies and 1 son of chaos. This lineup is really amazing. Many people gasped, unable to calm down. Luo Qianni and Ouyang Wushuang were also familiar with Lu Ming. At this moment, they were going to fight against Xinghe with Lu Ming's team. Very good, very good. Then let me see how strong you are. Xinghe's eyes were filled with fighting spirit. He suddenly took a step forward and the void under his feet kept shaking. Heavenly illusion. Luo Qianni yelled. Her eyes turned into 2 pitch-black whirlpools. She used the heavenly illusion spell to envelop Xinghe, trying to make him fall into the illusion. At this moment, Luo Qianni's true cultivation was revealed. She had actually reached the absolute saint realm and seemed to have reached the limit of the absolute saint realm. She was not far from the pinnacle of the absolute saint realm. As expected, Xinghe's body shook slightly and he stopped. The moment Luo Qianni attacked, Lu Ming, Autumn Moon, Huang Ling, Huang Li, Long Chen and Ouyang Wushuang all attacked at the same time. 6 terrifying superpowers exploded at the same time and blasted toward Xinghe. When the 6 of them joined forces, the shockwaves caused by them were earth-shattering and shocking. A mere illusion can't stop me. Break. Xinghe's indifferent voice rang out. His eyes were as bright as stars. 2 terrifying sword lights burst out from his eyes and slashed toward the void. Luo Qianni yelled. Her body shook and she kept retreating. Her face was pale and she spat out a mouthful of blood. Her illusion was broken by Xinghe. She suffered a backlash and was injured. At the same time, a sword light formed in Xinghe's hand and he slashed it out. Whoosh. The sword light was like a flying immortal. It cut through the void and turned into eternity. It was unparalleled. Boom, boom, boom. As the sword light slashed through, Lu Ming and the others' attacks all collapsed in the air. They were all split apart by the sword light. Oh no, retreat! Lu Ming shouted. The 6 of them quickly retreated to avoid the sword light's aftershock. So powerful. Lu Ming's eyes were solemn. Xinghe's combat strength was indeed terrifying and unrivaled. The main reason was that their cultivation was too low. They were far inferior to Xinghe. What's the use of having more people? Xinghe clenched his fist. The eternal law formed a sword light and pressed toward Lu Ming and the others. Lu Ming's glabella shone and the Tai Chi formation plate floated out. Autumn Moon and the others also took out their imperial weapons. Chaotic Calamity Finger. This time, Lu Ming took the initiative to launch an attack. He blasted out a Chaotic Tribulation Finger with all his might. At the same time, his figure moved and he charged toward the stellar river at top speed. Endless runes emanated from his left hand, forming a sealing force that spread toward the stellar river. At the same time, the Tai Chi Yin-Yang pattern appeared on the Tai Chi formation plate. It turned into 2 yin-yang fish swords and slashed toward Xinghe. A series of attacks rained down like a violent storm. Even an ordinary perfected absolute saint would have no choice but to die under this wave of attacks. When Lu Ming launched his attack, the others also launched their attacks. Illusory reality. Luo Qianni shouted. Butterflies appeared in the sky. They flapped their wings and flew toward Xinghe. These butterflies were formed by an illusion. They could be real or fake. They were very powerful. Qiu Yu and the others also attacked the stellar river together. What a terrifying attack. The surrounding geniuses were all shocked. With so many people attacking together, no one was confident that they could block it, not even the top geniuses on the King Sage board. Child's play. Xinghe's expression did not change. He slashed out with his sword light. Instantly, 9 sword lights slashed toward Lu Ming and the others. 3 of the sword lights slashed toward Lu Ming. Chapter 1910. The chaotic finger of calamity was the first to be cut open. Then the yin-yang fish sword and the sealing power of the array law were broken one by one. Luo Qianni, Autumn Moon and the others' attacks were the same. As the sword light slashed, everyone retreated quickly. So powerful. The surrounding people were shocked. Xinghe was too powerful. Lu Ming and the other experts were still no match for him even when they joined forces. Xinghe's cultivation is at least at the peak of the absolute saint realm. Coupled with the eternal body, his combat power is too strong. Long Qin said and transmitted his voice to everyone. Indeed, their cultivation was too weak. It was impossible for them to match him. Xinghe was not an ordinary warrior. He was the eternal sun, almost invincible in the battle of the same level. Needless to say, his cultivation was so much higher than theirs. Lu Ming, hand over the sword of the Celestial Emperor. You are not qualified to wield the sword of the Celestial Emperor, Xinghe said coldly. Xinghe, your cultivation is just a little higher. If we fight at the same level, I will still defeat you. Lu Ming said. Defeat me? Aha, Lu Ming, let me tell you. Even if you control the law of chaos, you are no match for me at the same level. However, you don't have to provoke me to fight at the same level. Having a higher cultivation is also a kind of strength, Xinghe said as he stepped forward. A terrifying sword will burst out from his body and pierce the sky. The sword will was vast and mighty, forming a terrible pressure. He had the strength to crush others. Why would he fight at the same level as Lu Ming? This kind of provocation had no effect on him. Lu Ming, since you don't want to hand over the sword of the Celestial Emperor, I will take it myself, Xinghe said coldly. The sword light in his hand was raised high, and his aura was getting stronger. However, at this moment, a transparent bubble suddenly appeared on Xinghe's body and enveloped him within. The law of space and time. Xinghe's face changed and he shouted angrily. Do it. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. He knew that the bubble had made a move. Looking at the fluctuation of the law of space and time, it was extremely powerful. Obviously, the bubble had also broken through to the absolute saint realm. Lu Ming and the others once again joined forces and blasted out a terrible attack. Break. A terrifying sword light burst out from Xinghe's body, breaking the transparent bubble in one fell swoop. However, the surrounding space kept rippling and twisting like water waves, trying to trap Xinghe in the void. At the same time, the power of time acted on Xinghe's body, slowing down his movements. Xinghe's expression finally changed. The space-time laws were also one of the 10 strongest laws. Moreover, they had endless transformations and were best at trapping enemies. With the help of the space-time laws, Lu Ming and the others would be able to unleash their strength to a greater extent, as well as Lu Ming and the others. In the blink of an eye, Lu Ming and the others' attacks arrived. They were about to drown the stellar river. Boom. At this moment, an even more powerful and terrifying aura erupted from Xinghe's body. A terrifying divine light burst forth, and the space-time laws that enveloped his body instantly collapsed. The attacks of Lu Ming and the others also collapsed under the impact of this light. Eternal divine light. Also, Xinghe's cultivation is at the peak of the absolute saint realm. Around him, many people cried out. Is this Xinghe's true cultivation? Lu Ming and the others looked extremely solemn. In the previous battle, Xinghe had not used his full strength at all. His cultivation had already reached the peak of the absolute saint realm. How terrifying was this at such a young age? As long as he perfected the eternal law and reached the peak of the absolute saint realm, he would be able to enter the quasi-emperor realm and begin to break through to the martial emperor realm. Since ancient times, there had not been many people who had entered the martial emperor realm under the age of 50 who could compete with the almighties of the ancient era. Whoosh! A figure flashed and bubbles appeared on Lu Ming's shoulder. That person is so strong. Bubbles can't trap him. Chirp chirp. Very good. You're not bad. Since you've forced me to use my full strength, then you'll have to suffer my wrath, Xinghe said coldly, revealing a cold murderous intent. A real battle sword appeared in his hand. It was an imperial weapon, and its sword chi soared into the sky. At this moment, Xinghe's cultivation of the absolute saint realm was fully unleashed, and his aura was terrifying. It's over. Lu Ming and the others are doomed. Although they're strong, they're no match for Xinghe. Indeed, but Lu Ming's lineup is too terrifying. There's someone who can control the laws of time and space. If these people grow up, how terrifying will they be? Will Xinghe kill them here? It's hard to say. The scene today had far exceeded everyone's expectations, and they were so nervous that they found it hard to breathe. In the beginning, Luo Zhangqiong had found trouble with Lu Ming, but he had been defeated by Lu Ming. Then Xinghe had made a move, and the number of experts on Lu Ming's side continued to increase. So far, there were already 6 people with imperial bodies and 2 sons of heaven. How powerful was this lineup? This made the faces of many powerful geniuses turn solemn. If these people's cultivation increased, who would be their match? Damn it. I hope Xinghe can kill these people. Luo Sanqiong was also shocked. He had never thought that Lu Ming could gather so many terrifying geniuses. Swoosh. Xinghe took a step forward and his figure suddenly disappeared. In the next moment, a terrifying sword light slashed toward Lu Ming and the others. Lu Ming and the others' hearts beat rapidly. They felt a terrible danger from the sword light. Let's join forces. Lu Ming shouted. In the face of this attack, they could only block it by gathering all their strength. The great defying cauldron flew out from between Lu Ming's eyebrows, and the 2 saint hearts in his dantian were operating at full force. Majestic saint force poured into the great defying cauldron, causing it to expand to the size of a mountain. But just as Lu Ming and the others were about to give it their all, a dark saber light cut through the void in the distance and slashed violently toward them. This saber light was filled with the aura of death, as if it wanted to plunge all living things in the world into death. Clang. The sword light and saber light collided and then exploded. Terrifying sword chi and saber light swept out in all directions. Swoosh. A figure flashed, and a young man in a black robe stepped forward and appeared in front of Xinghe. He held a saber in his arms, and his entire body was filled with a strong aura of death. It's Death Blade. Death Blade actually attacked Xinghe. Could it be that Death Blade is also familiar with Lu Ming and the others? Seeing this young man, many people were shocked. The son of death, Death Blade, had also attacked Xinghe. Death Blade, are you also going to help Lu Ming and the others? Xinghe's eyes narrowed slightly, and a sharp light flashed in them. No. Death Blade shook his head and said, I only attacked because I don't like you. His words made many people speechless. Death Blade attacked because he didn't like Xinghe? Lu Ming's eyes moved and a smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Chapter 1911. However, Death Blade was a proud man. He was the son of death, so he wouldn't admit it. He had to listen to Lu Ming's orders. If Death Blade didn't say it, Lu Ming wouldn't say it either. Death Blade, it's still too early for you to stop me with your current cultivation. Heng Xinghe said coldly. Death Blade was at the peak of the Absolute Saint Realm, while Heng Xinghe was at the peak of the Absolute Saint Realm. Death Blade was no match for him. How would we know if we don't fight? Death Blade said. The death chi on his body became thicker. If you want to fight, I'll grant you your wish. Heng Xinghe said coldly. Eternal divine light became brighter. The peerless sword light was extremely sharp. It could explode at any time. Heng Xinghe, our battle isn't over yet. Lu Ming stepped forward. At this moment, Lu Ming's black hair turned blood red. His eyes also turned blood red. A bone-chilling murderous intent radiated from Lu Ming's body. At this moment, Lu Ming seemed to have turned into a god of death. This was the power of the third bloodline. Lu Ming hadn't used the third bloodline for a long time. The power of the third bloodline was too strange. Lu Ming used it less and less. But today he had to use it. With the help of the third bloodline, Lu Ming's aura surged. After a few steps, Lu Ming stood side by side with Death Blade. Attack hit this guy. Chirp. Bubbles mumbled. She strode forward with her small feet and followed Lu Ming. As her figure walked past, the void was distorted like water ripples. It was as if her body was no longer there. It was as if she was in another spacetime. In addition, Autumn Moon, Luo Tianyi, and the others also stepped forward. Their auras were shocking. Kill? Death Blade was the first to attack. His sword of death slashed toward Heng Xinghe. Wherever the sword light passed, the world was silent. Boom. Lu Ming was the second to attack. He swung the great development cauldron. Majestic power poured into the cauldron and smashed it toward Heng Xinghe. Then Bubbles, Autumn Moon, and the others attacked at the same time. The attack this time was truly shocking. Today I will show you what it means to be the strongest. The stellar river roared as its sword lights continuously shot out. Hundreds of sword lights shot towards Lu Ming and the others. The Death Blade's blade of death continued to vibrate. More and more blade lights appeared, and a small portion of the sword lights were blocked by him. As for the great pill derivation furnace in Lu Ming's hand, it was as large as a mountain. Every time it smashed down, a large area of sword light would be destroyed. As for Bubbles, Autumn Moon, and the others, they worked together to block the remaining sword lights. Boom, boom, boom. A terrifying battle broke out. The top 10 geniuses fought with all their might. Terrifying rumbling sounds could be heard everywhere. The entire Yuanshan Sacred Academy was shaken. However, after Lu Ming used his third bloodline and the Death Blade joined the battle, they were finally able to fight evenly against Stellar River. In the blink of an eye, they had exchanged dozens of moves, but the outcome was still undecided. Stellar River unleashed his terrifying combat strength to the extreme, but he couldn't do anything to Lu Ming and the others. Stellar River's advantage was his cultivation. His cultivation was high. As for Lu Ming and the others, they had more people. With different types of laws, their power was extremely shocking. Devour. In the midst of the battle, Lu Ming opened the lid of the Great Pill Derivation Furnace. The Great Pill Derivation Furnace erupted with a powerful devouring power, wanting to devour Stellar River. Stellar River roared, and eternal divine light erupted, tearing apart the devouring power of the furnace. However, in the next moment he was enveloped by bubble space-time laws, and his body became sluggish. Whoosh! The Death Blade's blade of death slashed over, almost hitting Stellar River. He narrowly avoided it and at the same time, broke through the attacks of Autumn Moon and the others. He slashed out a few terrifying sword lights towards Autumn Moon, Huang Ling and the others. However, bubble space-time laws enveloped Autumn Moon and the others. Their bodies trembled and they avoided Stellar River's sword lights. Bubble space-time laws had a great supporting ability in a battle. Moreover, its attack power was also very terrifying, making it impossible to guard against. As time passed, the battle became more intense. In the battlefield, all kinds of dazzling lights erupted, colliding with each other and rumbling sounds continued. The battle continued for about 100 moves, but the outcome was still undecided. Boom! Stellar River, Lu Ming, Death Blade and the others collided, and their bodies flew far away. His face was particularly gloomy. Today's matter seemed to be out of his control. He was only dealing with Lu Ming, but he was besieged by so many people. Each of them was a terrifying genius. Lu Ming, let me tell you, my Hung family is determined to get the Heavenly Emperor's sword. You people can't protect it? Stellar River said coldly. That's right, my Hung family is determined to get the Heavenly Emperor's sword. As soon as Stellar River's voice fell, a voice came from outside the Origin Mountain sacred courtyard. Then, as suffocating pressure spread out from that direction. Then the crowd saw 3 old men walking over in the air. There was a divine light revolving around each of the 3 old men. Many people's pupils shrank because that was the divine light of the world. It meant that these 3 old men were true emperors. The 3 old men stood in the air, surrounded by the divine light of the world like 3 gods. An incomparably terrifying pressure constantly spread out, and all the geniuses present felt like there was a mountain pressing down on them. Elders. Stellar River cupped his fists at the 3 old men. Lu Ming, hand over the Heavenly Emperor's sword to us. This is the Heavenly Emperor's personal sword, you are not qualified to wield it. The old man in the middle said, looking at Lu Ming. Lu Ming felt a strong pressure on his body, and his body couldn't help but retreat. If the young can't do it, the old man will do it? Sure enough, this is the style of a major force. Lu Ming said with a hint of mockery. That's right, you true emperors want to intervene in the affairs of the younger generation, too shameful. At this time, a voice came from the depths of the Origin Mountain sacred courtyard. When the voice fell, several figures appeared in the void. These figures were surrounded by the divine light of the world, and they were also true emperors. They were the teachers of the Origin Mountain sacred courtyard. Most of the teachers of the Origin Mountain sacred courtyard didn't come from any major forces. Most of them were lone wolves or lived in seclusion. In the end, they were invited by the 3 great emperors to become the teachers of the Origin Mountain sacred courtyard and jointly manage it. The true emperors of the Hung clan had an ugly expression. They originally wanted Stellar River to take the Heavenly Emperor's sword from Lu Ming's hand, but they didn't expect that Stellar River couldn't do it. They had no choice but to step in. They also thought that the teachers of the Origin Mountain sacred courtyard would intervene in this matter. This is the Origin Mountain sacred courtyard, please leave. A teacher of the Origin Mountain sacred courtyard directly ordered the guests to leave. We must take the Heavenly Emperor's sword. A true emperor of the Hung clan said. The Heavenly Emperor's sword was pulled out by Lu Ming, so it naturally belongs to him. You don't have the ability to pull it out, yet you want to take it for free? Isn't it laughable? You call yourselves the descendants of the Heavenly Emperor. Chapter 1912. The true emperors from the Hung clan had a dark expression. If it was someone from another faction who dared to speak to them like this, they would have been annihilated by them. However, the other party was a teacher of the Origin Mountain Holy Courtyard. The Origin Mountain Holy Courtyard was founded by 3 great sovereigns. Although their Hung clan was powerful, They did not dare to go against the Origin Mountain Holy Courtyard. The Hung True Emperors shifted their gazes and messaged each other, discussing something. After a while, a true emperor from the Hung clan said, "Lu Ming, you can keep the Heavenly Emperor's sword, but you must give us the cultivation method." Hung Xinghe's eyes flashed sharply after hearing this. He once said that Heavenly Emperor's sword would be his sword, but now, Lu Ming had to keep it. This made him very unhappy. The few teachers from Yuan Shan Sacred Academy also had a change in their eyes. Obviously the Hung family had given in. They looked at Lu Ming and one of them said, "Lu Ming, what do you think? There's no merit laws in the sword, how can I give it to you?" Lu Ming said. After he pulled out the sword of the Celestial Arch, he did not discover any abnormalities at all. It was like an ordinary stone sword. It only appeared in the sword tomb and took the initiative to appear. It saved Lu Ming once and even absorbed a large amount of sword origins. "Lu Ming, don't push your luck. Our Hung clan has already given in. Being too greedy will only bring about your own destruction." Hung Xinghe shouted. The true emperors from the Hung clan had a cold glint in their eyes. In their opinion, they had already given in, but Lu Ming's greed was insatiable. He didn't even want to hand over the merit laws of Heavenly Emperor's sword. "Lu Ming, the merit laws and Heavenly Emperor's sword are very important to our clan. That's right, young people should know when to stop. It'll be a shame if you die halfway through your cultivation." The true emperors from the Hung clan spoke one after another. Their threat was self-evident. "I told you there's no merit laws in the sword," Lu Ming repeated. "You still dare to deny it?" One of the true emperors from the Hung clan shouted. Rolling thunder rumbled and formed a terrifying storm that pressed down on Lu Ming. A teacher from Origin Mountain Sacred Institution frowned and took a step forward. A force rushed out and destroyed the thunderous attack. A true emperor is going too far. The teacher from Origin Mountain Sacred Institution frowned and looked at Lu Ming. "Lu Ming, you really didn't find any merit laws in the sword?" "No, there's nothing wrong with the sword after I got it. It's just an ordinary stone sword," Lu Ming said. Quibble. "My Hung clan's ancient records state that the Celestial Emperor's sword contains a cultivation technique left behind by the Celestial Emperor." True emperors from the Hung clan shouted. "Hung clan." Lu Ming sneered. The furious true emperor from the Hung clan unleashed a terrifying aura and stepped forward. The Hung clan had always prided itself on being a descendant of the Celestial Emperor. Now Lu Ming dared to say that they weren't a descendant of the Celestial Emperor. They couldn't establish their prestige without killing. Enough. At this time, an old voice came from the depths of Yuan Mountain Holy Court. The voice sounded gentle to the geniuses of Origin Mountain Sacred Institution. However, it was thunderous to the Hung clan true emperor. The Hung clan true emperor trembled and frantically retreated. His expression changed drastically as he almost vomited blood. "Grand Emperor." The Hung clan true emperor cried out in horror. "It's Grand Emperor Wuxiang." When Lu Ming and the rest heard that, they knew that it was Emperor Wuxiang. Previously, when Emperor Wuxiang was preaching, they naturally recognized his voice. Who would have thought that Grand Emperor Wuxiang would show up? "This is Origin Mountain Sacred Institution. All of you leave." Grand Emperor Wuxiang's voice sounded again. Though he didn't use any harsh words, his majesty was unquestionable. The three Hung clan true emperors had an ugly expression. However, this was Origin Mountain Sacred Institution. How could they not retreat when Grand Emperor Wuxiang had spoken? True emperors were lofty existences in the eyes of other cultivators. However, they were like babies in front of a Grand Emperor. Wuxiang. At this moment, outside the sacred courtyard of Yuan Mountain, an old voice came from an unknown distance away. "Ancestor." The three Hung clan true emperors were overjoyed after hearing the voice. Many people were shaken. The three true emperors from the Hung clan called him an ancestor, and he dared to call Emperor Formless by name. There was only one possibility: he was also a Grand Emperor. There was a rumor that the Hung clan had a Grand Emperor. "Wuxiang, the Heavenly Emperor's sword is related to an important merit law of the Hung clan. Do you really want to interfere?" The voice came from an unknown distance outside of Origin Mountain Sacred Institution again. "No matter what the reason is, since this is Origin Mountain Sacred Institution and Lu Ming is a disciple of Origin Mountain Sacred Institution, I will protect him. It's the same for any other disciple of Origin Mountain Sacred Institution. If someone dares to move the galaxy in Origin Mountain Sacred Institution, I will do the same." Grand Emperor Wuxiang's voice was firm and unquestionable. As long as one was a disciple of Origin Mountain Sacred Institution, he would protect them regardless of who they were. "Ah." The Hung Clan Great Emperor sneered and said, "Wu Xiang, we haven't seen each other for many years. I wonder how much progress you've made. Why don't we spar?" "That's what I was thinking. I also want to see how much progress you've made," Grand Emperor Wu Xiang said. Many people were shocked. The two Grand Emperors were about to fight. This was a once-in-a-lifetime event. Boom, boom. Terrifying pressure emanated from the direction of Hung Clan and the depths of Origin Mountain's sacred institution. Then two rays of light flashed and rushed into the sky. Wherever the light passed, the space was torn apart. Two figures rushed into the crack in the void. Boom. Then, a terrifying vibration came out from the void. The entire sky seemed to be shaking crazily. A dull pressure came from the sky, making people feel that the world was about to be overturned and destroyed. The Grand Emperors were fighting in the void. If the Grand Emperors were to fight in Celestial City, the world would be turned upside down. Celestial City would be destroyed and countless people would be affected. Boom, boom. In the void there were continuous explosions. The space rippled like water. Then, a series of ferocious spatial cracks appeared in the void like a spider web, densely covering the entire void. So terrifying. Many people felt their heartbeat accelerate. Their muscles were tense and they were extremely nervous. It was too terrifying. Even if they were fighting in the void, the scene was still earth-shattering. Everyone felt that a great disaster was about to befall them. The Grand Emperor's small worlds could give birth to living beings and control the Grand Tao. They were too powerful. True emperors were as weak as babies in front of them. In the era when celestial emperors did not appear, the Grand Emperors were the top existences in the world. Chapter 1913. The battle between the great emperors did not last long. After a few minutes, the ripples in the void suddenly stopped. Those spatial rifts also disappeared. They stopped. Who won? Was it the Hung Clan's Great Emperor or Great Emperor Wu Xiang? Withdraw from the Sacred Academy and send people to guard outside. If Lu Ming comes out, take him down. The voice of the Hung Clan's Great Emperor came from the direction of the Hung Clan. The Hung Clan was going to withdraw from the Sacred Academy. Many people's eyes flashed. Did the Hung Clan's Great Emperor lose? It was very likely. If the Hung Clan's Great Emperor won, why would he withdraw from the Sacred Academy so easily? Yes. The three Hung Clan's true emperors took the order and glanced coldly at Lu Ming, then stepped out and left the Sacred Academy. Xinghe's eyes were filled with unwillingness. At this time a figure appeared in the sky. It was Great Emperor Wu Xiang. "Greetings, Great Emperor." Everyone bowed to greet Great Emperor Wu Xiang. "Now, I have an announcement." Great Emperor Wu Xiang's eyes were no longer gentle, but filled with a sharp light. Those who were swept by his eyes felt their heart beat faster. From tomorrow onwards, the rules of the Sacred Academy will change. From now on, there will be no killing in the Sacred Academy. In other words, there will be no rules in the Sacred Academy. Great Emperor Wu Xiang's voice sounded. Many people were shocked. From tomorrow onwards, there will be no killing in the Sacred Academy. There will be no rules. This will certainly lead to earth-shattering changes in the Sacred Academy. In the past, killing and crippling other people's cultivation were prohibited in the Sacred Academy. If one wanted to fight to the death, one would have to go to the life and death arena. If one did not go to the life and death arena, they would be safe in the Sacred Academy. At least they would not have to worry about their lives. But all of this will change. From now on, the teachers of the Sacred Academy will not care about your matters. Of course, all of this is the internal affairs of the Sacred Academy. If any outside forces interfere, we will strike with lightning. Also, I have placed 4 sets of array discs in the Saint battlefield. Each set of array discs can cover an area of 100 miles. Only martial emperors can break it. After saying this, Great Emperor Wu Xiang's figure blurred like a phantom and disappeared without a trace. Little guys, take care of yourselves. Several teachers of the Sacred Academy glanced at the crowd and left one after another, disappearing into the depths of the Sacred Academy. As soon as the teacher of the Saint Academy left, the atmosphere on the scene became extremely solemn. Everyone looked at each other, their eyes filled with seriousness and vigilance. From tomorrow onwards, killing would no longer be prohibited. Those who had enmity with each other would look at each other with cold killing intent. Luo Tsangqiong, Xinghe, and the others glanced at Lu Ming and the others with undisguised killing intent. "Lu Ming, just you wait." Xinghe spoke coldly. With a flash of his body he was the first to leave this place. After Stellar River left, the death blade turned into a blade light and disappeared. This caused the eyes of some of the stronger geniuses to flicker. From the looks of it, Death Blade wasn't on Lu Ming's side. Just as Deathblade had said, Deathblade had only attacked because he didn't like Stellar River. Especially some of the stronger geniuses, they let out a long sigh in their hearts. If Deathblade was on Lu Ming's side, then the strength of Lu Ming's group was too amazing. They could fight against Stellar River when they joined forces. They were almost invincible in the Sacred Academy of Origin Mountain. However, without Deathblade, the strength of Lu Ming's group was greatly reduced. That bastard Deathblade left without even saying goodbye. Huang Ling muttered unhappily. Lu Ming smiled slightly and didn't care too much. As the son of Death, Deathblade naturally had his pride. He was not convinced by Lu Ming at all. He most likely wanted to wait for 20 years to pass before challenging Lu Ming and replacing Lu Ming's status as the Golden Inheritor. However, Lu Ming was confident that within 20 years, he would definitely convince Deathblade. Let's go back, Lu Ming said. Together with Qiuyu, Huang Ling, Long Chen, and the rest, they stepped into the air and left the place. Then the others left one after another. From tomorrow onwards, the Sacred Academy of Origin Mountain would no longer prohibit killing. Naturally, they had to prepare early. In Lu Ming's residence in a courtyard, everyone gathered to discuss matters. From tomorrow onwards, the situation in the Sacred Academy will definitely change greatly. How should we face it? Someone asked. We'd better all gather together and concentrate our strength to avoid being defeated one by one. Lu Ming said, then looked at Ouyang Wushuang and Luo Qianni and said, Ouyang Qianni, bring all the people you can bring here. We'll gather together. Okay. Ouyang Wushuang and Luo Qianni nodded and agreed without hesitation. Other than Huang Ling and Long Chen, the others were surprised. Luo Qianni and Ouyang Wushuang seemed to be very obedient to Lu Ming's words, which shocked them. During this period, we'd better not go to those cultivation places to cultivate. Wait until the situation stabilizes, then we'll make plans. Lu Ming suggested. Everyone nodded. Now this was the best choice. The mountain was very large, so everyone chose to stay in the courtyard. A day passed in the blink of an eye. From the second day onwards, the atmosphere in the entire Sacred Academy of Origin Mountain became tense and vigilant. It had been almost a year since the Sacred Academy of Origin Mountain was held. Many people had grudges with each other. In the past they could not kill each other. At most they could teach each other a lesson to vent their anger. But now it was different. Sure enough, in just a few days the killing began. Some of the prodigies were killed on the spot by their opponents. This also opened the curtain of chaos in the Sacred Academy of Origin Mountain. A fierce battle began. Boom. Not far from the mountain where Lu Ming and the others lived, on a mountain peak, there was a shocking explosion. Two figures rushed out of the mountain peak and began to fight fiercely. However, the battle did not last long. A terrifying sword light slashed across, and a young prodigy was cut in half and died there. The other prodigy took the young prodigy's storage ring, turned into a sword light and disappeared. In this way, I wonder how many prodigies will fall. A few figures stood in the air and watched. They were Lu Ming, Huang Ling, Luo Qianni, and the others. Huang Ling sighed slightly. Perhaps, this is the strategy of the great emperors. Only by facing danger at all times can one explore their own potential faster and more thoroughly and break through to a higher realm. Luo Qianni said. The others nodded, but the price of this method was very high. I don't know why the great emperors held the Sacred Academy of Origin Mountain to cultivate so many prodigies. Lu Ming asked and asked. The others were silent. In fact, this was also the question in everyone's mind. Why did the great emperors spend so much effort to gather so many prodigies and cultivate them? Chapter 1914. In the blink of an eye, half a month had passed. As time passed, the Sacred Academy of Origin Mountain became even more chaotic. There were battles and killings every day. Every day there were geniuses who died. However, no one bothered Lu Ming and the others. Lu Ming and the others had many geniuses. When they gathered together, they were very terrifying. Naturally, no one would pay attention to them for the time being. As time passed, many people began to gather and form groups to fight against the powerful enemies. Even so, there were still powerful geniuses who directly attacked a certain group and killed all of them. The atmosphere in the Sacred Academy of Origin Mountain was extremely oppressive. Under such circumstances, some geniuses left the Sacred Academy of Origin Mountain. However, those who left were only a minority. The various cultivation places in the Sacred Academy of Origin Mountain were too attractive. Moreover, there was a great emperor's preaching. Where could one find such cultivation conditions? Although it was dangerous in the Sacred Academy of Origin Mountain, one's progress was also the fastest. Leaving the Sacred Academy of Origin Mountain, one's cultivation speed would definitely not be able to keep up with the cultivation in the Sacred Academy of Origin Mountain. Everyone was a genius. Once the gap was widened, it would be difficult to catch up. The path of cultivation was like walking against the current. If one did not advance, one would fall behind. Once one fell behind, one would not be able to catch up with the other geniuses in the future. Even one's own achievements would be affected. In the Sacred Academy of Origin Mountain, one might be able to continuously unearth one's potential and make breakthroughs. Their future achievements were unpredictable. However, it was not certain if they left. Thus, only a small number of people left. Many more people stayed behind. Huang Kong, a genius from the Phoenix Palace, once competed with Huang Ling for the Heart of Parasol Tree, but they later reconciled. On this day he met up with a few geniuses from the Divine Elephant sect in Phoenix Palace. They arrived at the Divine Abilities Purgatory Valley, intending to cultivate their divine abilities there. However, they were stopped outside the valley. Stop! The Divine Ability Purgatory Valley has been reserved by the Sky Knife Alliance. No one else is allowed to enter. Outside the Divine Ability Purgatory Valley, a few young men stopped Huang Kong and the others. The Sky Knife Alliance? Reserved by you? Huang Kong and the others were stunned. That's right. Now get lost. A young man on the other side was extremely arrogant. How dare you? The Divine Ability Purgatory Valley was created by the great Emperor of the Sacred Academy. Everyone who entered the Sacred Academy's Divine Ability Purgatory Valley. A genius from the Divine Elephant sect was furious. That's right, you should be the ones to scram. A Phoenix Palace disciple berated. Since they don't want to leave, I'll just kill them. A cold voice came from the Purgatory Valley. A young man in a long golden robe stepped out with a few other young men with a cold expression. Huang Kong and the others had ugly expressions on their faces. If you want to fight, we have nothing to fear. Let's go. Huang Kong said, wishing to withdraw first and report this matter to Lu Ming and the others. Did I say you could leave? Kill them all. The young man in the golden robe was extremely overbearing. A golden battle saber appeared in his hand and he slashed at Huang Kong and the others. This person's cultivation was very strong. He was at the pinnacle of the Great Saint Realm. As for Huang Kong and the others, the one with the highest cultivation was Huang Kong, who was only a great sage, great mastery. Not good, retreat. Huang Kong shouted. He did not expect the other party to be so domineering, attacking them directly and wanting to kill them. However, the other party had more people. Their figures flashed and surrounded them. Pucci. The young man in the golden robe slashed down with his battle saber and killed a Phoenix Palace disciple. Huang Kong's eyes were bloodshot. He shouted, "You killed my Phoenix Palace disciple. Lu Ming and the others will not let you off." What? A Phoenix Palace disciple? The young man in the golden robe and the others were shocked. He did not expect the other party to be a Phoenix Palace disciple. Phoenix Palace represented Lu Ming and the group of elites on Lu Ming's side. The young man in the golden robe broke out in cold sweat when he thought of the combat strength of Lu Ming and the others. However, they had already killed one of their opponents. It was impossible for them to ease the tension. Kill them all. Don't let any of them escape. The young man in the golden robe roared. Since they could not ease the tension, they would kill all of them. That way no one would know that they were the culprits. Terrifying attacks continued to attack Huang Kong and the others. Huang Kong and the others were outnumbered and their cultivation was weaker than the other party. They could not withstand the attacks at all and were killed one by one. Soon Huang Kong was the only one left. Kill. The young man in the golden robe continued to attack Huang Kong with his saber. Soon a long saber wound appeared on Huang Kong's body and his body was almost split into two. If he did not have the Phoenix combat body and the Phoenix's ability to rise from the ashes, he would not have been able to fight anymore. A Phoenix cry was heard and a pair of Phoenix wings appeared on Huang Kong's back. He spat out a mouthful of blood and when the blood landed on the Phoenix wings, the flames on the Phoenix wings burned brightly. Swoosh. Huang Kong risked his injuries and charged out of the encirclement. He flew toward the place where Lu Ming and the others were gathered. Oh no! Chase after him. The young man in the golden robe and the others' faces changed and they chased after Huang Kong. However, Huang Kong had used a secret skill and his speed was shocking. In the blink of an eye, he had disappeared without a trace. The young man in the golden robe looked terrible. If Lu Ming and the others knew that Huang Kong had escaped, what would happen? Fear flashed in his eyes and he said, "Report to the Alliance leader that Lu Ming and the others are here to fight for the superpower Purgatory Valley." At the mountain where Lu Ming and the others were staying, Lu Ming, Huang Ling, and the others were discussing something. Suddenly, someone rushed in to report. Oh no! Someone has been killed. The person who made the report was a genius from the Phoenix Palace and he looked furious. What? Lu Ming and the others' faces changed. In a flash, they appeared outside the courtyard and saw Huang Kong sitting cross-legged on the ground. His body was covered in phoenix flames and his body was covered in blood. Huang Ling's face darkened. She waved her hand and the undying flame shrouded Huang Kong. With the help of the undying flame, Huang Kong's injuries healed quickly. After a while he was fully recovered. Huang Kong, what happened? Huang Ling asked. Our men have been killed. Huang Kong immediately told her what had happened. The Sky Knife Alliance is courting death. Huang Ling's body emitted a cold killing intent. It seems like someone has started to fight for the cultivation ground. Gather the men and let's go. Lu Ming shouted. Soon Lu Ming, Chiu Moon, Huang Ling, Luo Qianni, Long Chen, Huang Li, and the others headed toward the superpower Purgatory Valley. They had to avenge the deaths of their men. When Lu Ming and the others arrived at the superpower Purgatory Valley, more than 100 people had gathered outside the valley. It's them. They killed our men without any explanation. Huang Kong pointed at the young man in the golden robe in the crowd. Come out and die. Chapter 1915. Lu Ming, what's the matter that made you so angry? A burly young man stepped out. He was holding a saber and his eyes were as sharp as a blade. Wei Tiandao. Huang Ling whispered. Lu Ming raised his eyebrows. He had heard of Wei Tiandao before. He was ranked 4th on the King Sage board and had a terrifying imperial constitution. His cultivation was unfathomable and he was even more powerful than Luo Zhanqiong. It seemed that Wei Tiandao was the one who had set up the Sky Saber Alliance. Your people killed our people for no reason. A life for a life. They must die. Lu Ming said coldly. They attacked us first and we were forced to fight back. The young man in the golden robe shouted. Nonsense, we came to Purgatory Valley to cultivate. You stopped us and said that Purgatory Valley was already occupied by you. Moreover, you attacked us and killed our people without any explanation. If I didn't risk my life to break out, I would have died too. Huang Kong shouted angrily. You are slandering us. The young man in the golden robe said. Lu Ming, it seems that there is a misunderstanding. How about this? I will give you half of the rights to use the Purgatory Valley and we will let this matter rest. How about that? Wei Tiandao said. You want to let this matter rest so easily after killing our men? Is there something wrong with your brain? Lu Ming scolded him and a cold killing intent flashed in his eyes. Wei Tiandao's face darkened. He was ranked 4th on the King Sage board and Lu Ming did not give him any face. This made him want to kill him. However, when he looked at Luo Qianni, Chiu Autumn Moon, Huang Ling and the others, he suppressed the killing intent in his heart. Lu Ming, what do you want? Wei Tiandao asked. It's simple. Those who attacked us will pay with their lives. Also, the Purgatory Valley will belong to us. Lu Ming said coldly. The young man in the golden robe was shocked and shouted, Alliance leader, don't agree. We are doing this for the Alliance. Wei Tiandao's face darkened and he said, Lu Ming, your conditions are too much. Too much? Don't you have to pay the price for killing our people? Lu Ming sneered. Lu Ming, I suggest that we turn this matter into a small one. Once the two sides start fighting, it won't benefit anyone. This time, you don't have the help of the Death Blade. Wei Tiandao spoke, vaguely revealing a trace of threat. In other words, without the help of the Death Blade, if you fight with me, you won't be able to gain anything. Both sides will only suffer. Hehe, you really know how to flatter yourself. Against you, I don't need the help of the Death Blade. If you want to fight, then let's fight. After saying that, Lu Ming took a step forward. A berserk aura burst out and pressed down on Wei Tiandao. At the same time, Luo Qianni, Autumn Moon, and the others released their auras as well. Whoosh! A shocking saber light erupted from Wei Tiandao's body, piercing through the sky. It was incomparably terrifying. Perfection of the absolute saint realm. Wei Tiandao's cultivation had also reached the complete saint realm. No wonder he was ranked 4th on the King Saint list. The people behind Wei Tiandao also released their auras. 2 of them were also very terrifying. They also had king bodies. The terrifying auras of the two sides clashed in the air. Die. Lu Ming suddenly shouted and pointed out. A chaotic calamity finger formed and attacked Wei Tiandao. Wei Tiandao unsheathed his saber. Just as he was about to attack, a transparent bubble suddenly appeared around him and enveloped him. His body suddenly stiffened. Break! Wei Tiandao roared. Dazzling saber light burst out, trying to break the bubble's space-time rules. But he wasn't Xing Xinghe. Xing Xinghe had the eternal body and the eternal divine light. Together with the eternal rules, he could easily break the bubble space-time rules. He was only a king body. Although his cultivation was similar to Xing Xinghe's, his combat power was far inferior. He couldn't break the space-time rules in such a short time. Heavenly illusion. Luo Qianni shouted and used the heavenly illusion rules. Wei Tiandao immediately fell into an illusion. Break, break, break. Wei Tiandao roared. Saber light burst out of his body, trying to break the illusion and space-time rules. At that moment, Lu Ming's attack arrived. Boom. The chaotic calamity finger hit Wei Tiandao. Although Wei Tiandao used his saber light to block it, his body still shook violently and he spat out a mouthful of blood. However, as soon as he retreated, another transparent bubble enveloped him. Then Luo Qianni's illusion shook his soul again. Although Luo Qianni's cultivation was at the great accomplishment of the absolute saint realm, her soul was very powerful. It was far beyond her cultivation level. Together with the heavenly illusion rules, it had a great impact on Wei Tiandao. Wei Tiandao had a lot of strength, but he couldn't use it at the moment. Whoosh! Lu Ming stepped forward. The great evolution cauldron appeared in his hand. It rapidly enlarged and smashed toward Wei Tiandao. Bam! Wei Tiandao was smashed. His body hit the ground heavily and he spat out a mouthful of blood. The other members of the Sky Knife Alliance were shocked. The golden-robed young man and the others who had attacked earlier were pale. Wait, stop! Wei Tiandao roared. What do you want to say? Lu Ming stood in the air and looked at Wei Tiandao coldly. Wei Tiandao's eyes flashed with horror. It wasn't until now that he truly understood how terrifying Lu Ming and the others were when they joined forces. Back then, Lu Ming and the others were suppressed by Eternal Galaxy when they joined forces. It wasn't that Lu Ming and the others weren't strong, but that Eternal Galaxy was too strong. It wasn't until they fought that Wei Tiandao realized how terrifying Lu Ming and the others were. With a few of them working together, he couldn't use his strength at all. He could only take a beating. Moreover, there were other people with king bodies who hadn't attacked yet. If they really fought, they would definitely lose. Lu Ming, I agree to your conditions. Wei Tiandao said helplessly. He felt humiliated, but there was nothing he could do in this situation. No, Alliance leader, you have to save us. You have to save us. The golden-robed young man screamed in horror. If Wei Tiandao didn't save them, they would die. You have to bear the consequences of your own actions. Let's go. Wei Tiandao roared and turned to leave. The other members of the Sky Knife Alliance looked at the golden-robed young man and the others pitifully. Of all the people they could offend, they had to offend Lu Ming and the others. Following that, the other members of the Sky Knife Alliance soared into the air and left as well. No. The golden-robed young man and the others frantically chased after the Sky Knife Alliance members. However, Long Chen's figure suddenly appeared before them. His eyes were cold as he threw a punch. Bang! The golden-robed young man screamed miserably as his body shattered into pieces. The remaining people had even lower cultivations. Long Chen killed all of them in a few moves. The people who attacked earlier were all killed. Chapter 1916. After that, the sacred courtyard of Yuanshan became even more chaotic. Various large groups fought and killed each other in order to compete for those cultivation places. In the sacred courtyard of Yuanshan, the cultivation place was the most important cultivation resource. It was extremely helpful for cultivation. Naturally, the competition was very fierce. In all of this, the teachers of the sacred courtyard of Yuanshan did not interfere. Since that day, the teachers of the sacred courtyard of Yuanshan seemed to have disappeared. Only a few people were left to maintain the operation of those cultivation places. After that, some small groups began to form alliances and gathered into large groups. One by one, alliances began to appear. And the leaders of those alliances were all powerhouses on the King Sage board. The sacred courtyard of Yuanshan did not prohibit killing. 2 months later, dozens of small and large alliances appeared in the sacred courtyard of Yuanshan. In the mountain where Lu Ming and the others lived, everyone gathered again. Lu Ming, should we establish an alliance? Huang Ling was the first to suggest. I also think it's good to establish an alliance. Once we establish an alliance, others will come to join us and increase our strength. Ouyang Wushuang also suggested. Yes, if we establish an alliance, people will come to join us. If we get to know more people now, it will be of great use in the future. Luo Qianni also said. Then the others also spoke one after another, feeling that it was time to establish an alliance. However, everyone was waiting for Lu Ming's opinion. During this period, almost everyone had followed Lu Ming's lead. At this moment, a message came. Heng Xinghe had successfully obtained a set of array discs in the holy battlefield, covering 100 miles of his residence. At the same time he had established the Celestial Emperor Alliance. Many people from the small alliances had joined him. Heng Xinghe obtained a set of array discs? Many people's expressions changed. During this period we sent people to inquire about the holy battlefield's array discs. How is it? Lu Ming asked. During this period they had also been inquiring about the array discs. At this time a set of array discs was too useful. A set of array discs could cover 100 miles, and only martial emperors could break it. This was equivalent to having a base and they were not afraid of being attacked. This was too important for an alliance. This meant that their safety was guaranteed. Usually they could cultivate in the cultivation place, but it was impossible to stay in the cultivation place all the time. After cultivating for a period of time, they still had to leave the cultivation place and find a place to digest it. Living in the area covered by the array discs, there was no need to worry about their own safety. However, there were only 4 sets of array discs. Once someone obtained one set, many people would join them. Emperor Wu of Yuanshan, the Celestial Emperor Alliance, had left 4 sets of array discs in the holy battlefield of the holy battlefield. However, the holy battlefield was huge. During this time, many people were looking for formation discs. Unexpectedly, Xinghe was one step ahead of them and got a formation disc. During this period of time, we have some people Wushuang. Ouyang Wushuang said. Alright, then we'll wait until we get the disc array, then we'll establish the alliance. Everyone nodded as well. Obtaining the disc array and establishing the alliance would be the best. Hang to Celestial. Heng Xinghe was the first on the King Sage board. Now that they were the first to obtain an array disc, many people joined them. It was said that Luo Zhangqiong, Luo Pokong and Feng Wuchen from the Feng clan had joined Heng Xinghe. For a time, the Heavenly Emperor Alliance became a Leviathan existence. However, Heng Xinghe did not find trouble with Lu Ming because he did not know what Deathblade's intentions were. Lu Ming found Luo Xiang alone. He planned to use the Great Pill Development Cauldron to refine Luo Xiang's spiritual body. With Luo Xiang's potential, he would definitely be able to refine his spiritual body to a superior sky spiritual body. When Luo Xiang found out about the effects of the Great Pill Development Cauldron, he was shocked. Then Luo Xiang entered the Great Pill Development Cauldron. Half a month after Heng Xinghe obtained the array disc, the second array disc appeared. It was obtained by the Divine Fire Alliance, led by the second on the King Sage board. The second on the King Sage board was called the Fire Emperor. He was the pride of an ancient clan, the Fire Tribe. After he obtained the array disc, many people joined him. Suddenly, the Divine Fire Alliance became a force second only to the Celestial Emperor Alliance. After half a month of refining, Luo Xiang's spiritual body also evolved to a superior sky spiritual body. When Luo Xiang's spiritual body evolved, it actually led to his cultivation reaching the Absolute Saint Realm. Luo Xiang's cultivation had already reached the limit of the Supreme Saint Realm. It was normal for him to break through by coincidence. Luo Xiang had a king body and could control one of the King Dao's laws, the speed law. When he became an absolute saint, Lu Ming and the others became stronger. At this moment there was good news. They finally found the location of the array disc. Lu Ming immediately gathered everyone and headed to the Absolute Saint battlefield. The Absolute Saint battlefield was actually a huge array world. It had been built by the Emperor himself. Back when the Origin Mountain Sacred Academy was first opened, only Paragon Saints were allowed to enter and cultivate there. But now the Absolute Saint battlefield had been adjusted. Even Bright Saints could enter. The entrance to the Absolute Saint battlefield was guarded by the Saint Court's elders. Entering required a large number of Origin stones. Lu Ming and the others, a few dozen people, paid the Origin stones and entered a spacious secret room. This secret chamber could be considered to have been reserved by them. Outsiders were not allowed to enter. Entering the Absolute Saint battlefield required one's mind to enter. Their physical body would remain outside. This was to prevent them from being ambushed after entering the Absolute Saint battlefield. Everyone sat down cross-legged. Inscriptions appeared in the secret room and covered their bodies. The next moment, they discovered that their minds had entered a mysterious space. Then they discovered that they had appeared on a grassland. It's so real. The cultivation is exactly the same as the outside world. Even the laws are the same. Lu Ming sensed that everything was the same as the outside world. There really was no difference. This shocked Lu Ming. This array world was indeed extraordinary. Previously, when he was helping Ouyang Wushuang in the Xinyuan Empire, the first trial was also to enter a world of formations. However, the cultivators who entered the formation would only be able to form the body of a first-layer martial dominator. Their cultivation and the power of laws would not be able to be used inside the formation. But here they could use it as they wished. It was on a completely different level. The others who hadn't entered the saintly battlefield also secretly felt it, exclaiming endlessly. It was indeed extraordinary that the emperor had built it himself. There are many beasts formed by formations in the absolute saint battlefield. After asking around, one of the array discs might be on Violent Ape Mountain. Ouyang Wushuang said. Chapter 1917. Violent Ape Mountain? How strong are they? Lu Ming asked. Violent Ape Mountain is inhabited by a type of ancient violent ape. They are naturally warlike, possess boundless strength and have formidable battle prowess. The strongest violent ape in the Violent Ape Mountain is at the Quasi-Emperor realm. There are many violent apes at the Saint realm. Some time ago, several alliances wanted to explore the Violent Ape Mountain, but they were all killed by the violent apes. Ouyang Wushuang explained. A Quasi-Emperor violent ape? Many people narrowed their eyes. With the protection of a Quasi-Emperor violent ape, it was not easy to get the array disc. But fortunately this was the Saint battlefield, a world of arrays. Even if they died in this world, their real body would be fine. Ouyang lead the way. Lu Ming said to Ouyang Wushuang. Ouyang Wushuang nodded and led the way. Everyone followed. The Saint battlefield was vast and endless. After flying for a few hours, a towering mountain appeared in front of them. Brr, brr. Even though they were very far away, they could still hear the roars and howls that were filled with brutality. They had arrived at the Violent Ape Mountain. Wait a minute. Those with weak cultivation, stay outside and attract the attention of some violent apes. Those with strong cultivation, follow me and kill our way to the top of the mountain. Lu Ming arranged everyone's task. Dying on the holy battlefield wouldn't be a true death. Therefore, using some weaker people to attract some of the violent apes was the best way to make the best use of people. No one had any objections. Everyone approached the Violent Ape Mountain. Someone is coming. Lu Ming's face suddenly changed and looked in another direction. There was a group of people flying over from that direction. The group flying at the front were all young men and women in white robes. They were extremely handsome. Xian Yanjuan. Lu Ming narrowed his eyes, a little surprised. He did not expect to see Xian Yanjuan here. They are from the ancient sacred tribe. Luo Qianni said softly. The ancient sacred tribe was also a powerful ancient tribe. Those handsome men and women in white robes were from the ancient sacred tribe. The people behind the ancient Saint clan should be the prodigies who had allied with the ancient Saint clan. It was obvious that the people of the ancient Saint clan also wanted to step onto the Violent Ape Mountain to seize the array disc. Lu Ming. Xian Yanjuan looked at Lu Ming in surprise. It's Lu Ming and the others. The gazes of the other ancient sacred tribes and the geniuses outside the ancient sacred tribes turned solemn. The battle prowess of Lu Ming's group left a deep impression on them. Now that they had encountered Lu Ming's group, it would be difficult for them to seize the disc array. Hee, Lu Ming, I didn't expect that we would meet in the Origin Mountain Holy Courtyard. What a coincidence. Xian Yanjuan said with a smile. What a coincidence. Lu Ming replied indifferently. Although Xian Yanqing had helped him once in the Tsang state, revealing the Divine Sun's cultivation level and secrets before the battle with him. However, Lu Ming's impression of Xian Yanjuan was still very bad. Back in the Divine Wilderness continent, the two of them were mortal enemies. Many people looked at Lu Ming in surprise before looking at Xian Yanjuan. Lu Ming and Xian Yanjuan knew each other? I'm really impressed. How does Lu Ming know so many beauties? Logically speaking, I'm also quite handsome. Why don't I know so many beauties? Huang Li touched his head and muttered. Qiu Yu, Huang Ling, Luo Tianni and the other girls had strange looks on their faces. As for the other big guys from the desolate race, they looked at Lu Ming with admiration. Xian Yanjuan smiled slightly as if he did not mind Lu Ming's attitude. He said, Lu Ming, are you also here to snatch the disc array? We are naturally here to snatch the disc array. Lu Ming said. What a coincidence. We are also here to snatch the disc array. On account of me helping you once, how about you give the disc array to me? Xian Yanjuan said with a smile. Give it to you? On Violent Ape Mountain there are quasi-thearch violent apes. Even if I give it to you, you probably won't be able to take it down. It's better if we rely on our own abilities. Lu Ming smiled slightly. Following that, he did not waste any more words with Xian Yanjuan. They flew to the other side of Violent Ape Mountain. If the ancient sacred race wanted to snatch the disc array, then let them. Both sides attacked from different directions of Violent Ape Mountain. Whoever obtained it would be the one with the ability. When they arrived at the other side of Violent Ape Mountain, they followed the original plan. Some of the weaker ones rushed towards Violent Ape Mountain. Soon there were bursts of angry roars from Violent Ape Mountain. A group of violent apes chased after those people and disappeared into the distance. Bubbles? Taking advantage of this opportunity, Lu Ming transmitted a message to Bubbles. Chirp chirp. Bubbles waved her small hands and a space-time tunnel was formed, extending to the top of the mountain. Everyone rushed into the space-time tunnel. Brr. At this moment, a terrifying roar sounded from the top of the mountain. A giant violent ape appeared. It was 100 meters tall and held a giant rod in its hand. It swept the rod towards the space-time tunnel. Rumble. As the giant rod swept across, heaven and earth roared and the space-time tunnel collapsed. Lu Ming and the others had just stepped into the space-time tunnel. Before they could cross half the distance, they were forcefully thrown out of the space-time tunnel. It's really not working. The strength of a quasi-thearch is really amazing, Lu Ming thought to himself. A quasi-thearch was indeed powerful. The moment Bubbles opened the space-time tunnel, she was discovered and destroyed in one fell swoop. This ruined his plan of using the space-time tunnel to reach the top of the mountain. Brr. The quasi-thearch giant ape stood at the top of the mountain and roared towards the sky. Brr. Brr. The entire Violent Ape Mountain was in a riot. Loud roars sounded and violent apes appeared one after another. Some were barehanded, some were holding iron rods and some were grabbing huge rocks. They rushed towards Lu Ming and the others. At a distance, there were huge rocks the size of houses that smashed towards Lu Ming and the others. Charge! Lu Ming shouted. Everyone dashed toward the mountain peak at lightning speed. In the process of charging, Bubbles gently pressed her small hand. The space in front of her fluctuated and those huge rocks were crushed by the power of space. Then those violent apes rushed over. Bubbles pouted and spat out a bunch of bubbles that enveloped those giant apes. Lu Ming and the others attacked and killed those giant apes. As soon as those giant apes died, they turned into energy and disappeared. Following Lu Ming were Autumn Moon, Huang Ling, Luo Qianni, Long Qin, Huang Li, Ouyang Wushuang, Luo Xiang, Lu Ming and Bubbles. There were 9 of them in total. They were all absolute saints with king bodies and above. When they worked together, their speed was amazing. Regardless of whether they were absolute saints at the initial completion or absolute saint peak, they were almost instantly killed by the group. They were like a sharp knife that rushed to the top of the mountain. On the other side of the mountain there were also rumbles. Obviously, the ancient saint tribe had also started to attack the mountain. The ancient saint tribe has come at the right time. They can help us attract a group of violent apes. Ouyang Wushuang smiled. The others smiled as well. Indeed, the violent apes on the other side were attracted by the ancient saint tribe's attack. The pressure on them was much lower. Chapter 1918. At the peak of the mountain, the quasi-emperor violent ape roared at the sky. Its eyes were red as blood. It stomped heavily, causing the mountain rocks to explode and the entire mountain to shake violently. The violent ape's huge body charged toward Lu Ming and the others like a cannonball. The giant stick in its hand smashed toward Lu Ming and the others with unstoppable force. Chaotic Calamity Finger. Lu Ming pointed his finger and formed the Chaotic Calamity Finger. It blasted toward the violent ape and collided with the violent ape's giant stick. Boom. In the next moment, the Chaotic Calamity Finger was shattered, but the violent ape was also blocked. When Lu Ming was in the Great Saint Realm, he could cross realms and kill an expert in the Great Saint Realm. Although a quasi-emperor was much stronger than an expert in the Great Saint Realm, after breaking through to the Saint Realm, his combat strength had also increased greatly. He was now able to contend with an expert in the quasi-emperor realm. Chirp chirp. Bubbles stood on Lu Ming's shoulder. She opened her mouth and a transparent bubble formed, enveloping the violent ape. Brr. The violent ape roared and unleashed all of its strength to break the transparent bubble. However, Bubble's strength was enough to contend with a quasi-emperor realm. How could the violent ape break it so easily? Brr. Brr. Roars could be heard from the surroundings as the gigantic berserk apes charged toward them one after another. You guys block those violent apes. Leave this to Bubbles and me. Lu Ming shouted. Autumn Moon, Luo Qianni, and the others flashed and rushed toward the surrounding violent apes to block them. Lu Ming took the opportunity to attack the quasi-emperor violent ape. He pointed his finger again and a giant finger crushed toward the violent ape. Lu Ming wanted to take out the great elixir development furnace to refine the giant ape, but with a thought, he realized that there was no great elixir development furnace in his sea of consciousness. With a thought, Lu Ming understood. Although this array world was mysterious and unusual, it was not omnipotent. For example, it could not condense treasures that were above the level of emperor weapons. Imperial armaments were forged by martial emperors using all sorts of precious materials. If the formation world could create one, it would be too terrifying. The primal chaos tribulation finger crushed down. The violent ape roared and struggled with all its might, erupting with power to resist. However, it was suppressed by the law of space and time. The power it could unleash was less than half of its usual power. It was sent flying by the chaotic tribulation finger and crashed into the mountain peak. The mountain peak trembled, gravel flew everywhere and dust filled the air. Space slicer. Time stop. Bubble flew out and circulated the space-time law with all its might. Space turned into a terrifying cutting power that slashed towards Bao Yuan. At the same time, it used the space-time stop power to restrict Bao Yuan's movements. Lu Ming stepped forward and unleashed a primal chaos tribulation finger with all his might. When the two of them worked together, the law of primal chaos and the law of space-time worked together. Their battle prowess was not as simple as 1 + 1 = 2. Instead, it increased exponentially. The ferocious ape did not even have the strength to resist as the two attacks landed on its body. With a loud roar, its body directly exploded. After the violent ape's body exploded, it emitted a resplendent light. Within the light, 9 array discs actually appeared. So the array discs were inside the violent ape. Lu Ming was overjoyed. With a wave of his hand, he put away the 9 array discs. "We've got the array discs. Let's go." Lu Ming yelled and used the hell-suppressing art. 9 phantoms of the hell-suppressing steel appeared and sent the 9 powerful violent apes flying. Qiu Yu and the others took the opportunity to retreat and join up with Lu Ming and the others to break out of the encirclement. Behind them, the other violent apes roared and chased after Lu Ming's group. However, they were not good at speed and were quickly shaken off by Lu Ming's group. On Violent Ape Mountain, Xian Yinjuan looked into the distance and said, "Looks like the array discs have been taken by Lu Ming's group. Let's retreat." Then the ancient saints broke out of the encirclement and left. Not long after, Lu Ming's group left the holy battlefield and returned to their mountain peak. Lu Ming stood above the mountain peak. With a wave of his hand, 9 array discs appeared and emitted a bright light. One of the array discs floated above the mountain peak while the other 8 flew in all directions, forming a light screen that covered an area of 100 miles. Below, the prodigies of the Phoenix Palace, Divine Elephant Sect, Thunder God Sect, and other forces burst into cheers. With the array discs protecting them, they could cultivate in the Origin Mountain Sacred Court without worry. Usually, when they went to those cultivation grounds, they could go there in groups. After they finished cultivating, they would return here and not have to worry about being ambushed. Whoosh, whoosh. Ouyang Wushuang Long Qin, and the others flew to Lu Ming's side. "Lu Ming, now that we have the array discs, it's time to form an alliance." Ouyang Wushuang said. "Okay." Lu Ming nodded. "I'll make Lu Ming the leader. You guys won't have any objections, right?" Huang Li was the first to speak. Then he looked at Ouyang Wushuang and the others. "Of course I have no objections." Huang Ling said with a smile. "I have no objections either." "Me neither." Then Long Qin, Autumn Moon and Luo Xiang spoke. They naturally supported Lu Ming as the leader. Finally, everyone looked at Ouyang Wushuang and Luo Tianyi. "Of course I support Lu Ming." "Me too." Luo Tianyi and Ouyang Wushuang nodded. They were silver inheritors and had to listen to Lu Ming's orders. Why would they fight with Lu Ming for the leader position? "Okay, then our alliance will be called the Dragon Alliance. Inform the Sacred Court that the Dragon Alliance will be officially established in 3 days. We welcome everyone to join us." Lu Ming said and made the decision. His eyes shone with anticipation. He had an idea to bring the Dragon Alliance to greater heights in the Yuanlu and become an overlord force. Then everything would start from now on. The Origin Mountain Sacred Court was filled with the best prodigies from all over the world. If they were recruited into the Dragon Alliance now, it would definitely play a very important role in the future development of the Dragon Alliance. "Yes, Alliance Leader." Ouyang Wushuang immediately cupped his fists. "Greetings, Alliance Leader." Then Luo Tianyi, Huang Li, Long Qin, and the others cupped their fists one after another. Then the prodigies of the Phoenix Palace and the Divine Elephant Sect bowed to Lu Ming one after another. Then, everyone busied themselves with spreading the news and preparing for the banquet in 3 days. When the news spread, the Origin Mountain Sacred Court was shaken. The 3rd array disc fell into the hands of Lu Ming and the others. It was indeed shocking. The strength of Lu Ming and the others was obvious to all. They were definitely the strongest force in the valley. Some small groups that did not join the Celestial Supreme Alliance and the Divine Fire Alliance began to consider whether to join Lu Ming and the others. It's better to join the Celestial Supreme Alliance than the Dragon Alliance. Lu Ming offended the Hengxing River and will be killed by them sooner or later. That's right, and the people of the Heng family are guarding outside the Sacred Court. Lu Ming can't even get out of the Sacred Court. If he joins the Dragon Alliance, I'm afraid he will be implicated by Lu Ming. Maybe he will also be targeted by the Heng family. That would be terrible. This was the opinion of some small groups. They thought that Lu Ming and the others would be defeated by the Hengxing River sooner or later. If they joined the Dragon Alliance, they would probably be implicated. However, there were also some small groups that had the opposite opinion. They thought that Lu Ming and the others had endless potential. Although their cultivation was still low now, they would be very terrifying when they grew up in the future. Not to mention other things, Lu Ming's side even had 2 Elysian children. If their cultivation improved, would they be afraid of the Hengxing River? Therefore, some of them chose to join the Dragon Alliance. P.S. In addition to the previous accumulation and the desperately staying up late last night to write, I finally finished 30 chapters and fulfilled my promise to my brothers and sisters. Chapter 1919. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. The day of the Dragon Alliance's establishment had arrived. On this day, there were dozens of banquet tables set up on the mountain peak where they lived. Early in the morning, there were people who came to visit Lu Ming and were willing to join the Dragon Alliance. At noon, the number of people gradually increased. However, it was still a far cry from the day when the Heavenly Supreme Alliance was established. Obviously, there weren't many who thought highly of Lu Ming and the others. However, what made Lu Ming and the others happy was that 2 small groups had joined them. The leaders of these 2 groups were all prodigies with king bodies. Then, the prodigies of the Ancient Sun Sacred Ground and Purple Flame Villa all joined the Dragon Alliance. Some of the prodigies of the Purple Flame Villa had made a bet that they would serve Lu Ming for 50 years. Now that the Dragon Alliance was established, they naturally joined it. After the Purple Flame Villa people arrived, another group of people came and attracted everyone's attention. It's the Ancient Sacred Tribe. Someone exclaimed. The Ancient Sacred Tribe was also an alliance. There were more than 100 of them. At this moment, all of them had arrived. However, they were blocked outside the light screen formed by the array disk. If Lu Ming didn't want them to enter, they couldn't enter. Lu Ming, what's wrong? You won't let us in? Xian Yanqing smiled as she walked at the front of the group. Are you here to congratulate me? Lu Ming's voice sounded. No. Xian Yanjuan shook her head as a meaningful smile appeared at the corner of her lips. She said, we are here to join the Dragon Alliance. What? Many people were shocked. The Ancient Sacred Tribe was here to join the Dragon Alliance? Some people were overjoyed. The Ancient Sacred Tribe's strength was very shocking. In addition, there were a few people with king bodies who had allied with the Ancient Sacred Tribe. If the Ancient Sacred Tribe joined the Dragon Alliance, the Dragon Alliance's strength would be very strong. It might even surpass the Divine Fire Alliance and be second only to the Heavenly Supreme Alliance. Lu Ming was stunned. He didn't expect Xian Yinjuan to bring the Ancient Sacred Tribe back to join the Dragon Alliance and rely on him. Back in the Divine Wilderness Continent, Xian Yinjuan and he were mortal enemies. They wouldn't rest until one of them died. Xian Yinjuan's resentful expression was still fresh in his mind. What? Are we not welcome to join? Lu Ming, we're family. Xian Yinjuan said with a smile. What? Everyone was stunned. Autumn Moon, Huang Ling, Luo Tianyi, and the others all looked at Lu Ming curiously. Lu Ming and Xian Yinjuan were family? Could it be that Lu Ming and Xian Yinjuan had some secret relationship? Many people could not help but let their imaginations run wild. Xian Yinjuan chuckled and continued, Lu Ming, you're my brother-in-law. Now that I'm relying on you, do you really not welcome me? These words caused many people to be even more shocked. Especially Huang Ling, Qiu Moon, Luo Tianyi, and the other girls. Young master, are you married to Miss Nianqing? Well, they were so close back then. Now that so many years have passed, it's normal for them to get married. But why don't I see Miss Nianqing? Qiu Moon's mind was in a mess and she felt a little bitter. Then Qiu Moon shook her head and thought to herself, Qiu Moon, what are you thinking about? Young master and Miss Nianqing are a match made in heaven. You just need to stay by young master's side and serve him well. How can you be worthy of young master? So Lu Ming already has a wife, but why didn't he tell me? Huang Ling thought to herself, feeling a little disappointed. Luo Tianyi also had a strange look in her eyes. Among the crowd, only Long Chen was calm because he was Xian Yinjuan's true brother-in-law. Lu Ming smiled bitterly, but he could not refute Xian Yanjuan's words. With his relationship with Xian Yanqing, it was only a matter of time before they got married. Xian Yanjuan was Xian Yanqing's elder sister, so it wasn't wrong for her to call him brother-in-law. Are you really here to join the Dragon Alliance? Lu Ming narrowed his eyes and asked. Of course. Now that the Origin Mountain Holy Courtyard is divided and you are my family, I am most familiar with you. Naturally, I will come to join you. Xian Yanjuan said with a smile. Don't try to get close to me. Back then you wanted to kill me. I really doubt your intentions. Lu Ming said coldly. People change. Back then I was too short-sighted. Now I naturally have to look further. In this world there are no eternal enemies. Xian Yanjuan said with a smile on his face. Compared to the arrogant and indifferent person he used to be, it was indeed very different. You can join the Dragon Alliance, but the Dragon Alliance has its own rules. If you break the rules in the future, I will not show mercy. Lu Ming said. Of course. Xian Yanjuan chuckled. Her position in the ancient sacred tribe seemed to be extraordinary. The other ancient sacred tribe members seemed to listen to her. Lu Ming did not dare to underestimate Xian Yanjuan. Ever since he met this woman in Yuanlu, she gave Lu Ming a sense of danger. She was mysterious and unpredictable. Lu Ming felt that there was a terrifying force dormant in her body. Once it erupted, it would be earth-shattering. He also felt the same from Xian Yanqing. Then, Lu Ming controlled the disc array and let the ancient sacred tribe members in. Alright, let's start the alliance. Lu Ming waved his hand. However, this was the Yuanshan Saint Court after all, and the conditions were limited. The process of the alliance was very simple. Everyone greeted Lu Ming and then celebrated. While everyone was eating and drinking, outside the area covered by the disc array, another group of people arrived. People from the one only sacred palace. Lu Ming's gaze swept over. A few sky prides from the one only sacred palace stood outside the light screen. The leader was Yu Ji. Yu Ji, you have joined the Heavenly Supreme Alliance long ago. What business do you have with the Dragon Alliance today? Ouyang Wushuang's voice was heard. Do you want to change your allegiance and join the Dragon Alliance? The Dragon Alliance does not dare to accept people who change their allegiance at will. A sky pride from the Purple Flame Villa laughed. Humph, we are here today for my junior sister. Yu Ji snorted and looked at Autumn Moon. Junior sister Autumn Moon, come with us and join the Heavenly Supreme Alliance. If you stay in the Dragon Alliance, you will get into trouble sooner or later. Did Luo Zhangqiong ask you to come? Autumn Moon said indifferently. That's right. Luo Zhangqiong asked us to come, but it is also our own intention. There is no benefit for you to stay in the Dragon Alliance. Yu Ji said. Get lost. Autumn Moon scolded coldly. Yu Ji's face changed and became gloomy. Autumn Moon, don't be too selfish. Luo Zhangqiong is the grandson of a great emperor. If you go against him, you will only implicate the one only sacred palace and even your master. Hehe, you really know how to talk. The matter between the younger generation actually involves the one only sacred palace and the true emperor. Isn't it funny? Lu Ming said indifferently. Yu Ji, don't be so dignified. You are doing this for yourself. If you can bring me to the Heavenly Supreme Alliance, I am afraid Luo Zhangqiong will reward you handsomely. Autumn Moon said sarcastically. Yu Ji's face turned red. You don't want to get lost? Then come in and have a drink. Chapter 1920. Yu Ji and the other prodigies from the only sacred palace had a drastic change in expression. They turned around and ran. Their voices came from afar. Just you wait. Hehe, a few clowns. Huang Li grinned and returned to continue eating and drinking. After 3 rounds of drinking, the banquet finally ended. Those who joined the Dragon Alliance all lived within the range of the array disk. The establishment of the Dragon Alliance and the appearance of the third array disk made the atmosphere of the Origin Mountain Academy even more tense. Because 3 of the 4 array disks had already appeared, and there was only 1 left. The remaining small alliances competed even more fiercely. Killing broke out every day in the holy battlefield. After more than 10 days of competition, the 4th array disk was finally obtained by an alliance. That was the Knights Alliance. The leader of this alliance was a prodigy ranked 3rd on the King Sage board. He was very powerful. In this way, the 4 array disks were all obtained and formed the 4 great alliances. When the remaining small groups and alliances saw this, they all joined the 4 alliances to seek protection. Because without the protection of the array disk, the Origin Mountain Academy was in danger and could be attacked at any time. There were very few people who did not join the 4 great alliances. There were only a few powerful lone wolves such as the Son of Death, Deathblade. He came and went alone. But no one dared to offend him. No matter where he went to cultivate, no one dared to stop him. He was too powerful. Now, except for Xinghe, no one could say that they could defeat Death Blade. But in this way, it was confirmed that Death Blade was not related to the Dragon Alliance. But still, most people joined the Heavenly Supreme Alliance. Without a doubt, the Heavenly Supreme Alliance was the most powerful. Someone made a ranking of the 4 great alliances according to their strength. The Heavenly Supreme Alliance was first. The Dragon Alliance was second. The Divine Fire Alliance and the Knights Alliance were third and fourth respectively. In the following period of time, the Origin Mountain Academy was even more chaotic. The 4 great alliances, in order to compete for cultivation places, began to fight and kill. It was not until a few months later that the fighting stopped. The 4 great alliances each occupied some cultivation places. The Origin Mountain Sacred Ground entered a period of stability. The prodigies of the 4 great alliances each occupied a place and confronted each other. They began to cultivate with all their strength to improve their cultivation. During this time, Lu Ming would also choose some reliable people and use the Great Pill Furnace to help them refine their spirit bodies and raise their spirit bodies' grade. For example, the Desolate Race's 4 mid-grade Heaven Spiritual Body elites, with the help of the Great Evolution Cauldron, all of their spiritual bodies had evolved to high-grade Heaven Spiritual Bodies, greatly increasing their strength. As for Xuaningxin, with the help of the Great Development Cauldron, her spiritual body had also become a high-class spiritual body. Xuaningxin was originally a true dragon. With the help of the Great Development Cauldron, her spiritual body improved rapidly. The strength of the entire Dragon Alliance was continuously improving. In the blink of an eye, more than a year had passed. At this time, a year and a half had passed since the Great Emperor gave his Tao lecture and announced the new rules. During this period of time, although Lu Ming often helped others temper their spirit bodies, he did not neglect his own cultivation. The place he spent the most time in was the Holy Battlefield. In the Holy Battlefield, he fought with powerful ferocious beasts to stimulate his own potential through battle. Lu Ming's cultivation had also successfully made another breakthrough, reaching the great completion of the Absolute Saint Realm. As for the other king bodies such as Autumn Moon, Huangling, Huangli Longqin and the others, they had all made breakthroughs, reaching the great completion of the Absolute Saint Realm. Luo Chanyi had even reached the pinnacle of the Absolute Saint Realm. The higher the cultivation, the harder it was to make a breakthrough. It was already very fast to make a breakthrough in more than a year, and this was also because of the good cultivation conditions in the Saint Academy of Yuan Mountain. If it was normal cultivation, it definitely wouldn't be so fast. As for the divine powers, since Lu Ming's divine powers had reached 90% mastery, the improvement had become even slower. After a year and a half, Lu Ming's divine powers had only reached 93%. Every step was very difficult. Especially the closer he was to perfection, the harder it was. Heng Xinghe had reached the great completion of the Absolute Saint Realm a year and a half ago, but it was definitely not that easy to take this step and reach the Boundary Emperor Realm. Celestial City was the head of the 9 great sacred grounds in the land of Yuan Mountain. Its overall strength was much stronger than Ancient Moon's sacred ground. Celestial City had a few of the biggest ancient families, all of which had been passed down for countless years. They were powerful and had a strong foundation. Hung family was one of them, known as the descendants of the Celestial Emperor. Yi family was also one of them. Their strength and foundation were incomparably strong, and they were as famous as Hung family. Moreover, He family and Hung family had a grudge against each other, and they competed with each other. 1,000 years ago, the two families had a terrible war, and the casualties were unparalleled. It was only in the recent hundreds of years that things had calmed down. The He family's mansion occupied an extremely vast and boundless area. In the He family's mansion, there were not only endless palaces and pavilions, but also mountains that towered into the clouds and winding rivers. It was like a country. On a mountain peak of He family's mansion, there were a few figures standing. One of them was a white-haired elder with a kind expression. Beside the elder stood a burly young man. These two people were Ice Dragon Valley Master and Tianshui. Not far from them there was another elder. This elder was wearing a brocade robe, embroidered with patterns of different scenery of the 4 seasons. However, he was very old, much older than Ice Dragon Valley Master. His face was full of wrinkles, piled up like a mountain. His hair was almost gone and his vitality was dried up. However, from the moment his eyes opened and closed, there was a flash of terrifying light. One could tell that this person was definitely a very terrifying expert. However, the 3 of them were looking at the center of the mountain peak, where a young girl was sitting cross-legged. This young girl was Lu Ming's first direct disciple, Xiang Lu. At this moment, Lu Xiangxiang's body was emitting a mysterious radiance. The vicinity of the mountain peak was filled with endless vitality. Countless flowers and trees grew wildly. Small trees turned into towering ancient trees, and even some ordinary grass turned into spiritual herbs with spirituality. Boom. After a moment, Lu Xiangxiang's aura suddenly skyrocketed. She broke through. On the side, the eyes of the skinny elder, Ice Dragon Valley Master, and Tian Chui lit up, and they were all amazed. Lu Xiangxiang had broken through, and she had broken through to the peak of the Great Sacred Realm. Especially Ice Dragon Valley Master and Tian Chui, who were utterly astounded. When they had escaped from the Tsang continent, Xiangxiang's cultivation was at the advanced martial dominator realm. Now that a few years had passed, Xiangxiang's cultivation had reached the peak of the Great Sacred Realm. Xiangxiang was not even 15 years old. A few hours later, Lu Xiangxiang withdrew her aura. She opened her eyes and rose to her feet. A few years had passed, Xiangxiang had become a beautiful young girl. Her figure was tall and her appearance was stunning. She already had the potential to be a great beauty. Haha, not bad, Xiangxiang, I didn't expect you to break through so quickly and reach the peak of the Great Sacred Realm. Such an achievement is rare even in the entire Yuan Mountain. The skinny elder came over and said with a smile. Thank you for the compliment, Senior He Gao. Chapter 1921. What I'm saying is the truth, not a compliment. In the land of Yuan Mountain, there are only a few people who can compare to your achievements. The skinny old man He Gao smiled and changed the topic. Xiangxiang, have you considered what I said before about you acknowledging me as your master? Xiangxiang, thanks Senior for your kindness. However, Xiangxiang already has a master. Without my master's permission, Xiangxiang does not dare to accept another master. Xiangxiang politely bowed and declined the other party's offer. He Gao's face sank slightly and said, Xiangxiang, you have to consider carefully. I am a true emperor. What is your master's cultivation? Although my master's cultivation is not high, Xiangxiang believes that he will become a peak expert in this world in the future. Xiangxiang said tenderly with a firm look in her eyes. In her heart, Lu Ming was the strongest. Although his cultivation was not as high as He Gao's, he would surpass He Gao sooner or later. Silly girl. How can it be so easy to become a peak expert in Yuan continent? Moreover, he can't even protect his own disciple. What achievements can he have? He might have already fallen by now. You are still young. Don't be fooled by the flowery words of others. He Gao said with a smile. He thought that Xiangxiang was still a child and did not understand anything. Xiangxiang's face sank slightly and said, Senior He Gao, you have saved Xiangxiang Valley Master Grandpa and Martial Uncle Tian Chui. Xiangxiang is grateful to you. However, please do not insult my master. Otherwise Xiangxiang will have to leave. Alright. I will not force you. You can slowly think about it. However, you have to cultivate the 4 seasons cultivation technique that I will impart to you. The 4 seasons cultivation technique is very compatible with your physique. It can stimulate your potential to a greater extent. Your talent is unparalleled. I really do not want to see you being held back and wasting your talent. He Gao sighed. However, no one noticed that a cold glint flashed in the depths of his eyes. Alright. Xiangxiang nodded and her face looked better. Xiangxiang, you and your martial uncle Tian Chui should go back first. I have something to discuss with Grandpa Valley Master. He Gao smiled. Alright. Goodbye, Senior He Gao. Goodbye, Valley Master Grandpa. Xiangxiang nodded obediently. After bidding farewell to He Gao and Ice Dragon Valley Master, she soared into the sky and left with Sky Hammer. The moment Xiangxiang and Sky Hammer left, He Gao's face darkened. He looked coldly at Ice Dragon Valley Master and a terrifying aura pressed down on him. Ice Dragon Valley Master's body trembled and he could not help but retreat. His face was pale. He Gao was a true emperor, so Ice Dragon Valley Lord couldn't resist at all. I told you to persuade Xiangxiang to take me as her master. It seems like you didn't persuade her. He Gao said with a dark face. It's Xiangxiang's own choice who she wants to take as her master. What's the point of me trying to persuade her? If she wants to acknowledge you as her master, why would she need me to persuade her? Ice Dragon Valley Master said. He Gao snorted and said, what about when I told you to persuade Xiangxiang to cultivate the 4 seasons technique? Did you persuade her? Ice Dragon Valley Master's eyes flashed with a strange light. He stared at He Gao and said, why do you want Xiangxiang to cultivate the 4 seasons technique? You don't have to care about that. Just persuade her to cultivate it. Higao said. Ice Dragon Valley Master sneered and said, "You can kill me. No matter what, I won't force Xiang to do something she doesn't want to do." "You want to die? It's not that easy," Higao said coldly as a cold light flashed in his eyes. Then Ice Dragon Valley Master's body trembled as if he was experiencing endless pain. After a while, even with Ice Dragon Valley Master's composure, he couldn't hold it in anymore and let out a painful roar. His gentle face was completely twisted because of the pain. Ice Dragon Valley Master kept roaring and his body was covered in cold sweat. He stretched out his claws and wanted to scratch his body, but an invisible force enveloped him and made it hard for him to move. Soul-devouring worms can constantly bite your soul and make you suffer incomparable pain. It's 10 times or 100 times more painful than the physical body. Enjoy it, Higao said coldly. You're so despicable. If Xiang knows about it, she'll probably leave, Ice Dragon Valley Master roared. If she wants to leave, it'll be the time of your death, Higao said coldly. Ice Dragon Valley Master roared again. He felt that his soul was being bitten by a worm and endless pain drowned him. After a while, Higao waved his hand and controlled the soul-devouring worms to stop biting. Ice Dragon Valley Master's body fell to the ground and he gasped for breath. His body was drenched in cold sweat. "I'll give you 2 more months to persuade Xiang to be my disciple and cultivate the 4 seasons cultivation technique with me. Otherwise you'll suffer a fate worse than death. Also, don't try to tell Xiang or seek death. Otherwise Xiang and Tianchue will die," Higao said coldly. Then he took a step forward and disappeared from the place. Ice Dragon Valley Master took a few deep breaths and sat down with his legs crossed to recover. After half an hour he recovered. "Higao, why are you so persistent to let Xiang cultivate the 4 seasons cultivation technique? This person is sinister and cunning. He's definitely not doing it for Xiang's sake like he said. What should I do now?" Ice Dragon Valley Master frowned and pondered. Higao always put on an amiable look in front of Xiang. However, after Xiang left, he would show his true colors. Higao had planted the soul-devouring worm in him to threaten him to persuade Xiang to be Higao's disciple. Ice Dragon Valley Master would never allow Xiang to be Higao's disciple. However, this was the He clan. There were many strong cultivators in the He family. Anyone in the He family could kill him with his initial completion absolute saint cultivation. He wanted to take Xiang and the others away, but there was nothing he could do. He might even implicate Xiang and the others. He returned to his residence worriedly. Their residence was a huge monastery. The monastery was guarded by experts. Not even a fly would be able to get out. "Valley Master Grandpa, what did Senior Higao say to you?" Ice Dragon Valley Master saw Xiang as soon as he returned to the courtyard. Xiang asked curiously. "Nothing. I just asked Senior Higao about the whereabouts of Lu Ming and the others." Ice Dragon Valley Master found a random reason. His face darkened and he said, Xiang, did you cultivate the 4 seasons cultivation technique that Higao gave you? Didn't Valley Master Grandpa tell me not to cultivate it? That's why I didn't cultivate it." Xiang shook her head and said, Remember, don't cultivate it. Just cultivate the technique that your master gave you." Ice Dragon Valley Master reminded her. Xiang knows. Chapter 1922. For the next few days, the Valley Master of Ice Dragon Valley walked around the courtyard, observing the terrain and looking for a way to leave the He family. However, how powerful was the He clan? Experts were as common as clouds, and there were spiritual senses everywhere. If he wanted to leave the He clan openly, it was impossible for him to not alert the He clan. On this day, the Valley Master of Ice Dragon Valley arrived outside another mansion. This is Higao's mansion. The Valley Master of Ice Dragon Valley was stunned and subconsciously restrained his aura. Then he saw a middle-aged man leading 2 young women into Higao's door. Why do you think Elder Higao often asks people to send young women in? And he even teaches them cultivation? The 2 men guarding the door were middle-aged men. At this moment, one of them spoke softly. Hearing this, the Valley Master of Ice Dragon Valley's heart skipped a beat. He restrained his aura to the extreme and circulated his saint power to his ears so that he could hear more clearly. "I secretly heard some news. I'll tell you, but you can't spread it," the other man guarding the door whispered. "What news?" The man from before revealed a curious expression. "I heard that these women are all Elder Higao's cultivation vessels. Elder Higao sent these women a modified version of the 4 seasons cultivation technique. When these women succeeded in their cultivation, Elder He Gao visited these women and devoured their primordial yin completely, using it to increase his cultivation. I heard that Elder He Gao's tribulation is coming soon, but he is not confident that he can survive it. That's why he used this method to raise his cultivation to fight against the tribulation that occurs once every 300,000 years. The man behind explained softly. Hearing this, the Valley Master of Ice Dragon Valley was shocked. He felt cold sweat on his back. He finally knew why He Gao had always wanted to take Xiang Xiang as his disciple and wanted to send Xiang Xiang the Four Seasons technique. Taking her as his disciple was fake. His real goal was to let Xiang Xiang cultivate He Gao's Four Seasons technique. Xiang Xiang was a living body. If she cultivated He Gao's Four Seasons technique and had her primordial yin devoured by He Gao, it would be of great help to He Gao. This was He Gao's real goal. Ice Dragon Valley Master was terrified. Fortunately, he felt that something was wrong and did not let Xiang Xiang cultivate the Four Seasons technique. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. He Gao, you old bastard, you're completely heartless. Ice Dragon Valley Master gritted his teeth in worry. He had to think of a way to escape. It was too dangerous to continue like this. If Xiang Xiang didn't cultivate the Four Seasons cultivation technique, who knew if He Gao would use other shameless methods to force Xiang Xiang to cultivate it? Ice Dragon Valley Master returned to his courtyard uneasily. Grandpa Valley Master, what's wrong? Xiang Xiang saw that Ice Dragon Valley Master was uneasy and asked in surprise. I'm fine, I'm fine. Ice Dragon Valley Master shook his head. He couldn't tell Xiang Xiang about this. If he told Xiang Xiang would ask He Gao in a fit of anger. He Gao would probably fall out with him immediately. He had to hide this matter in his heart and plan in secret. Xiang Xiang, you must not cultivate the Four Seasons cultivation technique. Ice Dragon Valley Master warned again. Seeing Xiang Xiang nod her head obediently, Ice Dragon Valley Master was relieved. Time passed quickly. In a blink of an eye, a month had passed. Xiang Xiang, in 2 days there will be a grand auction in Celestial City. Let me bring you to take a look. He Gao found Xiang Xiang and revealed a kind smile. Okay. Xiang Xiang cheered. She had been cultivating in the He family all this time and had long wanted to go out for a walk. I'll bring Xiang Xiang out for a walk. He Gao said to Ice Dragon Valley Master and Sky Hammer, then walked out with Xiang Xiang. Ice Dragon Valley Master revealed a worried look, but there was nothing he could do. Origin Mountain Holy Courtyard, Lu Ming also planned to go out. In this period of time, he helped some people to temper their spirit body and consumed a large amount of holy medicine. Even the holy medicine brought by Huang Ling and the others are not much left. Therefore he planned to go out and buy some holy medicine. For more than a year, Hung family has been sending experts to guard the surroundings of the Origin Mountain Holy Courtyard. As long as Lu Ming went out, they would take action against Lu Ming. Lu Ming is not afraid of this. He has divine breath technique, he can change his appearance and aura. With his current cultivation, even if a martial emperor stood in front of him, they would not be able to recognize him. The reason why he did not go out before was because he did not want to go out. If he wanted to go out, he could go out at any time. Lu Ming's appearance changed, he turned into a young man with a white complexion. At the same time he changed into a white robe and held a folding fan. He suddenly turned into an elegant young master. Even his aura is different from before. Lu Ming smiled, stepped on the air and flew towards the gate of the Origin Mountain Holy Courtyard. Then he swaggered out of the gate of the Origin Mountain Holy Courtyard. Outside the Origin Mountain Holy Courtyard, 2 Hung family martial emperors have been guarding the place. When they saw Lu Ming come out, their spiritual sense swept over Lu Ming's body. They did not find any abnormality, so they did not care about him. Origin Mountain Holy Courtyard is a place where heaven's prides gather. Every day young people come and go. Ordinary martial emperors really can't see through me. Lu Ming faintly smiled and swaggered out of the Origin Mountain Holy Courtyard. Not long after he arrived at this bustling place, he heard that there would be a grand auction in Celestial City today. At that time, there would be a lot of rare treasures being auctioned. Even martial emperors would be there. Lu Ming immediately became interested and walked towards the auction house. After paying a certain fee, he walked into the auction house. So many people. As soon as he walked into the auction house, he saw an extremely spacious hall. Countless figures gathered in the hall. Rough estimation, there are no less than hundreds of thousands of people. Around the hall there were VIP rooms. Of course, they were all prepared for those who were powerful or had prominent statuses. Most of the people can only stay in the hall. Lu Ming casually found a seat in the hall and sat down. As time went by, the number of people increased. An hour later the auction began. The first auction item made Lu Ming's eyes widen. Because it is an emperor weapon. Lu Ming sighed. Celestial City's grand auction is indeed extraordinary. The first auction item is actually an emperor weapon. However, although Lu Ming covets it, the price of an emperor weapon is astonishing. Moreover, a group of people are competing for it. The price rose to a terrifying level. Lu Ming can only look at it and sigh. In the end, the emperor weapon was bought by a person in the VIP room at a terrifying price. He is suspected to be a martial emperor powerhouse. The auction continued. The value of the second auction item is far less valuable than the emperor weapon. This is natural. In an auction there are at least hundreds of treasures. It is impossible for each of them to be as valuable as the emperor weapon. That would be too shocking. But even so, the second auction item is also a rare treasure. Everyone bid enthusiastically, one treasure after another was bought.